Chapter 500 Noah's Struggle and Victory. Wow. Blue flame? Seeing the bright blue flame he had conjured, waves of exclamation immediately sounded throughout the arena. Since every alchemist, including Leylon and Jennifer, had emerald green fires, Noah's bright blue flame became the center of attention in the arena. Many spectators gasped in shock as they stared at the dancing blue fire without batting an eye. Primordial flame? Eyeing the cluster of blue flame hovering above Noah's palm, Hendrix was astonished. This young man has godly luck to possess a primordial flame. The sky's the limit for him. That's my friend Noah Winston, ya sons of bitches. A childish voice echoed through the arena from the spectators. Michael looked in the direction to see the golden Babaru bouncing up and down atop Alicia's shoulder. When Alicia saw Michael's gaze landing on her, her eyes flickered, radiating immense killing intent. However, Michael turned his gaze away from her, completely ignoring her. As far as he was concerned, she was not even worth fighting. With her core formation cultivation level, killing him would only be possible in her dreams and imaginations. The blue flame danced around lively on Noah's palm like a fairy. A moment later, Noah waved his palm gently. The blue flame was shot out from his palm, surrounding the cauldron. The primordial flame swiftly raised the temperature of the icy cold cauldron as the pearl-white surface slowly turned bright orange. Noah kept his palm pointed at the cauldron until the orange glow turned bright blue. At the moment, the cauldron looked as though it was carved out of a giant sapphire stone. Under the control of Noah, the blue flame suppressed its temperature obediently. It did not pose the slightest resistance. After the fire swirled around the cauldron for a few more minutes, Noah slowly took a red claw-like ingredient from the table and dropped it in the cauldron. Immediately, a puff of green mist shot out from the cauldron as Noah placed another ingredient into the cauldron. His movements were slow and steady as a single misstep could result in the cauldron exploding in his face. Each time Noah dropped an ingredient into the cauldron, a green puff of mist shot out from within. To refine a pill or a potion, the ingredients must be purified to a certain degree. Sometimes, even if the purity was just a tad bit less, it could result in the refining process failing. Hence, an alchemist must know the properties of an ingredient and when to take it out from the fire. Otherwise, the pill or potion would have less purity or completely dissolve after coming out of the fire. Fortunately, Noah possessed the needed knowledge about the ingredients in the formula. Thus, no explosion had happened yet. So he's training him to fight me more than alchemy, Michael thought when he noticed Noah's slow refining skills. Michael felt as though he was watching a sloth refining a pill. It had been 15 minutes, still Noah didn't even extract the essence from the ingredients. While extracting the essence, Noah glanced at his two sides to notice Jennifer and Leylon had similar serious faces as him. However, their movements did not show any signs of being flustered. They may look serious but did not sweat like most alchemists in the arena. Both Leylon and Jennifer had everything under control. Bang! Just as Noah withdrew his gaze, a cauldron on a jade not far away exploded into pieces. However, a golden light appeared around the table, sucking the fire before it could harm the alchemist. Following the cauldron explosion, the jade mirror placed within the table let out bright red light, signifying the elimination. Although the golden light saved the alchemist, unfortunately, it didn't save his hair. The man's face had streaks of ash as he stood there foolishly watching the flickering red light with a stunned look on his face. A long while later he finally cursed out loud before leaving the platform. As the man walked past Noah was surprised because he had met him before. When Noah met the man, he was a 3-star alchemist in Kingdom Dreidel. A pity? Noah laughed somewhat gloatingly in his heart. He then threw aside the small interlude and continued to extract the essence from the ingredients one at a time. While Noah was extracting the essence, Michael talked to Eve, getting an idea about what was going on in especially in Nagaland. As time slowly flowed by, the jade mirrors repeatedly flashed red lights in the arena. Whenever the red light flickered, one left the arena with either a sad or a mad face. While the test was quite difficult, one could say that alchemists who participated in the competition were people with great skills. Apart from the eliminated alchemists, many silently continued to refine the pill so they could move to the next round. After nearly half of the sand within that ghostly hourglass had fallen, Noah finally formed colorful beads of essence above the cauldron. Even though Noah refined the pill slower than Michael expected, he did not waste any ingredients. The next thing was to merge the colorful beads into a ball of essence and turn them into the burn healer pill. Compared to the extracting part, combining was the trickiest and required absolute focus. A slight deviation in focus would result in failure, and Noah would have to start from scratch again. Knowing the last step's importance, Noah closed his eyes for a moment, canceling all the noises around him. Then he opened his eyes with his mind completely focused on the essence beads. Finally, he exhaled and pulled his hands together as the essence beads floating in the air slowly moved towards each other. The blue flames gradually faded away as Noah pulled the beads closer and closer to each other. He felt the beads resisting as the same poles of magnets. It took a little bit of raw strength for Noah to merge them. Nonetheless, Noah showed no signs of struggle. On the contrary, he looked just as calm as ever. "Why is he taking so long?" Eve asked Michael. After talking for some time, Eve felt comfortable with Michael. Hence, she whispered to Michael, slightly leaning towards him, "He's trying to merge all the beads at one go instead one by one like the others," Michael explained to Eve. He had to say. She became a good friend in such a short amount of time. When he travels to R, Eve would definitely welcome him with open arms, not literally of course. With her help, he could expand his business empire and sect to R. But for now he focused on two things: assassinating Tenulia for Peyton and judging the competition. "He is a fool to try that," Gabriel snickered. "It's way too early for us to judge him, Lord Gabriel," Adevan defended Noah as Edith frowned from behind. Then she closed her eyes and began to pray for Noah silently. The sand within the enormous hourglass swiftly scattered down. Sponsored content. Visit Readle Me for extra chapters. Ding. Leylon, who struggled to merge the last bead, finally succeeded. As soon as the beads became one orb of purple liquid, Leylon once again conjured the emerald-green flames and kept the orb above the flame for it to harden into a pill. Gradually, the purple ball shrunk until it became the size of a tablet. Additionally, the pill radiated a bright glow, unlike the pills concocted by the other alchemists. "That's how you do it." The pride on his face was difficult to hide as he banged the table loud enough for everyone to lose their focus for a moment. Michael frowned, looking at his actions. But since the other judges remained silent, he didn't raise any concern. "Done." Jennifer raised her voice and revealed the purple people looking the same as Leyland's pill to the spectators. "Good," Eve murmured. In her voice, Michael could sense the joy and pride. "Time is almost up." Alred stared at Noah in the center spot, who was still yet to merge the beads. On the other hand, Aishan looked at the ghostly sand in the hourglass that had almost completely fallen. His hand abruptly tightened. Within the large arena, countless gazes landed in the middle where Noah was. They then eyed the sand in the hourglass that was splashing down. All of the spectators wanted to know if Noah, who stood in the center, attracting the most attention, would be able to complete the test. "What do you think, Ghost?" Eve asked curiously Michael, who was still looking at Noah with a calm face. Unlike the rest, Michael was sure Noah would finish the pill and surprise everyone with his purity level. "He will surprise everyone," Michael said, calming Edith's nerves. The very little sand within the hourglass quietly descended. Then, at the very last moment, the last piece of sand rolled down. A pitiful sound came from the audience in the VIP seats. The blue flames suddenly shot out of Noah's hand and enveloped the beads. As soon as the blue flames disappeared, a round pill flew out at the very last moment, radiating dazzling bright light. Noah's pill glowed brighter compared to Leyland's and Jennifer's. The instant the pill landed on his palm, the little remaining sand finally fell. Hundreds of red lights in the arena, behind those alchemists who had still not finished refining the pill, lit up. Disappointedly looking at the flashing red light, those alchemists smiled bitterly and took back their respective cauldrons. Then, with disappointed looks, they exited the square. Standing behind the jade table, Noah looked at the contestants leaving the arena one after another. This was just the first round of the competition, yet 1/3 of the participants had been eliminated unexpectedly. He let out a sigh as he thought about the difficulty of the competition. Playing with the pill in his hand, Noah turned his head to the nearby Leylon, whose face was full of bright smiles. Despite having less brighter pill than Noah, Leylon seemed arrogant and proud because he finished first. He looked at Noah with his pill steadily grasped in his hand and said, a smile, "You truly have good luck. Even with the primordial flame, you only managed to refine the pill at the last moment." However, Noah just responded to Leylon with a calm smile, "It's not so important who starts the game but who finishes it. In this grand competition, attended by countless outstanding alchemists, refining with the fastest speed and an undeniable skill," Leylon laughed. He was unwilling to let Noah's higher purity pill outshine his achievements. "If you say so," Noah shrugged as he no longer wished to quarrel with Leylon. Instead, he turned his head toward Jennifer and smiled. Then, looking up at the VIP seats, he saw Hendrix waiting for his turn to speak. "Sigh," In the VIP seats, Asian heavily exhaled. He used his sleeves to wipe off the cold sweat on his forehead. Why does this brat have to be so dramatic every time? Chapter 501 Demonstration. Hendrix stood at a spot on the front of the platform. He looked down from the top and watched the entire open ground. His gaze swept across the arena, looking at the place where a third of the competitors had been eliminated. Congratulations to all of you who are still standing. You have more or less successfully passed the test for the first round. However, the round is not over, Hendrix said with a smile. Alchemy is a complex art. Some alchemists may have concocted a pill that might look like a high-purity pill. However, they might not have the desired healing properties. Hence, we will check whether the pill has achieved the required level. The slightly hoarse voice of Hendrix slowly sounded in everyone's ears. Now, can all the competitors please search for a green-colored button located at the bottom left corner of your jade table? Hearing this, Noah looked at the table until his gaze finally stopped at the bottom left corner, which was not very noticeable. He was somewhat stunned to see a few different colored small buttons scattered there. His finger followed the instructions and stopped on the green button before pressing it down gently. As he pressed the button, the bright, clean rock table suddenly trembled slightly. On its surface, a slate was slowly protruding out. Once it was raised by around half a foot, it sank slightly and finally revealed a small hole. Place the pill you have refined into the hole in the table. If you have achieved the requirement, a green light will flash on the jade mirror and red if your pill has failed to meet the requirements. In case of red light, you will be eliminated from the competition, and I request the alchemist to leave the premises in a peaceful manner. Hendrix paused for a moment to let everything he said sink into their heads. Additionally, the brighter the green light, the higher the purity of the pill. On the other hand, the brighter the red light, the farther you went from the actual burn healer. But fret not, at least your pill can be used to satisfy hunger. Hearing the humorous joke that sounded in the air above the open ground, the spectators laughed from the spectators' stand. Everyone begin, Hendrix said as the alchemist prepared to test the pills they concocted. As he caressed the round pill with his fingers, Noah calmly stared at the hole in the table. He did not hurriedly throw the pill in. Instead, his gaze swept around him. At this moment, some alchemists had already begun throwing their medicinal pills into the testing machine. Not long after that happened, the arena suddenly became very colorful. Strong and weak green and red lights interweaved as they glittered. Each brought either joy or gloominess to the alchemists' faces. Bullshit! A two-star alchemist slammed the jade table looking at the flickering red light. He gritted his teeth and under countless people's gazes, he quickly put his cauldron in his space ring and ascended to the air. What the fuck is this round? You actually gave us the wrong formula and asked us to decode and concoct it within 30 minutes. This is a joke. Noah saw another alchemist smashing the table and leaving the area while cursing the judges. For a few minutes, Noah continued watching the alchemists leaving the arena until he heard Jennifer's melodious voice draw his attention. Master Noah, why don't we do it together? Jennifer smiled, fiddling with the pill in her hand. Anything will do. Noah indifferently shrugged his shoulders. He eyed Leylon, whose eyes were fixated on him. Following Jennifer's request, Leylon, Noah, and Jennifer simultaneously threw their pills into the hole. As the three of them threw in their medicinal pills, every spectator on the stand turned their gazes to the arena center where the trio was standing. Everyone wanted to know who concocted a better pill. Bang bang bang. The jade mirror was a little quiet. Then, a moment later, a slightly muffled sound erupted, and three bright streaks of green light abruptly shot out from the jade tables towards the sky. The density of any of the green lights was clearly much denser than any of the green lights that had appeared in the open ground before. All three streaks of light looked the same, except when looked closer, the streak of light shooting out of Noah's table looked slightly denser. You were right, Eve said to Michael as Michael predicted Noah would concoct a better pill than the rest. Your sister needs better control over her fire. If she had, she would have matched Noah, Michael whispered to Eve without letting Alred hear him. In a short amount of time he had become a good friend to Eve. Something about her made him feel closer to her and treat her as his friend. Haha, Master Noah really got the better of us. Although you finished your pill at the last second, yours is the purest. I admit you won this round. Jennifer watched the light streak coming from Noah's table with sparkling eyes. She then shook her head and sighed. I am pretty sure mine is only 1 or 2% purer than yours, Noah smiled. Then, turning to the other side, he saw Leyland's dark face. Instead of uttering any words, the corner of Leyland's mouth twitched. He inhaled deeply and turned his head over, staring viciously at the jade mirror which was flashing green light. his heart suddenly had an impulse to smash it to pieces. That young man has a bright future, Hendrix said with a smile as he observed the 3 streaks of light. Ghost, why don't you demonstrate to them how you would concoct the pill? Eve asked loud enough for all the judges to hear her. For a moment, Michael had the urge to hug Eve and give her kisses on the cheek. If anyone should, it's Lord Hendrix. Since he's the best among us, Gabriel calmly said without showing his hatred for Ghost. Everyone who knew Gabriel knew he would hate anyone who stole his spotlight. Considering Ghost dethroned him as the #1 alchemist in Elon and Azair, naturally, Gabriel loathed Michael to the core. They knew how Gabriel would think even if Gabriel didn't show it openly. I have to disagree with you, Lord Gabriel. He has reached a height I never could at his age. It's only a matter of time before he surpasses all of us and becomes the #1 alchemist in the world. Hendrix turned his gaze from the participants to Gabriel. It's settled then. Ghost, please give them a demonstration. Alred gestured at Michael to go to the ground level so the participants could see Michael in action. Everyone, Hendrix clapped as the entire arena became silent once again. Before we move on to the second round, let one of the judges demonstrate how to concoct the blood healer pill using the same ingredients as you. Michael slowly stood up from his seat as the crowd immediately became excited. This is so exciting. Yee. Sponsored content. Visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. I can't wait. How long will it take him to make the pill? The crowd began to chitter-chatter while the participants looked up to see Michael descending from the VIP seats to the ground. Please use my table, Jennifer quickly said before even Michael's feet could touch the ground. Under thousands of gazes, Michael strolled to Jennifer's table, where he saw a batch of ingredients lying on the table. At the moment, Michael was everyone's center of attention. From the VIP seatings, Eve stood up from her seat and came to the edge to see Michael in action. Look closer. I will try to concoct the pill slowly. Michael enhanced his voice through arch energy. Thus, his voice sounded loud and clear throughout the arena. Miss Jennifer, may I? Instead of conjuring his alchemy flames and directly extracting the essence from the ingredients, as usual, Michael asked for Jennifer's cauldron. Lord Hendrix. Michael looked up at Hendrix as he clapped his hands to turn the ghostly hourglass upside down. Ding. The hourglass began to rain sand down with a loud band. With a calm face, Michael conjured his alchemy flames. The emerald green flames disappointed many as they expected Ghost to possess a different color flame. However, Hendrix's calm eyes perplexed, sensing weird energy from the flames surrounding Jennifer's crimson-red cauldron. Other than Hendrix, none sensed anything different about Michael's flames. Under their gazes, Michael controlled the fire in one hand while picking up the first ingredient in the other. However, before any green mist could appear from the cauldron like when the others refined the ingredient, Michael put another ingredient into the cauldron. Whoa, he's extracting the essence from the ingredients at the same time? Adovan gasped as Michael put all the ingredients into the cauldron instead of one by one. In a few blinks of an eye, colorful beads emerged from the cauldron and hovered above the cauldron. Many gasped in shock, and even Leylon and Noah couldn't help being stunned by his skills. Michael made it look simple, but as an alchemist, they both knew how hard it is to extract essence from all the ingredients at the same time. Wow! Jennifer stared at his every single move without blinking an eye. Her jaw dropped a couple of inches just like the rest. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 2,000 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 1,000 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 1,200 badass points. The badass points rapidly increased as the notification sound continued to ring in his head. At the moment, they looked closer at the beads, wondering whether he would merge them one by one or merge them all like Noah. To everyone's surprise, Michael moved his palms closer and closer as the beads began to merge with each other. Noah's method was difficult, but not for Michael. It only took him less than a minute to merge all the beads into an orb of essence. Noah saw no signs of struggle on Ghost's face. The next moment, the emerald green flames appeared once again, surrounding the orb of essence. The flames swirled around the orb for a few seconds before disappearing out of existence. When the fire disappeared, a glowing purple pill hovered in the air, radiating a sweet fragrance. Since Leylon, Noah, and Jennifer stood closer to Ghost, they could smell the fragrance coming from the pill. Under 2 minutes, Aishan gasped after he saw the hourglass. Then, just like him, countless sounds of people gasping reverberated in the arena. They were all stunned beyond words. While his speed stupefied them, Michael flicked his wrist as the pill went straight into the hole in Jennifer's table. Then, unlike never before, the table began to tremble, producing a whistling sound. Boom. Then, a muffled burst sounded from the table as a bright streak of green light shot towards the sky. The streak of light turned everyone and everything green with its brightness. It was several times brighter and denser than Noah's streak of light. "That's how you make a burn healer in 70 seconds, Michael calmly said, shocking everyone in the arena. Chapter 502. End of the second round. After everything was said and done, Michael ascended to the air and returned to his seat in the VIP seats, leaving the participants and the spectators stunned. And he was thrilled with the number of badass points he received. Olivia was clapping and bouncing up and down in joy from the spectators. Unlike the battle tournaments, the judges gave no break to the alchemists. Clapping his hands again, Hendrix drew everyone's attention to him. "Alright, since everyone has completed the test and witnessed what you can do when you increase your skills, let us start the second round. Please press the red button on the bottom right of the table." Hearing Hendrix, Noah moved his finger to the small round red button on the bottom right. As he pressed the button, the jade table suddenly trembled slightly. Then, the hole in the center disappeared as a pile of neatly stacked ingredients and a golden parchment slowly appeared on the clear, sleek table. The second round requires all of you to follow the formula on your table and brew the potion. Just like the first round, you have 2 batches of ingredients, so you can only fail once. If you have finished your ingredients in the process of brewing the potion, you will be eliminated. Huh? Hearing this, Noah was at a loss. Creasing his brows, Noah picked up the scroll and slowly pulled it open to read the contents. Unlike the scroll he read in the first round, the scroll in his hand contained neither complex nor wrong steps. After memorizing the formula, Noah looked around to see everyone reading the scroll without batting an eye. Meanwhile, on the VIP seating, each judge received the same scroll as the participants. Revitalization Potion. Michael shared the scroll with Eve as she moved closer to him to see the contents written on the scroll. Throughout a cultivator's life, they would consume countless pills, potions, and foods on a daily basis. Little by little, they would create impurities to clog their body's energy vines, resulting in slower cultivation. There were many ways to unclog the energy vines and purify the body from within, and one of those ways was intaking a revitalization potion or pills. In the Majestic, revitalization pills were one of the fastest-selling products. Michael sold 1 pill for 9,000 gold coins. Currently, the guild has given the formula for free like candies. However, Michael did not worry about the formula because unless Hendrix and other 6-star alchemists began to sell the revitalization pills in bulk, his business wouldn't be affected. 12 ingredients? Seems a bit more, don't you think? Eve whispered to Michael. The number is not the only problem they have. They need absolute focus and delicate touch to extract the essence. It was challenging. Unless one has total control over their alchemy fire, the ingredient would be burnt to ashes before they could extract the essence, Michael explained to Eve. On the ground level, Noah raised his head, looking around him only to find that Jennifer, Leylon, and the others had their eyebrows slightly knit together. Clearly they were very inexperienced. Else they wouldn't be thinking it's simple to brew the revitalization potion. "Good thing I have practiced controlling heaven's flame," Noah mumbled softly. "We shall now begin the second round. You have an hour." As Hendrix's voice echoed through the arena, the ghostly hourglass materialized again in the air. After setting down on his seat, Hendrix looked at Noah, who had already raised his flame, and began to refine the ingredients one by one. "Speed and control, young man," he muttered under his breath. Many alchemists were grinning as they thought the formula was simple. Moreover, they had 1 hour to brew 1 potion. It was a simple enough task in their minds. Hence, they conjured the flames with bright smiles. Of course, among so many alchemists, there were some cautious ones who were surprised upon looking at the simple test and hesitated. But they just shoved the doubt and hesitation to the corner of their minds and began to refine the ingredients. With absolute focus, Noah conjured his bright blue flame. It took the cauldron a few more minutes to reach sufficient temperature. Afterward, Noah slowly began to throw in the medicinal ingredients one by one. His pupils constricted as he slowly began to refine. "Are you participating in the aqua auction, Eve?" While everyone was busy refining the ingredients, Michael asked Eve. Since they were friends, they naturally addressed each other by their first names. "Yes. I reckon you're coming too. I will issue an arrest warrant if you don't come to Voldegard Mansion in Thera." She squinted her eyes as Michael smiled. "Definitely. Here, take this." With a flick of her delicate wrist, Eve took out a silver medallion in the shape of V. "We can go to the auction together." Voldegards have our own place in the Aqua Palace. Michael put the medallion in the system storage with a nod. Meanwhile, as they were refining the ingredients, the noise from the two seating galleries at the sides also gradually decreased. Numerous gazes swept over the alchemists in the open square, looking at them without batting an eye. As time slowly flew, many red lights flicked in the arena. Michael saw many alchemists had burnt all their ingredients while trying to extract the essence. But, like Michael told Eve, one needed absolute control over their fire and focus. Those who lacked either naturally got eliminated from the competition. On the other hand, some of the competitors whose abilities were quite good had already refined the ingredients needed. After hesitating for a moment, they clenched their teeth and tried to merge the essence, beginning the final part of the refinement. Noah's gaze focused on the ingredients that were boiling within the cauldron. Because he was worried about the possibility of some problems suddenly arising, he took his time cautiously refining each ingredient. As Noah finished extracting the essence of the 10th ingredient, Leylon and Jennifer finished extracting the last essence. Just when they were about to start merging the essence beads, a soft muffled explosion sounded not far away from the trio. Hearing the sound, Noah raised his eyes to take a look. At that spot, an alchemist was foolishly staring at black smoke coming from the cauldron. Clearly this was a result of a failed refining attempt. What the? I followed the instructions to the word. How can it happen? Why did I fail? The alchemist stuttered, trembling in shock. A moment later he turned the cauldron upside down, dropping a pile of ashes. Taking a long deep breath, the alchemist began refining the last ingredient batch. As more and more time passed, numerous soft muffled sounds from the medicinal cauldrons occurred one after another. The alchemist who failed stared at the black smoke coming from the cauldrons dumbfounded. Dum, dum. All of a sudden, Noah heard the muffled explosion sounding from his side. He then turned his head to see Leylon and Jennifer standing behind their tables with completely stunned faces. One could see dark lines on both their foreheads as they stared at the black smoke coming out of their cauldrons. Countless sounds of gasps emerged from the spectators' stand. They did not expect Leylon and Jennifer to fail. Even the elders in the VIP seatings were not an exception to this. Damn. She failed. Even clenched her fist tight looking at her younger sister's smoking cauldron. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. As I said, she needs more control over her fire. Following the shocking turn of events, many red lights began to flicker across the arena, indicating the elimination. Almost 1/3 of the alchemists destroyed their last batch of ingredients. By doing so, they left with no ingredients to refine. Hence, they could only walk out of the arena. Fuck. Why did it fail? My control over the flame was clearly very good, an alchemist shouted before leaving the arena. Similar events happened throughout the arena as the judges calmly observed them. Looking at many getting eliminated, Noah didn't dare to lose focus. When Noah began to raise his flame and perform the merger, some of the alchemists around him including Leylon and Jennifer threw their gazes over. Under the circumstances where they all failed, they wanted to see if Noah could succeed where they failed. Noah ignored the surrounding gazes as he put all his attention into controlling heaven's flame. Under the grilling of the blue flame, Noah extracted the essence from the last ingredient. Each essence bead emerged from the cauldron and sparkled in the air. Every 12 beads were floating in a row in the air from blue to pink. Try merging them one by one, Noah said in a low-pitched voice, only loud enough for Jennifer and Leylon to hear. Noah broke sweat on his forehead and merged the last bead in the row with the bead beside. Hearing Noah's tip, Jennifer and Leylon conjured their flames again to refine the ingredients. Michael, who sat leisurely on the VIP seat, got bored of seeing the youngsters failing so miserably. Thus, he focused on the spy cam he placed on pirate Captain Corey. Currently, he could see her navigating through a treacherous storm, and in the distance, Michael noticed a vague outline of another ship. Sabrina. It was clear to Michael that Corey was chasing Sabrina's ship. Apparently, she had something that the vampires needed. Until they get what they want, Michael knew they wouldn't let Sabrina go. The judges and spectators observed the alchemists without batting an eye. But, because of Noah's focus and experience, he was the first one to merge the beads. As soon as all the beads merged into an orb, the orb of essence radiated a sweet fragrance along with a bright glow. Shit, he's about to finish. As Leylon sniffed the faint fragrance emanating from the essence orb, he growled inside. At this moment, countless people's hearts were hung in their throats. He can finish it. Asian's shriveled palm tightly held the guardrail. Unlike Michael, the rest were too focused and excited to see the alchemists in action. The silent atmosphere in the arena continued until Noah kicked the table, sending the vial into the air. With a flick of his wrist, Noah guided the essence into the vial and covered the vial with his heaven's flame. Only when all the essence went into the vial, did Noah slowly exhale. He raised his head as a faint smile appeared on his calm face. Under the thousands of gazes, Noah remained with a dark red vial in his hand. Following Noah's success, almost 15 minutes later, the green light of Jennifer and Leylon was lit up. The two of them placed their potions on the table and exchanged glances, sighing in relief. After the trio, a few more streaks of green light shot out towards the sky from the arena. Unfortunately, the red streaks of light overwhelmed the green light. When the sand within the hourglass completely fell, only a little over 100 people still remained in the arena. The rest of the people had already been completely expelled during these 2 rounds. As Hendrix clapped his hands, Noah slowly raised his head. His gaze landed on Hendrix, who revealed a friendly smile at Noah. After they concluded the second round, the next event was to once again test for the potions. Just like the first round, when everyone placed their potions into the hold, Noah's table produced a brighter streak of light, followed by Jennifer and Leylon. Once the test was completed, the sky had already gradually darkened. A crescent moon slowly appeared at the edge of the sky, bathing the city of Oxshore beneath. Looking at the daylight slowly fading away, Aishan stepped forward from his seat. "Everyone, we will stop the competition for the day and start the final round at 10 tomorrow morning. Everyone, please take a rest and arrive here 30 minutes before." With Aishan's announcement, the long day of competition finally came to an end. Everyone in the VIP seating planned to take a rest, just like the participants except Michael. He had something important to do, like contacting the Alpha Guardian. Chapter 503 The assassination plan is in motion. Don't forget to check out HSS. Soon Michael will have a crossover chapters with each MC of my novels ****. Where are you staying? When Michael was about to stand up from his seat, Eve asked. "I assumed the guild booked a place for us. Forgive these old bones for forgetting. Here, the key to your accommodation. You will be escorted by our guards when we reach outside." Aishan flicked his wrist, taking out a golden card from his space ring that had the words "Green Leaves" embossed in beautiful calligraphy. "Wonderful," Michael responded with a smile as Eve also stood to follow Aishan and the other judges. Instead of leaving, Edith flew to the ground level to meet Noah. Michael noticed Edith but didn't mind her. The last thing he needed was to meddle in Noah's harem. As the judges walked out of the door and stepped into the hall behind the VIP seatings lit brightly with a giant chandelier, they were welcomed by the armed guards of the Aqua clan. In addition to the Aqua clan, the guards wearing blue robes stood in a neat line waiting for Eve and Jennifer. "Lady Eve," the guards quickly bowed when they saw Eve. There was a hint of shock within their eyes, because they had never seen Eve walk so closer to a guy before. "Now I have to find my friend," Michael said. "Who?" "Teacher." Just as Michael was about to answer Eve, Olivia entered the hall from the other side escorted by a couple of armed guards of the Aqua clan. The Aqua clan guards didn't let her approach the judges, so she kept waving her hand at Michael. "Let her in," Michael signaled to the guards. As soon as the guards stepped away from Olivia's path, she came running toward Michael. Then when she saw Hendrix, she was flustered. "Lord Hendrix Gardner. I am a big admirer of yours," she stuttered, kneading her hands. Looking at Olivia, Hendrix warmly smiled. "I am glad, young lady. So you're learning from Ghost?" Olivia bobbed her head up and down. "Yes. You are a fortunate young lady to have a teacher like him." With a nod and a pat on Olivia's shoulder, Hendrix walked away from them with Aishan, Alred, and Gabriel before Olivia could talk to the others. At the moment, only 5 Aqua clan guards, Eve, Olivia, Ghost, and Eve's guards remained in the hall. Lady Eve, turning her gaze away from Hendrix and the other grandmasters, Olivia slightly bent her waist. "Lady Eve," Olivia greeted Eve with a respectful tone. "Eve, Olivia," Michael simply pointed at Olivia. "Pleasure to meet you, Olivia." Eve surprised the guards yet again by extending her hand toward Olivia. "Pleasure is all mine, Lady Eve." Olivia shook her hand. "Please call me Eve." Eve gently smiled and said, "I think we should leave. I have to find accommodation for you." "What? You have no place to stay?" Eve was slightly surprised. "We just arrived at Oxshore this morning, and it's my fault for not finding a place." Olivia scratched her head. "You're coming with me," Eve quickly said, shocking Michael and Olivia. "But don't make me call my guards." Edith coldly chuckled, but Michael could tell if they disagreed, she would really use the guards. "I have literally no choice then." Olivia chuckled back as they began to walk out of the giant hall. When they stepped outside, the streets were still full of people. Along with the full moon in the sky, the street lights powered with runes and chandelier light peeking through the glass windows lit up the city and gave the city a festive charm. Michael felt the cold breeze brushing past him and noticed a couple of carriages, including Eve's, waiting on the street. "You go ahead. I have to wait for my sister." Since Michael had something to do alone, he did not linger around any longer. "See you tomorrow then," he nodded before following the armed guards to the brown carriage. As the guards noticed Michael approaching, they opened the carriage door to reveal the red-cushioned interior. Michael stepped into the carriage to see a mini table with various beverages set on it. Additionally, he noticed a golden orb hanging above, lighting the interior. There was nothing else in the carriage besides the table and the orb. Sitting comfortably in the cushioned seat, Michael leaned back. Then he closed his eyes, focusing on the spycams and Alpha Guardian Tenulia's warship. Currently, in a brightly lit room, several figures who were dressed fancily stood surrounding a bed on which Tiriana curled up into a ball. Those who were close to her could hear her sob and see her reddened face. Tenulia sat beside Tiriana, brushing her head gently. "Tell me what's wrong with her." The moment Tenulia's face turned away from Tiriana, her motherly look transformed into an enraged predator. The rest of them in the room shuddered just by looking at the killing intent in her eyes. Noticing the silence, Tenulia trembled. "She's been vomiting blood non-stop and crying in pain. There's definitely something wrong with her. Yet you idiots found nothing?" She snarled at the healers in front of her. "We thoroughly examined her and everything she came into contact with Alpha Guardian." But the leading healer, who was a blonde elf in golden robes, shivered while talking and didn't finish his sentence. "Incompetent idiots. Go to Ar and bring me the heavenly alchemist before I lose my patience." Tenulia threatened them with gritted teeth. Hearing her threat, they all trembled. Soon, they quickly ran away from the room, leaving Tenulia and Tiriana in the room. "Just bear the pain, Tiri. The alchemist will be here shortly." Tenulia kept brushing Tiriana's head like a mother. "Lots of work, vampires." Tiriana blurted out a few words, fighting through the pain. "Sure, we are taking care of it," Tenulia said with a smile to calm Tiriana down. Unfortunately, the outside situation wasn't good at all. The existence of vampires and the news spread across the continent that Guardians tried to hide vampires' existence brought a storm down on the guild. Currently, they were facing pressure from every direction. Her team was still investigating who leaked the information about the vampires to the royal news. She suspected Peyton, but she had no proof to back her doubts. As far as Tenulia could tell, Peyton worshipped the guild and stood to gain nothing by abolishing the guild's reputation. Creech. Suddenly, Tenulia heard something from behind. She turned back with lightning-quick speed to see a piece of paper on the ground beneath a stool. She stood up from the bed, walked to the paper and picked it up. Her brows furrowed when her gaze swept across the piece of yellow paper. Then, she put the piece of paper back on the stool and opened the wooden door nearby to leave the room. Sponsored content. Visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. As soon as she stepped out of the room, she made her way to hall, where she saw several guardians and a girl sitting behind a crescent-shaped marble table. "Did I receive any packages today?" Tenulia asked the silver-haired elf. "Yes, Alpha Guardian. We sent the package to the rune masters and waiting for them to finish checking it. Bring me the package now." Tenulia slightly raised her voice as the girl shuddered. Yes, Alpha Guardian." The girl didn't dare to remind the Alpha Guardian of the protocols. Instead, she just bobbed her head, opened the door behind her, and disappeared to bring the package to Tenulia. Several minutes later, the girl returned carrying a wooden box. "Everyone leave." Tenulia's voice reverberated in the hall, attracting the Guardians' attention. They gawked at each other and the stoic face of Tenulia for a moment before leaving the hall. After they left the hall, Tenulia slowly opened the box to see a parchment and a vial with sparkling silver liquid on crimson-red cloth. Tenulia picked up the parchment. For a few moments, she scanned the parchment and the box with her senses until she found no threats. Only then did she open the parchment. "Greetings, Alpha Guardian. We remained in darkness, harming no one. But you and your guardians decided to expose us to the light. You shouldn't have done that. Because of you, your best friend is now suffering. Suppose you don't personally come to apologize to us alone at the location marked down below. In that case, your friend will experience the most excruciating death the elves have ever seen. The vial contains something that will lessen her pain. Consider this a courtesy of our great nation of Nightwalkers, aka vampires, as you named us. Your friend has 2 days to live. So your clock is ticking, Alpha Guardian." Tenulia's body trembled as she read the parchment. Error. Just as she finished reading the letter, Tiriana's scream echoed through the warship. Immediately, Tenulia hurried to the room, and when she reached the room, she saw Tiriana puking blood, rolling on the floor while screaming in agony. Subconsciously, Tanulia picked up the potion before leaving the hall. Tiarai. Tanulia dashed at Tiriana. Tiriana kept screaming in agony when Tanulia sat beside her and put her head on her lap. Without Tanulia's control, her eyes watered. Tanu. Tiriana screamed as blood gushed out of her nostrils, eyes, and ears. At that moment, many guardians who heard Tiriana's scream flocked into the room. Alpha Guardian. Among those who entered the room were the healers who had previously left the room. They quickly rushed to her side and knelt beside Tiriana. The blonde healer quickly retrieved a sparkling blue potion from his space ring and forced it down Tiriana's throat. Since it was the healing potion brewed by Ghost, Tanulia allowed the healer to give the potion. It was the only thing that lessened Tiriana's pain. Erga. However, unlike before, Tiriana didn't stop screaming. Ever after the blonde elf chugged an entire bottle of healing potion down her throat, they couldn't stop Tiriana from screaming. It's not working. The healer stuttered as Tanulia saw Tiriana's eyes closing. The healer immediately placed his hand on Tiriana's throat only to sense her pulses slowing down. Alpha Guardian, her pulse. It's dropping. When Tanulia heard his words, her heart skipped a beat. She held Tiriana tightly. She is dying, Alpha Guardian, the healer gravely said. All the guardians broke into a sweat while Tanulia's muscles went rigid. She couldn't even move a muscle because of the overwhelming grief. Finally, tears broke out of her eyes and rolled out on her rosy cheeks. The potion. Tanulia remembered the potion in her hand. Alpha Guardian, if we don't find a cure to whatever is happening to her, she will die within a few minutes. We don't have enough time. The healer swallowed his fear and explained the situation to Tanulia. Tanulia's hand shivered, bringing the potion to Tiriana's mouth. As an Alpha Guardian, she was trained to make quick decisions because a second delay would cost lives in her position. Hence, she decided to give the potion she received rather than gambling with Tiriana's life. However, if she didn't give the potion, it was inevitable that Tiriana would die. Alpha Guardian, what is that? The healer asked Tanulia. Instead of answering him, she just opened the vial and gently poured the liquid into her mouth. Surprisingly, the moment the potion touched Tiriria's tongue, the healer noticed her pulse speed up. Alpha Guardian, her pulse is improving. Tanulia heaved a sigh of relief as she emptied the potion into Tiriana's mouth. Chapter 50. For the final round. After Tiriana drank the potion, the rosiness returned to her. The healer quickly examined her body only to see her vital signs such as pulse, arch energy circulation, and breathing had become normal. Nonetheless, Tiriana remained unconscious. Fortunately, they learned she had fallen asleep after suffering so much. Seeing Tiriana peacefully sleeping on her lap, Tanulia knew what she had to do. Go set a course to the Maven, Tanulia ordered the Alpha Guardians staring at her. Hearing the order, the Guardians obediently bowed their heads before leaving the room. They were trained to obey orders, not question them. That was why none of them dared to ask why they had to go to Maven, a kingdom in the southern continent. The next day when the sky turned bright, the flourishing city of Oxshore woke up along with the thousands of citizens. Only a few minutes after the first sunray emerged from the horizon, the citizens began to flow through the streets. The place within the city which was most crowded and lively today was the arena. Since today was the grand finale for the individual competition, the number of people flocking to the arena doubled. As time elapsed, the entrance doors of the guild slowly opened as the sun rose. Immediately, the mass of people outside began flooding in like tides. Noah entered through the participants' entrance as yesterday and walked until he arrived at the ground scattered with jade tables. He lifted his eyes and looked around, only to find that Leylon and Jennifer had actually arrived earlier than him. Besides the two of them, several competitors passed the 2 rounds of the competition yesterday. The group of alchemists were conversing and smiling with one another. When Noah arrived, everyone who appeared to be discussing something softly, suddenly lowered their voices significantly. Yesterday Noah shocked everyone with his skills. In their minds he was the leading horse to win the competition. Master Noah, you are quite early, Jennifer greeted Noah and strolled towards her place as Noah walked by her side. And you're earlier than me. Noah did not like her attitude when they first met. She belonged to the Voldegard family, which even his teacher told him to mess with. Besides, she was also Grandmaster Alred's disciple. Hence, Noah did not appear to be too cold. He just smiled back and greeted casually. Did you rest well, Master Noah? We all need to be in our peak state, Jennifer softly asked. Of course, Noah nodded. However, he did not rest as she thought. He was busy surveying the arena, the place where Hendrik stayed. and the guild studying all the ways one could try to assassinate Hendrix. According to Asian, the chances of assassinating Hendrix would go to near zero after he leaves Azair. Hence, if one wanted to kill Hendrix, one had to try when he was in the arena. Don't hold back anything, Noah. Because I want. Lu Ling walked over to Noah only to challenge him. Looking at Leyland's smug face, Noah just responded with a smile. He'll have it no other way. On the VIP seatings, the judges and a group of elders and nobles gradually settled into their seats. When Noah looked over at them, Hendrix gave him a friendly smile. Noah's gaze swept across the VIP seats to find Edith waving at him while sitting behind Ghost in his usual black robes. Noah also noticed Eve, Jennifer's elder sister, conversing with Ghost like never before. Surprisingly, another green-haired girl sat beside Eve and Noah knew her. She was Ghost's disciple, Olivia Palmer. Recently his elder auntie told Noah that she had arranged for him a marriage to her friend's daughter. According to her, that marriage would further strengthen the Winston family. Since political marriages were pretty standard in this world, Noah didn't mind as long as the girl was okay with the marriage. Noah had no idea that girl was none other than Olivia. As time slowly flowed by, more and more competitors flooded into the open ground. Finally, all the competitors who had entered the ground went to the jade table they used yesterday. The alchemists who remained in the arena were the cream of the crop. Otherwise they wouldn't have reached the final round. Reaching the final round would alone open many doors of opportunities for them as well as get them into the alchemy guild. Still, every single one of them wanted to win the competition and know the rewards for winning. When the bright sun was high in the sky, the seats had all filled with countless crowds. Clang! In an instant, a clear bell sound resonated through the open ground for a long time. The moment the bell sounded, Noah, who had his eyes tightly closed, opened them. He took a deep breath, calming his nerves before raising his head to look at the VIP seatings. Ladies and gentlemen, Hendrix spoke to the crowd on the high platform as his light gaze swept through the entire place. Instantly the people stopped their ruckus and turned their focus to him. Today will be the last and final day of the individual competition. The finale will decide the victor. You all put so much effort and hardwood to reach this stage. There is only one obstacle standing in your way. I wish you all the best. According to Asian, Hendrix would stay 2 more days until the end of the group alchemy competition. Then, although Michael had better things to do, he could spend a day or 2 with Olivia, who longed for Michael's support. Moreover, she wanted him to witness her students in action. When Hendrix's voice fell, the crowd exploded into a thunderous roar, screaming as loud as they could in excitement. Noah rubbed his ears as they became numb by the deafening sound. He turned his head around to see Jennifer and Leyland calmly looking around the crowd. The latter, however, had a cold smile on his face. "This is my moment," Leyland snickered. He had been training for the competition for a long time. For him, failure wasn't an option. No matter what, he had to make his teacher proud. Clap. The thunderous clap echoed through the arena, instantaneously canceling all the noise. When the arena became silent, Hendrix began to explain about the final round. Unlike the previous 2 rounds, we won't provide you with any ingredient or formula. In other words, you must successfully brew a potion or concoct a pill of your choice to the best of your ability in under an hour. The alchemist who refined the pill or potion with high purity and gets the most votes from the judges will be crowned as the winner. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. When the competitors in the arena heard Hendrix's clear voice, many felt excited, except for some who did not prepare any suitable formulas or had sufficient ingredients. If they failed, they only had to blame themselves for being careless and not prepared. As Noah's gaze swept all around him, he noticed Leyland's bright face. The latter was grinning. While Jennifer remained with her head held high as though she had absolute confidence in her formula and ability to refine something with a high purity level and miraculous effect. In the VIP seatings, Michael frowned slightly. To him, the round seemed yet again unfair. Among the competitors, some were 2-star alchemists and some were 3-star alchemists. Surprisingly, there were no 4-star alchemists among them as the few who competed were eliminated yesterday. So naturally, 3-star alchemists could refine a pill or a potion with a higher purity level than the 2-star alchemists. The ability to refine purer products what made them 3 stars in the first place. Hence, when asked to brew a potion or concoct a pill, whatever the 3-star alchemist makes would have a higher purity rate than a pill or potion made by a 2-star alchemist. In other words, the 2-star alchemists stood no chance against the 3-star alchemists. Remember, purity isn't the sole determinant in the final. Whatever you make should impress the judges and get their votes. Keep that in mind. As though Hendrix had sensed Michael's thoughts, he reminded the competitors. His words gave some comfort and courage to the two-star alchemists. Since everyone is already familiar with the examination rules, Hendricks slowly raised his hand and abruptly waved it down on the high platform. A faint sound reverberated throughout the entire place. The final round will now begin. Just like before, the ghostly giant hourglass materialized in the air as the competitors immediately took out everything they needed from their space ring. From the audience seats, countless gazes stared intently at the over 100 competitors on the open ground below, waiting for their splendid performance today. After Hendricks went to sit on his chair, the trio in the center did not do anything. Instead, they coincidentally remained silent and mused with a frown, recalling everything they needed to know about the potion they were going to make. The silence persisted for nearly 10 minutes before Jennifer and Leylon took out their cauldron and a set of ingredients from their space ring. Hearing the sound of the cauldrons landing on the jade tables, Noah frowned as the cauldrons that the two pulled out were clearly not the same ones they used yesterday. Seeing the profound auras that were emitted from the ancient-looking jade cauldrons, it was clear that the cauldrons clearly belonged to the epic class. Item classes equals common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary. They surpassed Noah's cauldron, which belonged to the rare class. That little brat, sitting beside Ghost, Eve mumbled. She took Grandpa's cauldron, Eve said with a helpless chuckle only loud enough for Michael and Olivia to hear. Better cauldron will definitely raise her odds to win, Olivia whispered to Olivia. She better win this. What do you think, Ghost? You're still betting on Noah? Michael nodded. If nothing dramatic happened, he knew Noah would win the competition easily because, unlike them, he knew Noah's secret. Lord Gabriel, is that the cauldron you used decades ago? Alred asked, pointing at Leyland's jade cauldron, which had a tint of redness to it. Yes, Gabriel responded with a simple nod. If my memory serves me right, you used it to take the champion spot during that year's competition. It seems you're pretty confident in your student, Alred amused. He will win this? Gabriel's voice was full of confidence and trust. All the judges had already begun to bet on their favorites. Still, they had no idea the competition would become a butchery. Edith suddenly stood up, walking toward the door in the back while the judges and the nobles were observing the alchemists on the ground. Michael noticed Edith leaving but didn't pay any mind to her. Chapter 505 The massacre has begun in the spacious arena. The gentle breeze brushed past the people, cradling them with its chillness. Michael observed the alchemist showing no expression on his blank as a slate face. The pungent smell of herbs and fire entered his nostrils, competing with the sweet fragrance coming from Eve. Today she looked gorgeous. It might be because Ghost became closer to her as a friend, which was why Michael looked at her in a different light. At first, Michael thought she was no different than a typical cold beauty such as Alicia. The more he talked to Eve, the warmer her character became. Michael felt that she would become a good friend to him. She was open, helpful, and understanding. Eve reminded Michael of a girl he used to play with in the orphanage. Coincidentally, her name was also Eve. So Michael knew deep down he treated Eve as his friend because of his childhood friend. Host. Michael Cultivation Level. Soul Refining Stage Level 2 Experience Points. 0/900, 000 Badass Points. 310, 000 Skills and Spells. Wind Blast LVL 6 Responsive Shield, LVL 8 Environment Scanning, LVL 6 Ignitia, LVL 8 Lightning Dash, LVL 6 Energy Devour, LVL 2 Soul Eater, LVL 1 Death Range. LVL 3 Eyes of Darkness, Normal. Can sense the cultivation level of others' Eyes of Darkness, Lucifer. Can sense the cultivation level of others, can see through illusions Cloud of Darkness, Lucifer. Weak. Willed enemies will lose their courage completely and surrender. Death range will be 50% more powerful, and if activated in darkness, the host's cultivation level will be boosted 4 levels up regardless of the stage barrier. Wordless Spellcaster, Lucifer. In full Lucifer form, the host just has to think of the spell to cast it. Techniques. Swords of Destiny 98% Mastery Ring of Fire, 92% Mastery Serpent Maga, 97% Mastery Occupation. Core Disciple of Sunrise Sect The Guardian of Sunrise Sect Lord Lucifer of the Abyssal The Dark Lord King of Bradford Status. Healthy Goals. Control the world Rebuild the Order of Death Utility Function. Banker LVL 5. Ratio. 1000 Gold Coins. 40 Badass Points. Runic Teleportation X-Ray Vision. Also integrated with Eyes of Darkness. Wealth. 18 million gold special trait. 5-star Alchemist 4-star. Inventor Subordinates. Gaia Warrior Loyalty Level 100%. Raylene 5-star Chef Loyalty Level 99%. Arya Assassin Loyalty Level 86%. Heinberg Warrior Loyalty Level 45%, Maxine Warrior Loyalty Level 98%, Tiberius Warrior Loyalty Level 55%, Sadie Loyalty Level 50%, Ricky Loyalty Level 98%, Titus Loyalty Level 60%, Optimus Loyalty Level 60%, The Silent Reaper Crew Pirates Loyalty Level 90%, Base of Operation, Sunrise Sect The Abyssal The Crypt Kingdom of Bradford Familiars, Nightmare Forest, Dragon, Vidora Three-Headed Hydra, Elemental Manipulation, Wind 10% Mastery, Fire 10% Mastery, Lightning 15% Mastery, Darkness 20%. I should definitely upgrade my inventor trait. After getting blood samples and every other possible sample from Victor, Michael planned to build some nasty weapons against the vampires. As far as Michael learned about vampires, he needed special weapons. The rest of the world was unbelievably vulnerable to the vampires. Noah may have been somewhat astonished by the epic-class cauldrons Leylon and Jennifer had on the open ground. However, Andreas taught him the cauldron was merely an object, and an alchemist should not depend on the cauldron to refine a pill or potion. According to Andrews, an alchemist should be able to use the alchemy fire as a cauldron and refine pills and potions without a problem. Just like Ghost. Noah's white cauldron seemed somewhat shabby compared to Jennifer and Leylon. Unlike the rest, Noah was not too concerned about the cauldrons. Instead, he closed his eyes and thought for a moment. Then, he flicked his finger gently and a set of the ingredients needed to refine the Crimson Waves potion appeared on the stone table. The moment Michael saw the ingredients on Noah's table, Michael knew what he was going to brew. To be honest, the potion had all the wow factors to win the competition. Michael doubted anyone in the judging panel except Hendrix would know about the Crimson Waves potion. When an alchemist drank the potion, their alchemy fire would turn crimson red. Hence the name. The crimson red fire would burn hotter and easier to control than the default green flame so that the alchemist could produce pills and potions with a 10 to 15% higher purity rate up to 70%. If an alchemist could refine pills and potions with 70% purity, the potion wouldn't provide any effects. Michael didn't use the potion because he did not need to. He was a 5-star alchemist right out of the bat. So why didn't he sell them? Because it was bad for business to enhance alchemists. The fewer alchemists there were, the better. The hundreds of emerald green flames danced and flickered in the arena like fireflies made of jade glimmering in the night. The flames swayed with the wind chaotically with no direction in their mind until Michael conjured his heaven's flame. Even after seeing it several times, Noah's sparkling blue flames drew everyone's attention. Like a king among mortals, the blue flames overshadowed the green flames with its luster. Heaven's flame. How lucky that young man is to get a primordial flame. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. Alred threw a covetous look at Noah's flame. The old man's eyes were green with envy. Indeed, he is lucky. He would have become a target of many if the primordial fire could be stolen. Weirdly, Adovan eyed Gabriel a second before replying to Asian. On the other hand, Jennifer had 25 ingredients on her table, whereas Leylon had a whooping 30. They began to put the ingredients one by one into the cauldron under the gazes of thousands of spectators. Meanwhile, some of the alchemists on the ground had already wholly refined all of the ingredients. Additionally, they started to prepare for the next step. The trio in the center ignored those participants and was totally focused on extracting the essence from each ingredient they put inside the cauldron. Unlike in the previous 2 rounds, small beads of sweat appeared on their forehead, trickling down their nose to the ground. Yet, they did not bother to wipe it off as they continued to focus on controlling the flame and extracting the essence. Then 10 minutes later, Noah carefully placed the last ingredient. Finally, the first essence bead, glowing in light pink, emerged from Noah's cauldron. Seeing that the extracting process was this smooth, Noah heaved a long sigh of relief. He turned his head and looked around. Surprised, he discovered that Jennifer and Leylon had formed 5 beads. Time slowly passed by as some of the competitors who initially had calm expressions began to pant a little. Such a huge burden and consumption of arch energy really exhausted them. Michael was getting bored out of his mind and even yawned behind his hand. Seeing Michael yawn, Eve couldn't hold back too. I kinda wish I had seen your Elon battle tournament, Eve said, taking her gaze away from Jennifer. Suddenly Michael knit his brows as his neck hair stood up, alerting him of an upcoming threat. First, the air became thick with an intense scent of blood. Then, as though something was sucking all the light in the arena, the area turned gloomier. What the? Eve looked up to see a dark blanket falling over the arena. The arena was the size of a football stadium on Earth and currently, The blanket falling from the sky covered the entire open sky above the arena. What's happening? Oh God. The fuck? Immediately the spectators were thrown into chaos. Whoosh. Following the dark net, a strong gust of wind in the form of a wave brushed past the hundreds of alchemists, putting off their alchemy fire. Ghost, terror clutched Eve's heart as she involuntarily squeezed Michael's hand. All the judges immediately stood up from their seats bewildered. Even Hendrix lost the calmness on his face. The sudden darkness along with the pungent blood stench in the air terrified them. Lady Eve, Michael turned back to see a guard of Eve walking towards Eve holding his throat. In the dim, gloomy light, they saw blood gushing through his fingers. Another scream quickly echoed through the arena. Thud. The guard collapsed to the ground while another ear-piercing scream of a girl entered their ears. When they looked in the scream's direction, they all saw a mist of red smoke among the spectators. Soon after, they saw several other bloody veils of mist appear all over the spectators' stand. At this moment, the screams were the only sound they heard. Guards! Alred shouted, but no one responded. Teacher? Ghost, look. Olivia stuttered, and when they looked at where she was pointing, they saw the guard who collapsed to the ground, moving. The guard laid down his face against the floor and slowly moved his limbs. His lips made sickening, crunching sounds as he finally stood up on his feet. Guard, Eve spoke in a muffled voice and frowned, looking at the blood oozing down from the wound on his neck. When Michael looked closer at the injury, he confirmed his suspicion and took a step back. When the guard leaped at Alred, Olivia screamed in shock. Juror! The guard ripped off a huge chunk of meat from Alred's neck in a blink of an eye. The blood sprayed from Alred's neck to Aishan and Gabriel's faces. The warm blood brought Gabriel from his shock. Holy blast! Gabriel immediately reacted by sending a golden plasma beam at the guard. Poch! The beam shot right through the guard's chest, forming a huge smoking hole in his chest. However, it didn't stop the guard from taking another bite at Alred, who was clenching his neck in agony. Holy blast! Gabriel sent another plasma beam vaporizing the guard's head. Meanwhile, the spectators were in chaos as they attempted to flee the arena but turned into a bloody mess one by one. Alred. Aishan came out of his shock. Everything happened so quickly that only Gabriel was able to react in time. But, unfortunately, even he was late as the guard had already taken a huge chunk of Alred's throat with a single bite. Immediately a sparkling blue healing potion appeared in Aishan's hand. Lifting Alred's head, Aishan chugged the potion down his throat, but unfortunately the wound on his throat didn't close up. Welcome to the party. Out of the blue, a voice drenched in an evil aura reverberated in the arena. The cold, high, clear voice sent shivers through everyone's spines. A few seconds after the voice emerged, a dark figure clouded in a red mist appeared in the air right above Noah, Jennifer, and Leyland's center stage. Chapter 506 The Elder Vampire. A red mist completely clouded the figure. The fog was no different than Michael's cloud of darkness. Only the cloud enveloping the figure was dark crimson red. The stench of blood in the air doubled after the figure appeared. The strong scent nauseated Michael and he was no stranger to the smell of blood. Involuntarily Olivia stepped closer to Michael as the judges stared at the figure shivering in the air. They waited for the guards but to no avail. Where are the guards? Olivia whispered. Boys, slow down, the figure's voice echoed through the arena. Only then did they witness people in the arena getting bitten by someone enveloped in the red mist just like the one in the air. The people who got bitten from behind exploded afterward. Ah! Looking at the scene, many screamed out loud and panicked. Instantly the people made a run for the exit, only to turn into a pulpy mess. Michael noticed hundreds of vampires sucking the people's necks and turning them into a bloody mist. Deep down in his heart he was glad Olivia was with him. Otherwise she would have been targeted by the vampires. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, Olivia panicked, shivering from top to bottom. Guards! Guards! Aishan and Gabriel both screamed for the guards, but no one came through the door behind them. Michael never expected the vampires to launch a large-scale attack. Instead, he thought they would go into hiding because that is what he would have done if someone had exposed his secret identity. This is troublesome, Michael said to himself. According to the experiments and information he gathered from Victor, vampires were immune to spell attacks no matter how powerful the spell was. The guard who was killed by Gabriel wasn't a fully turned vampire. He was controlled like a puppet by someone, probably the vampire shrouded in a red mist. The bloody mists appeared after the people exploded, drifted to the vampire hovering in the air, and enhanced the crimson-red cloud around the vampire. Killing a vampire without going into full Dark Lord was highly troublesome. He had to use the dark flames to kill or even slow down a vampire. Otherwise, they would just regenerate and attack back with several times more ferociousness. Fortunately, the vampires blocked the sunlight by putting on a giant blanket over the arena. But unfortunately, by doing this, they turned the arena dark, and darkness was his domain. Shit. What's happening? Where are the guards? Leylon and Jennifer panicked just as the rest of the alchemists. Considering the vampires hadn't started to kill the alchemists on the ground yet, they still possessed the ability to think. The spectators, however, ran for the exit like headless chickens. Many got stepped over and died by getting crushed. Jade Crucifix. All of a sudden, Hendrix, who remained furrowing his gray eyebrows, raised his hand. The very next moment, an emerald green crucifix materialized in the air just a few meters away from Michael. The crucifix went from a typical handheld size to a giant 8-foot crucifix. It floated towards the vampire in the air. As the crucifix floated towards the vampire, it sucked the bloody mist like a black hole. Soon afterward, Michael noticed several vampires getting sucked from the spectators' stand. They screamed and squirmed. However, Michael noticed that only several people in guards' uniforms were getting sucked by the crucifix. Those who bit people wearing completely black robes remained still without getting affected by the crucifix. The crucifix differentiated the halfly turned puppets from the fully matured vampires. What bothered Michael was how mature these vampires were. If they were anything like Victor, the odds of surviving would go way down. He could count at least 50 vampires. Weirdly, he sensed no cultivation power from them. There was only a possible explanation that appeared in Michael's mind. When the vampires crossed the void line, they possessed a cultivation level like the normal cultivators. But, in the cultivation of continents, they became something else. Are they stronger or weaker? That was the question that quickly emerged in his mind. Humph! Michael heard the vampire in the air snicker. Afterward, a trail of smoke extended from the crimson-red shroud towards the crucifix. Then the emerald-green crucifix and blood-red smoke clashed in mid-air, producing an otherworldly whistling sound. The crimson-red smoke rapidly engulfed the crucifix, rendering the emerald-green dim. In a couple of blinks of an eye, the red smoke completely swallowed the crucifix. Boom. Then, the sound of the explosion reverberated in the air as Michael witnessed thousands of tiny green particles raining down. Ah! Hendrix coughed up a mouthful of blood as he stumbled back, losing his balance. Run, Hendrix mumbled. Hendrix was at the fusion stage, yet his spell was decimated within a few moments. Even if Hendrix was a warrior, his spell still wouldn't have affected the vampire. Is he an elder vampire? Michael asked himself, recalling Victor's words about the elder vampires, who were the most powerful pure-blooded vampires. But, of course, Victor had no idea there were more powerful classes of vampires above the elder vampires. Gabriel didn't even dare to cast a spell because he was at the core strengthening stage and he knew how powerful Hendrix was. So Gabriel knew if Hendrix stood no chance, neither would he. Hence, Gabriel turned back and rushed towards the door to escape. What's the rush, Lord Gabriel? The vampire's high-pitched clear voice rang in their heads as a cloud of smoke shot out from the vampire and covered the door. Holy blast! Gabriel raised his hand, sending the golden plasma blast at the cloud. To his shock, the plasma blast shattered into millions of golden dots when it clashed with the cloud. Lord Hendrix. Hearing Aishan's shout, Michael turned his head from Gabriel to Aishan and saw Hendrix floating towards the vampire. His old body was stiff as though he was paralyzed. He didn't even move a muscle. Does he have something to do with the ambush? Michael asked himself, looking at Gabriel, who was currently trying to get through the red smoke blocking the door. Despite the chaos and mayhem, Michael remained calm. On top of his training to stay calm despite the situation, the darkness soothed his mind and soul. He cancelled out all the screams of the people and focused on how to escape the arena without revealing his full power. Furthermore, he hoped the vampire's aim was to massacre people and issue the world a warning. Rather than targeting anyone specifically, anyone such as the Dark Lord who orchestrated their destruction of secrecy. Jennifer, Eve tried to move forward, but Michael quickly grabbed her hand. Sponsored content. Visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. Stay still. Don't give him a reason to attack you. Noah will protect her, Michael whispered coldly to Eve. The seriousness and authority in his voice rendered Eve speechless. She wanted to disagree but she simply couldn't. Michael didn't know about Leylon, but he was certain Noah would protect Jennifer. Meanwhile, Alicia and Norvin leaped onto the ground, reaching Noah. Ghosty dragged Dash with his eyes turning red. Aishan raised his hand to cast a spell. Before he could finish casting, a puff of smoke shot out from the vampire like an arrow and blasted Asian to the wall. In midair, the shroud enveloping the vampire slowly opened up, vaguely revealing a bloated short man. Through the opening, Michael saw the man opening his mouth as a meter-long tongue resembling a tentacle came out to lick Hendrix. Still, Hendrix didn't even move a muscle. Instead he looked like a T-pose statue while being licked by the vampire. The tongue gradually coiled around Hendrix's neck, clenching Hendrix's throat little by little. "Leave him alone." Suddenly Noah's shot echoed through the arena. Then, everyone saw a bright beam of light shoot out of Noah's body to straight up at the vampire. The bright beam had a tint of blue as heaven's flame coiled around the beam. As per Michael's knowledge, the primordial flames were one of the weaknesses of a vampire. Ever since he used dark flames on Victor, Michael wondered whether the other primordial flames would have the same effect or not. His curiosity ended when Noah's flame cut straight through the bloody mist enveloping the vampire, cutting the tongue around Hendrix's neck. Immediately Alicia leaped into the air, catching Hendrix in her arms. "Arg!" the vampire cried, but it sounded more pissed off rather than hurt. When the vampire growled, all his underlings stopped killing the spectators and leaped onto the ground. "Boys, kill them," the vampire coldly ordered the underlings. Michael had a feeling the vampire was looking at the VIP seatings. His feeling was confirmed when a few vampires leaped from the ground to their VIP seatings. "Thank you, Noah," Michael cursed Noah in his mind. There was a possibility that the vampire was targeting only Hendrix and would have left the arena after killing Hendrix. By attacking the vampire with heaven's flame, Noah pissed it off. Now the vampire ordered the underlings to kill them instead of killing the spectators. Granted, Michael felt terrible for the people who got killed by the vampires. Yet, his own survival was more important to him than the people. When two powerful forces were at war, people would die. As far as Michael was concerned, it was impossible to save everyone. "Get them to safety." From the ground, Noah shouted at Alicia. And just as she was about to leap at the VIP seatings, Noah raised his hand, sending a stream of heaven's flame to Alicia's golden spear. Immediately, her spear lit with heaven's flame. Michael, who saw the spear burning with heaven's flame, cursed at the dark flames because if he had to cover his swords in dark flames, the flames would melt down the steel like a knob of butter. "Seems like mine is more powerful than heaven's flame," he calmed himself down, comparing heaven's flame and the dark flames. "Stay back." Michael stepped in front of Eve and Olivia as two vampires targeted him. While four others targeted Asian and Gabriel, like hell I would, Eve stepped forward and stood beside Michael as a hammer with a gold handle materialized in her hand. In the corner of his eyes, Michael saw several tiny runes glowing on the gray hammerhead. Eve kept spinning her hammer until the hammer became blurry. "Whoa!" Michael was stunned when she threw the hammer at the vampire and sent the vampire flying before hitting the vampire in the chest. Whoosh! She raised her hand as the hammer, which disappeared from their sight, came right back into her hand. Michael noticed the runes glowing brighter than before. Unfortunately, he missed the ability to summon back Doombringer after throwing it. At the moment, he had to upgrade the Doombringer if he wanted to place any runes. Seeing Eve summon the hammer back, he was slightly jealous, to be honest. Moreover, she looked so cool. However, Michael didn't plan to be on the sidelines. This was his scene, and Michael had enough of being sidelined. Chapter 507. Onto the fire from the frying pan. The vampire who witnessed his friend get sent flying by Eve bore his teeth, showing razor-sharp teeth. The vampires wore dark robes from head to toe, and under the dark cloak, Michael could see their pale faces and crimson-red slit pupils. Polch. As the vampire stared at Eve, a spear impaled him from behind. Alicia lifted the vampire with her spear in the air and let heaven's flame completely engulf the vampire. The vampire burnt to a crisp in a matter of seconds as the wind took the gray ash with it. The two girls stole Michael's thunder. But Michael was calm. Surviving the vampires was more important than showing off. End of the day, being alive was the most badass thing one could do. Eve. Before Alicia could lock her eyes with Michael, Jennifer landed on the VIP stage beside her sister. "Jenny." Eve embraced her little sister in a tight hug. Jennifer's face was pale because of what she had witnessed. The young girl was terrified. Michael could see her body trembling uncontrollably. Unlike her sister Eve, she was not a warrior trained in combat. She was an alchemist. Her fear for blood and gore was the exact reason the Voldegarde spent their resources to make her an alchemist instead of a warrior. Teacher. After Jennifer, Leylon landed on the stage. Seeing the four remaining vampires turning their focus to Alicia and Eve from Gabriel and Asian, Alicia took a step forward, grabbed her spear in two hands tightly, and locked her gaze with the four vampires approaching her. Michael remained still and stepped towards the door. In the corner of his eye, he noticed the golden Babaru running around, attacking the vampires and clearing the way for the people to escape. The monkey was fast but not fast enough to save all the people. There were many people getting slaughtered by the vampires among the spectators. Come on! While Alicia was fighting four vampires at the same time, Michael reached the door with Olivia and Eve following him behind. Alicia noticed Ghost ignoring her, and her eyes immediately got filled with fury. Arg! Alicia roared as she slammed the spear onto the stage, creating a powerful shock wave that knocked down the vampires as well as everyone except Michael and Eve. Bitch! One of the vampires snarled. Then he dashed at Alicia faster than ever before. Michael noticed the vampires finally taking the fight seriously. Their inhuman speed stunned Alicia. Michael, who fought Victor, knew their speed. In a blink of an eye, the vampire appeared behind Alicia. On the other side, the three vampires flanked Alicia from all directions. That bitch is dead, Michael amused inside. One less ally for Noah was one less enemy for him. While this was happening on the VIP stage, Noah was fighting the vampires on the ground. Fortunately, the vampire in the air observed the fight, not intending to join the battle himself. The more people the vampires killed, the bigger the shroud of red mist around him. Holy blast, holy blast, holy blast! Leylon kept shooting plasma blasts in all directions hoping to hit the vampires. Arg! After several tries he hit something, but it wasn't a vampire. He hit Alicia, who was fighting four vampires. With a stomp to the ground, Eve knocked down several chairs and pushed down Jennifer's head. Stay here. Then Eve leaped into the air, raising her hammer in the air. Boom! A vampire was about to bite Alicia in the neck when Eve brought the wrath of her hammer down on him. Immediately the four vampires dashed away, sensing the impending danger. However, when Eve's hammer hit the stage, a shock wave that was several times more powerful than the one Alicia created blasted everyone and everything. Even Michael stumbled and had to grab the wall to steady himself. In addition, the hammer made several cracks on the stage. Looking at the cracks widening, Michael didn't think the stage could withstand another attack. While Eve was spinning her hammer and creating a wind force that slowed down vampires, Michael went to the door, which was covered by the red mist. Get out of my way! Michael shoved Gabriel away from the door. Bastard! Gabriel almost lost his balance and was enraged by Michael's action. Paying no mind to Gabriel, Michael placed his hand on the smoke. Michael felt a suction force as he put his hand through the mist. Michael conjured the dark flames inside the smoke. Crack! The red smoke faded away as soon as the dark flames appeared in his hand, revealing the door. Bang! Michael kicked open the door to see several dark-robed vampires feasting on Eve's guards. At that moment they all glared at Michael, blood oozing down their mouths. For a moment, Michael remained still at the doorway, pondering whether he should exit through the hall with 20 vampires or through the open ground where a powerful vampire at. We can't fight them for long, Eve said to Alicia while swinging her hammer around her to keep the vampires from taking a bite off her. Since Michael opened the door, Aishan prepared to drag Alred's lifeless body with him to the door. Shit. Leylon cursed when he saw the 20 vampires standing in line across the hall from one end to another. The marble floor and walls were tainted with splashes of red. The sickening sight of bodies with eyes still open lying around nauseated Leylon. His face immediately turned green. You doomed us. Gabriel didn't fail to take a shot at Michael as he took a step back from the door. You want to go that way, be my guest? Michael coldly said before stepping into the hall. Compared to the countless underling vampires and an elder vampire, battling the 20 vampires in the hall seemed a better choice. Unlike Noah, Michael didn't wish to reveal he had primordial flames. Several meters away from Michael, Eve slammed her hammer on the last vampire's chest. Grr. Sponsored content. Visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. The vampire growled in pain, but before it could dash at Eve, Alicia stabbed the vampire from behind with the heaven flames-covered spear. Killing the last vampire on the stage gave them all leeway to enter the hall. For some reason, the elder vampire did not mind them entering the hall. Michael had a bad feeling about the elder vampire's calmness. Yet he was not planning to decode its plan. Instead, his highest priority was to get the hell out of the arena without revealing his identity as the Dark Lord. Looking at Michael entering the hall, Olivia followed him behind. Then Eve, Jennifer, and Aishan, dragging Alred's lifeless body, entered the hall. Lastly, after pondering their options, Gabriel and Leylon followed them inside the hall. Eve, Jennifer shivered, looking at the vampires in front of her. Except for their mouth, one could see nothing due to the dark robes and cloak. The vampires snarled, revealing their blood-covered teeth and two razor-sharp fangs. "Fresh blood," one of the vampires said in a croaky voice. "Well, get through this." Eve hid the dread in her heart and pretended to be fearless. Fighting 4 vampires took so much effort from both of them. So Eve knew how difficult, if not impossible, to fight 20 vampires. "Where are you going?" Eve was startled to see Ghost turning his back and walking back to the door. Instead of answering Eve, Michael closed the door. "What the hell?" Leylon tried to shout this time, but only a muffled cry escaped his mouth. Again, he did not want to agitate the vampires in front of him. Alicia coldly stared at him. She directed her killing toward Michael more than she directed toward the vampires. Again, rather than responding to pointless questions, Michael grabbed a chair and stuck it against the doorknob to prevent anyone from opening the door from outside. Regardless of the situation, he remained calm, which surprised Eve. There was no fear in his eyes. "Ghost, I don't think we can take on all of them," Aishin said in a husky voice. "You have a better idea?" "It's them or the one who knocked out Lord Hendrix in a second." Recalling what happened to Hendrix, Aishin's heart skipped a beat. At this moment he could only pray Noah would somehow save Hendrix and himself. "Why aren't they attacking?" Eve mumbled. Her words were barely audible to those who were near her. Yet the vampires who stood 20 meters away from her clearly heard her. "Meat dipped in fear is tastier," a vampire snickered. After hearing his murderous voice, Jennifer felt a chill running down her spine. She felt like the vampire was looking at her while speaking those words. "Follow my lead." Alicia took a step forward and then she looked over her shoulder at Michael. "Don't get killed." Eve could sense the apparent tension between them. Last night when she spent the night with Olivia, she heard about what happened during the tournament. But like most people, Eve also blamed Peter for his fate. Alicia was lucky that Michael was a very patient man. Otherwise, he would have beaten the crap out of her just to wipe that stern look off her face. However, before she could take another step, Eve saw a streak of golden light across the hall running through between 2 vampires. It took her a moment to realize that Ghost had disappeared from her side. While she was in shock, wondering where did he go, the heads of the 2 vampires near the golden trail dropped to the ground, producing a sickening thud sound. The vampires standing in a neat line were startled to see their friends dancing on the floor without their heads. The blood spraying from the 2 headless bodies interrupted the group's vision. Still, through the blood fountain, Eve vaguely saw a figure on the other side of the vampire line. "Ghost," she mumbled, completely stunned by him. One moment he was there and the next he wasn't. Not only Eve, every single one was taken aback by surprise. The vampires could generate any parts of their bodies in a few minutes but not their heads. Hence, when Michael cleaved the heads off their shoulders, they could only do one thing: die. The vampires were immune to spells, arrays and anything that was powered by arch or celestial energy but not to physical attacks void of any energy. Besides, the vampires remained still without moving an inch. Hence, Michael was able to cut their heads off with no problem. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. All the vampires turned around to see Michael staring at them with his 2 black swords in his hands. Chapter 508 Accident or Assassination. Just like that, Michael killed 2 vampires. Then, while the vampires were stunned, Michael took a glimmering silvery vial from the system's storage. Clang. Michael threw the vial at the ground near the vampire. The vial shattered until countless tiny pieces of glass as a puff of white smoke engulfed the air between Michael and the vampires. It burns. My eyes. Suddenly, the vampires began running around the hall, clenching their eyes and screaming. After taking Victor's blood samples, Michael brewed the tear gas to disorient the vampires. Michael did not dare to waste any time as he cast the lightning dash. "This is our chance. Push forward." Eve raised her hammer, roaring a battle cry before running toward the vampires swinging her hammer. Cut their heads off. Eve felt a chill when she heard Ghost's voice sounding in her ears. It took her a second to realize that he had run past her, and she just couldn't see him but only the golden trail beside her. While Eve, Alicia and Ghost were fighting the disoriented vampires, Gabriel and Leylon made a break for it. They cautiously went to the hall's corner and walked to the other side, remaining so close to the wall like a pair of geckos. Blood tornado, blood hole. Among the 18 vampires, 2 of them stopped running and raised their hands high in the air, casting a spell before Michael could stop them. As soon as they cast the spells, The room was lit with red as though the chandeliers radiating red light instead of white. Additionally, the bodies of Eve's guards squirmed. Soon all the blood inside their bodies was sucked out from their bodies to form a mini tornado in the middle of the hall. Michael felt his speed decrease due to the tornado countering his spell. His running speed was further reduced when a red hole appeared in the ceiling, sucking everything into it. The red hole sucked everything in the room, such as chairs, remaining bodies, and portraits of various alchemists. Aishin held Alred's body in one hand and a lion statue which was too heavy for the red hole to suck. Jenny? Eve kept spinning her hammer, fighting the creating a counter force to the red hole, and shouted at Jennifer. Fortunately, Jennifer and Olivia found a statue similar to the one beside Aishin and held on to it with their life. Since Gabriel and Leylon were sticking close to the walls, they were able to grab onto the window grill. On the other hand, Alicia stabbed the spear through the floor and held onto the spear. Then, while spinning the hammer, Eve noticed Ghost sliding towards the tornado swirling beneath the red hole. Ghost? She tried to reach for him even though he was at least 10 meters away from her. Yet even at this very moment, Eve saw no fear or concern on his face. On the contrary, surprisingly, when she shouted at him, she saw a smile emerge on his calm face. She felt creeped out by his smile. How could a man smile in a situation like this? Her mind couldn't find an answer to her question. Then, as she was staring at him, she noticed he suddenly stabbed the floor with the sword in his hand. The next moment, he threw the sword against all the force at the vampire who cast the tornado spell. The sword he threw soared through the air like an arrow until it pierced the vampire's forehead. Immediately the tornado disappeared from existence along with the sickering red ambience. Although the tornado went away and gave them breathing room, the remaining vampires were able to dash at them freely. Unlike Michael and the others, the red hole didn't have any effect on the vampires. Several vampires targeted Alicia since she had Heaven's Flame. They wanted to kill her while she was fighting the suction force. Only a couple of vampires targeted Eve because the vampires deemed her as the less threatening one among them. Her blunt weapon was basically useless against them when she fought them alone without Alicia. All the remaining vampires moved towards Michael. As far as they were concerned, he was just as dangerous as Heaven's Flame-wielding Alicia, if not more. Seeing 5 vampires moving towards him, Michael raised his finger. Ignitia, the golden lightning bolt shot out of his hand, piercing through the vampire's chest. Erish, out of the blue, a scream reverberated in the hall. However, it didn't come from the vampire with the hole in his chest but from Gabriel. Unfortunately, Gabriel was in the lightning bolt's trajectory and got hit by the bolt in the hand. Hence, he let go of the window grills, resulting in him being sucked into the red hole. Teacher. Leylon shouted at Gabriel, but it was too late as Gabriel was flinging towards the red hole. He flew towards the red hole like a kite without an anchor until Alicia grabbed Gabriel by his hands. Don't let it go. Gabriel shouted. On the other hand, Alicia's spear began to tremble as it couldn't support 2 people. Ignitia, Michael kept firing lightning bolts at the vampires to keep them from reaching him. This time, none of the lightning bolts hit others. Your hands, slipping. Gabriel shouted, feeling his grab loosening. Blessing hands? Suddenly, a giant golden ghostly hand flicked Gabriel with enough force to send him flying onto the other side. I got you. In the midway, Michael grabbed Gabriel by his hand before Gabriel could fly over his head. Teacher. Jennifer cried out loud when she saw Alred's lifeless body disappearing into the red hole. Only then did they realize that the spell was cast by Aishin. He sacrificed Alred's body by letting him go so he could cast a spell to save Gabriel. Aishin held no love for Gabriel, but he was unable to let Gabriel die when he could save Gabriel from death. Tears gushed out of Jennifer's eyes as the memories she had spent with Alred flashed across her eyes. Hold me tight. Gabriel shouted at Michael. The swag Gabriel had was nowhere to be found on his face. At the moment, Gabriel shivered and sweated, fearing for his life. I want Lord Gabriel, Michael raised his voice. Gabriel's heart was pounding against his chest. He looked around while holding onto Ghost's hand to see 4 vampires walking toward them. To inflict maximum fear, the vampires showed their teeth, slowly walking toward them. On the one hand, Michael held onto the sword and on the other he had onto Gabriel. Hold tight, Lord Gabriel. Your hands are slipping. Michael shouted as the vampires devilishly grinned. No, 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 no. Gabriel frantically shook his head. But unlike Ghost claimed, he didn't feel his hands slipping. For a moment, Gabriel saw Ghost's lips curling upwards, revealing an evil grin. It's slipping, Lord Gabriel. I can't hold much longer. The grin instantly disappeared from his face, and oh, Gabriel shouted as Michael let go of his hands. In a blink of an eye, the red hole sucked in Gabriel, killing the previous #1 alchemist of Elon and his heir continent. Sponsored content. Visit Readle Me for extra chapters. Arc. Finally, Alicia had enough. The next moment she pulled the spear from the ground. As soon as she did that, the red hole sucked her in, but in the mid-air she threw the spear at the vampire who cast the spell. The spear cut through the air with enough force to nail the vampire into the wall behind him. Luckily, before she could disappear into the red hole, heaven's flames surrounding the spear rendered the vampire into a pile of ashes. Teacher, no. Leylon screamed. All the veins in his face bulged as his eyes turned blood red. Holy blast, holy blast, holy blast, holy blast, holy blast. He was enraged by the loss of his teacher. Thus, he went berserk by shooting plasma blasts at the vampires one after another. He didn't care if he was hitting them or not, but he just kept casting the spell. In his anger, Leylon lost the fear of vampires. The man who picked up from the streets and raised him as his own just got killed in front of his eyes. Hence, Leylon was enraged beyond words. Since the tornado and the red hole disappeared, Michael cast lightning dash to disappear again. Poch, poch, poch. The vampires only felt a gust of wind before they saw their friends losing their heads. Michael used celestial energy to increase his speed. Therefore, the vampires had no chance of seeing him or reacting to his speed. Eve saw several heads rolling on the ground as the headless body sprayed blood all over the marble floor before collapsing to the ground. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Soul Refining Stage Level 4. The notification sound of the system kept ringing in his head continuously. Finally, after cleaving 9 heads, Michael reached the next level of the Soul Refining Stage. The remaining 5 vampires looked paler than usual in fear. No longer they treated Michael like he was not a significant threat. They never expected Michael to kill 9 vampires in a few seconds. If the vampires crossed the void line, they would be at the core formation stage. Besides, they were also freshly turned by the elder vampire, so they had no battle experience like the others. Because of these reasons, Michael killed them so effortlessly. Even Michael was surprised at how easy it was for him to kill them. At this point, Michael was confident the elder vampire was treating the alchemy competition as a training ground for the newly turned vampires. The question was whether the elder vampire really here to take revenge for exposing their existence or for something else. Arg. Meanwhile, Eve crushed a vampire's head with her hammer, and Alicia killed 2 more vampires with lightning-quick speed. The remaining vampires stood no chance as Michael made quick work on them. The headless vampires staggered as blood sprayed out into the air from their necks. While the blood was raining down, Alicia saw Ghost walking calmly towards Eve. The latter was breathing heavily after a long battle. However, the battle was far from over. Boom. Suddenly the wall near the door they walked through exploded into bits and pieces, creating a cloud of smoke. A figure came flying through the smoke and landed near Alicia. Noah. Chapter 509. Taking a risk to get stronger. Michael saw Noah coughing mouthfuls of blood while struggling to get to his feet. His pure white robes were smudged with mud and blood. Noah. Alicia screamed as she went to her knees. She immediately flicked her wrist to take out a blue healing potion. Following Alicia, Aishan came running to Noah and tried to help him up. But unfortunately, Noah really seemed to be in bad shape. There were numerous claw marks, cuts, and bruises on his body. Since Noah was just in the core strengthening stage, the cultivation gap between the vampires and Noah was not as big as that between Michael and the vampires. But because Noah battled more than 20 vampires with no help, the vampires did a number on him. After Alicia chugged the healing potion down Noah's throat, the bruises on Noah's face slowly disappeared as the rosiness returned to his face. We have to go. Noah slurred due to internal injuries. They could barely distinguish the words that escaped his mouth. Boom. Suddenly the door Michael blocked exploded into bits and pieces. Through the environmental map, Michael sensed the vampires rushing into the hall. Olivia, Eve, Michael raised his voice, drawing their attention to him. Run now. But Olivia tried to interject. but Michael's face twitched, wordlessly telling her to shut up. If push came to shove, Michael could always teleport away. However, teleporting Eve and Olivia would raise unwanted attention of Noah and Alicia. Besides, although fighting the vampires was risky, killing them offered him precious experience points. By utilizing the situation, Michael planned to have another breakthrough. Getting stronger was the only way he could fight his future enemies. But, to become strong, he knew he had to take risks. Jenny quick. Jennifer did not waste time arguing with Michael. Ghost might be a good friend to her, but her little sister's safety was the most important thing to her. Hence, Eve grabbed Jennifer and Olivia's hand to rush toward the door on the other side before the vampires could pour in through the blasted door. You three should go too. Noah finally picked himself to his feet. Leylon gave a stare to Michael before running behind Eve, leaving Aishan and Alicia behind. Where's Norvin? I sent him away to call for backup, Alicia said as Michael walked towards the door. Even went through. Noah noticed a wooden bucket appear in Ghost's hands. There is no time. I will hold them off as long as I can. Noah's words reached Michael's ears and surprised him. Michael wondered what the hell was going on in Noah's head. He was planning to stay back to fight the vampires because he needed experience points and had an escape plan. However, Noah needed no experience points or seemed to have no escape plan. No. Come with us. Alicia's eyes watered up as she frantically shook her head. Do not make me pull ranks on you, Alicia. Grandmaster, please take her with you. Meanwhile, Michael splashed the liquid in the bucket onto the door. Immediately, the air became thick with the smell of oil. The smell indicated what Ghost was planning to do. Noah pushed both Grandmaster Aishan and Alicia towards the door. Why are you staying behind? Noah asked Ghost. To Noah, Ghost staying behind was a surprise. Alicia forgot to throw a death glare at Michael in her concern about leaving behind Noah. Where are you, Piggy? The bone-chilling voice of the elder vampire sounded in their ears. I can't let you have all the fun, Michael responded to Noah with a smile. Then the moment Alicia and Aishan stepped outside, Michael closed the door. With a snap of his finger, Michael sent a tiny bolt of lightning to the door, causing the door to get on fire immediately. As the door was burning behind them, Michael and Noah walked side by side for the first time as their long coats fluttered in the wind. On the other side, the elder vampire shrouded in red mist hovered through the hole where the door was, followed by several dark-robed vampires. We cannot fight him in a closed space like this, Michael whispered to Noah. Looking at the elder vampire and the others behind him, Michael's instincts told him they were not as weak as the vampires he killed. The last thing Michael wanted was another red hole in a closed space. So instead, the ideal place to battle them would be in the open. Just the two I want, the elder vampire snarled. Unfortunately, because of the shroud of mist around him, Noah couldn't see the elder vampire behind. However, Michael was able to because of his X-ray vision. Thus, Michael saw the elder vampire raise his hand. And the moment Michael saw the vampire snap his fingers, the entire hall trembled. Boom. The hall exploded from within. Soon the building crumbled down. Lightning dash. Michael immediately cast the spell to escape the hall. From outside, one could see the entire northern side of the arena collapse to the ground. The crumbling building hit the ground, producing a dust storm. Because of the dark blanket on the arena, the scene looked eerie. Many alchemists lay on the open ground without moving a muscle. Their green robes were drenched in their own blood. Other than the green robes, the only commonality they had between them was the bite mark on their necks. Those who were lucky escaped the arena while Noah was fighting them. Still, almost 60% of the people died at the hands of the vampires. The smell of blood stench in the air was evident from this gruesome massacre. The casualty rate of the alchemists was much higher than the spectators. Only a handful of the alchemists who participated in the final round escaped the arena. The rest were on the ground dead. Almost 90% of the most talented alchemists of Elon and Azair died in the battle. At that moment, among the bodies, 2 bodies moved. Shit, Michael cursed as he picked himself up from the ground. He pushed himself to the limit by using celestial energy. Otherwise, he would have been crushed by the building. He still couldn't believe the elder vampire brought down the hall with a single snap of his finger. Michael picked himself up as he growled and saw the arena in ruins. The VIP seating and the hall north side of the arena were gone. Arg, Michael heard a growl as he turned aside to see Noah. Just like him, Noah also pushed himself to escape the collapsing building. However, considering Noah wasn't a soul refining stage cultivator, he couldn't use celestial energy to power up his spells. That was why Noah had bruises and cuts, unlike Michael. Noah flicked his wrist, retrieving a healing potion. Noah drank the potion in one gulp and prepared himself for the battle. Then Noah looked around to see hundreds of dead bodies. All those lives, lost. His heart ached at the sight. These are blood-sucking vampires. So we have to kill them, you know that, right? Michael asked, looking at the elder vampire hovering towards them with the vampires following him behind. I only want one alive, Noah said. Sponsored content. Visit Readle Me for extra chapters. No problem for me. Obviously Noah wanted one vampire alive so he could interrogate him for more information. If Michael was right, Noah would also try to find a cure for vampirism. With the help of the system, it was not a big deal for Michael. He had already started to find the cure and required a blood sample from a more powerful vampire other than Victor. His blood might do the trick, Michael said to himself, staring at the elder vampire. At the moment only Michael, Noah, and the vampires remained in the arena. All the others were either dead or escaped the arena with their life intact. You possess heaven's flame, the elder vampire said, landing on the ground. You massacred my freshlings. The elder vampire turned his gaze from Noah to Michael. I wonder what kind of vampires you two would become. The elder vampire's voice sounded colder. When I turn you both. As soon as these words escaped the elder vampire's mouth, the 30 vampires behind him dashed at Michael and Noah before they could even blink an eye. Lightning dash, void step. Michael dashed at the vampires, leaving a golden trail, while Noah left blurry after images. Clang, clang. The sound of metals clashing emerged in the ground, but unlike one would expect, the sound produced by Michael and Noah's sword hitting the vampires' necks. Michael was surprised as his sword didn't cut through the vampire like before. Instead, he felt like he had hit a stone. Only then did he realize the red mist covering the vampire's neck. Die. The vampire violently swung his fist at Michael, but he quickly leaped back. On the other hand, Noah was also surprised by the protective mist around their necks. Blood beam. Before Michael could bat an eye, the vampire fired a red beam at him. Out of the blue, the translucent responsive shield popped up and absorbed the beam, protecting Michael. The vampire was surprised but kept firing beam after another without a break. Suddenly Michael's neck hair stood up as another vampire leaped at him simultaneously from behind, left and right. Noah's situation was no different than Michael's. In fact, Noah was in worse condition as more vampires targeted him because of Heaven's Flame. The responsive shield could protect him from attack spells but not physical attacks. Therefore, Michael immediately cast the Ring of Fire to burn the vampires flanking him. Motherfucker. The scorching hot flame appeared around Michael in a perfect circle, instantly burning the 4 vampires within a 3-meter radius. The flames continued to send waves of flames in all directions, preventing the other vampires from getting close to Michael and burning the vampires inside the circle more and more. Granted, the vampires had inhuman regeneration. Still, injuries and burn wounds hurt them like hell. Luckily for the vampires, Michael still didn't use the dark flames. Otherwise, the Ring of Fire would have turned the vampires into piles of ashes. Arg! Suddenly a vampire roared as he smashed the stage Noah stood on during the competition. Bang! 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 A couple of vampires joined the vampire in breaking the platform. Meanwhile, the others kept Michael and Noah busy. They swarmed the two of them from all directions. They kept smashing the platform until the platform cracked open. Then, after cracking open the marble platform, the vampires ripped apart a huge 10-meter-long marble slab. Boom. Shit. Michael only saw a blue before he was sent flying by the marble pillar. In midair, he coughed up blood as the APD immediately sent a healing potion into his bloodstream to heal his body. The vampires swung the marble pillar again as fast as they could and swatted Noah like a bug. The next moment, Noah's body violently screeched through the ground, creating a clear trail. Chapter 5 10 Gods in Action. The vampires split the marble pole into 2. Some vampires grabbed one hand and ran to Noah while the others leaped into the air above Michael. Fuck! Michael saw the vampires bringing down the marble pillar to crush him like a bug. Lightning dash. Immediately Michael dashed out of the way. Boom. When the vampires brought down the pillar, the shock wave created a mini explosion and a dust storm around the area where Michael was a moment ago. Meanwhile, on the other side, the vampires treated the heavy marble pole like a wooden club and tried to smash Noah. Light blast. Noah raised his hand, seeing the pillar coming down on him. Boom. The blast of light beam shot out of Noah's hands, obliterated the pillar into bits and pieces. Still, the beam of light wasn't powerful enough to stop the vampires from smashing him with the marble chunks. Cough. Noah coughed up blood when a huge chunk of marble landed on his chest. Michael was surprised to see Noah getting beaten up by the vampires. However, when he pondered for a moment, everything made sense to him. The vampires drew power from darkness just like him. Only, he didn't cast Death Range to strengthen his powers since he didn't want anyone to suspect him of being the Dark Lord. Noah, on the other hand, drew power from light. Although Michael had no concrete evidence that Noah was the god of light, he suspected it. The acne before him confirmed his doubt. If Noah was to draw power from light, it made sense why he was so weak at the moment. Because there was no light coming through the dark blanket in the arena, the entire atmosphere had an eerie red and black color to it, resembling hell. Since there was a lack of light, the darkness suppressed Noah's powers. In addition, he also used most of his energy fighting the vampires and saving the spectators. While the marble block pinned Noah down on his chest, 3 vampires leaped at him, showing their fangs. Their eyes were blood red, longing to drink Noah's blood. Michael may not know Noah was his brother, but when he saw Noah was in danger, the bond of brothers buried deep within him woke up as Michael dashed at Noah. But, of course, Michael rationalized the feeling of saving Noah by thinking that he needs Noah's heaven's flame to kill the vampires without revealing his secrets. Before Noah could cast another spell, the marble chunk on his chest shattered into pieces, and a strong wave of wind blasted away the vampires leaping at him. Noah looked up and saw Ghost extending his hand. For some reason, Noah felt safe around him. Thus, Noah grabbed his hand and stood up. As soon as he grabbed his hand, Noah felt a sting in his palm. Then a refreshing feeling surged from his core. Noah immediately felt better, and when he saw Ghost, he winked at him. "Time out." Michael shouted at the vampires as they halted their steps. "Just give us a damn moment, okay? You guys are bullying us." The vampires were confused and so was the elder vampire. "Now I'm regretting not running away." Michael's facial muscles twitched, showing his exhaustion to the vampires. "What is he doing?" Noah wondered. Since he had to heal his body and replenish the arch energy within his body, Noah remained still. "Don't bother stalling, Ghost," the elder vampire snickered. "No one is getting in or out without my permission." Michael took a step aside, but the vampires immediately snarled at him. So Michael quickly dropped his swords. "I'm not gonna fight anymore." Just as though the vampires received an order from the elder vampire, they stepped back. "Is it too late to ask for permission to leave?" "I mean, you clearly allowed others to leave." Michael slowly walked away from Noah, keeping his hands in the air. "I needed some cockroaches to tell exactly what happened here," the elder vampire calmly said. He was awfully calm and didn't seem worried about the Guardians or the Holy Church breaking into the arena with their full force. "But you too." Michael saw the elder vampire lick his lips. "Will be my finest creations. I will rub this on their faces." I get it," Michael pointed at Noah. "He has a primordial flame." "Why me? Other than making potions and pills, I have no use for you. The man you tried to kill was a better alchemist than me." Michael emphasized the words primordial flame and continued, "And I can run around faster." Again Michael emphasized the words run and faster. Noah felt like Ghost was talking to him. He pieced together the words he was emphasizing and connected the dots. The vampires had total control over the arena. Hence they couldn't care less about Michael. As far as they were concerned, he was mumbling in fear. They didn't see him slaughtering their friends after all. So they were oblivious to what he was capable of. "Can we make some sort of deal and work together?" Michael emphasized the words work together. "I can help you transfer primordial flames to you." The elder vampire frowned as Michael looked at his sword near Noah's foot. If Michael was right, the healing potion would have healed Noah by now. In the corner of his mind, Michael wished he had injected his Nanite's potion into Noah's bloodstream. However, he couldn't risk it. No matter what Noah must not find, Ghost was the Dark Lord. Michael wouldn't do anything that would jeopardize his identity. After all, Noah wasn't alone. He had Andreas with him. Primordial flame chooses the host, not the other way around. Today you will be turned. Then you will obey every single command I have for you. Damn it, I love my freedom so much. Not to boast, but I rejected the Guardians because I don't want to work for them, Michael sighed. Soon they will all work for the great nation of Evernight. Everlight was the rise of the legendary Emperor's MC's nation. And you too will be our slaves, the elder vampire coldly snickered. Do you know something? Michael lowered his hand while his expression changed from being afraid and exhausted to cold and murderous. If one thing I hate the most, it's slavery. Now. Michael shouted as he dashed at Noah as fast as he could. Sponsored content. Visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. Before the vampires could react, Noah stomped the ground to raise ghost swords in the air. Noah waved his hand when the swords were at his eye level. sending a stream of heaven's flame onto the swords. Immediately, the bright blue flame coiled around the two black blades. At the same time, two vampires dashed at Noah, flanking him from both sides. They were fast, but Michael was quicker because he didn't hold back. Instead, he used all the celestial energy in his body, pushing his speed to maximum. Just when the vampires were just a meter away from Noah, Michael grabbed the two swords in the air. Whoosh, whoosh. The elder vampire saw two heads flying towards him. He was shocked by Ghost's speed. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. The headless body staggered around, spraying blood before collapsing to the ground with a sickening thud. Compared to Dark Flame's, Heaven's Flame was much weaker and way less potent. Hence, it didn't melt Michael's swords as Michael expected. Since his sword was on Heaven's fire, they cleaved the heads through the mist like a hot knife through butter. At that moment, the vampires raised their hands. Blood beam. Several beams of crimson-red light shot out from their hands towards Michael and Noah. Seeing the beams, Michael remained closer to Noah as the responsive shield absorbed all the beams, rendering them pretty much useless. Poch. Suddenly Michael felt a hot splash of blood on his face. When he turned aside, Michael saw Noah's hand sticking through a vampire's head. The vampire sneaked up on them, but Noah killed him before he could reach Michael. Realizing Michael's defense spell protecting them both, the vampires changed their battle tactics. They all just dashed at them from all directions. Give me the sword. Michael handed his sword to Noah after he asked. The vampires closed the gap in a blink of an eye. Anyone in Noah and Michael's shoes would barely see their blurry figures. But Noah and Michael remained calm and worked together. When they reached closer, Noah and Michael stood closer with their backs against each other. Clang, clang, clang. Michael and Noah swung their swords, rotating and deflecting the vampires' claws. The faster they moved, the blurrier their figures became to the vampires. From the aerial view, one could see the two of them vaguely forming a yin-yang symbol. For the first time they fought together. The darkness and light fought against a common enemy. Even powerful entities such as vampires couldn't touch both of them. Cast your ring of fire. Noah shouted while fighting off the vampires. Ring of fire. Immediately a ring of fire appeared around them. Michael wondered what Noah was planning, and soon he got his answers when Noah raised his hand, shooting out a stream of heaven's flame onto Michael's crimson-red ring of fire. The moment the two fires clashed, they merged together, forming a bright golden flame. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 50,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 50,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 50,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 50,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. The vampires burned to ashes in a flash when the golden fire touched them. Surprisingly, Michael only received half of the experience points he would normally receive. It seemed like the system deducted points by half because half of the kill was Noah's. Light beam. Noah fired a beam of light strengthened by heaven's flame straight through a vampire's head while Michael sent a powerful gust of wind blasting the vampire, dashing towards him into the fire. The power radiation the elder vampire sensed as they were fighting startled him. He had never felt such power in his life. But, of course, he was 600 years old. He experienced many anomalies, but the radiation from them was something else. What are they? Chapter 5:11 Battle intensifies. The elder vampire was in a dazed status, sensing the energy radiated from them. A moment ago when they fought alone he didn't feel the energy. Still, the moment they joined forces the energy radiation overwhelmed him. While he was in a daze, Michael lifted Noah into the air by his hand, and Noah used Michael as a pole to kick the vampires around them. Blood hole. Blood tornado. Overwhelmed by Michael and Noah, the vampires cast the blood hole and the blood tornado spell at the same time as several tornadoes and red holes appeared in the ground. Having experienced the spells, Michael put his hand around Noah's neck. Hold tight. Noah nodded as he also put his hand around Michael's neck. Lightning dash. Void step. Both of them cast their speed spell at the same time to boost their speed. The two spells merged into one, forming a trail of golden light that flickered in the air, creating an otherworldly whistling sound. The golden light crisscrossed around the arena, avoiding the tornadoes. But even for the elder vampire, it was difficult to follow the trail. So it made sense when the vampires couldn't even defend themselves before losing their heads. The red hole sucked the alchemist's bodies to the ground while the tornado destroyed the bodies. When Noah was alone, he was weakened by the darkness. Noah's weakness was nulled by teaming up with Michael, the god of darkness who drew strength from the darkness. Because of their speed, the red holes could suck them in. Compared to the suction force, their speed was much greater. As a result, the elder vampire witnessed his underlings losing heads one by one. They said he would be weakened. The elder vampire snarled, "Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is the soul refining stage level 5. When the system sounded in his head, Michael stopped running, and all the red holes and the tornadoes vanished into thin air. At that moment, only one vampire remained between them and the elder vampire. "He is all yours." Michael let Noah capture the vampire alive. He walked by Noah's side towards the vampire. They both knew the battle was far from over, as the elder vampire didn't even raise a finger yet. For now, Noah planned to incapacitate the vampire before fighting the elder vampire. After witnessing all of his friends get slaughtered by the duo, the vampire shivered. Then, fearfully, it walked backward until it tripped on a stone and fell down. "Save me," the vampire begged the elder vampire. Michael never wanted Noah to capture the vampire alive. Any information Noah gathered from the vampire would give him an edge Michael did not want Noah to have. Hence, he didn't help Noah capture the vampire. However, he could have simply injected the vampire with a paralyzing poison he hit Victor with. "Come here," the elder vampire softly spoke to the vampire. The vampire quickly picked himself up from the ground and dashed to the elder vampire's feet. And oh! Noah dashed at the elder vampire, but it was too late. First, the elder vampire engulfed the vampire in his red mist. Then, with the X-ray eyes, Michael saw the elder vampire's tongue drilling into the vampire's mouth as the vampire squirmed like a fish out of the water. In a couple of seconds, a mummified body hit the ground. Then finally, the red shroud around the elder vampire slowly cleared up to reveal his complete physical form. The elder vampire had a bloated carcass with several yellowish tumors leaking a green goo. His body was at least 4 feet wide and 6 feet tall. The inflated belly looked like the elder vampire swallowed a whole gym ball. Now Michael fully understood why the elder vampire chose to surround himself with a misty shroud. Just the disgusting belly button alone would make anyone puke to death. On top of everything, the elder vampire was naked. The last thing Michael needed was a sight of what was between his legs. Luckily for them, the vampire's inflated belly was big enough to cover his crotch. Not that vampires had reproductive organs. Still, Michael did not wish to see that. Several strands of mucky blonde hair on the vampire's bald egg-like head creepily waved left and right to the wind's rhythm. His dirty eyes with vertically slit red pupils stared at both menacingly. Looking at his unappealing body, Noah couldn't help frowning. He had never seen such a hideous creature in his life, and he had traveled to many realms and fought countless ugly creatures. "When you want something done, you have to do it by yourself," the vampire snarled. "Light blast." Noah raised his hand without warning, sending a light beam blast at the elder vampire. Noah was fast, but the elder vampire was faster. Hence, the vampire raised his hand as a translucent energy shield materialized before him and blocked the light beam. Heaven's flame. "It's a pity I can't take it from you." The shield blocked the light beam strengthened with Heaven's flame. "Chantless spell casting," Michael mumbled. It seemed as if the elder vampire was either a fusion stage cultivator or a prodigy, or the elder vampires were able to cast spells without chanting. "System, you know the drill. When the heat gets too much to handle, teleport me away," Michael said to the system in his mind. Noted, this was Michael's plan B. In case the elder vampire overwhelmed them, the system would buy a teleportation scroll and teleport him away from the arena. Else, he planned to battle and kill the elder vampire. His blood might be just the thing Michael needed to find a cure for vampirism. Moreover, he was curious to see how many badass points he would get after slaying the elder vampire. Void step. Unlike Michael, who stayed behind scheming in his head, Noah dashed at the elder vampire. Clang, clang, clang. Noah swung the sword covered with Heaven's flame at the shield. Although the shield flickered, the shield did not break until a fist poked through the shield. Boom. Noah blocked the fist with his sword. However, the force behind the punch overwhelmed Noah as he was sent flinging in the air. The lack of light really suppressed Noah's power, and without Michael by his side to fight, Noah stood no chance against the elder vampire's punch. This didn't mean Michael could battle the vampire without breaking a sweat. In a blink of an eye, the elder vampire dashed at Michael after hitting Noah. Despite the elder vampire's bloated body, his speed matched Michael's speed when using the lightning dash. The elder vampire brought down his fist on Michael, who had his instincts kick in to block the punch. Michael put his arms before his face to block the punch, and when the fist collided with Michael's arm, a loud booming sound reverberated in the area. As the outcome of their collision, Michael's feet were pushed several inches into the ground. After that, the elder vampire repeatedly beat Michael like a drum. Sponsored content. Visit Readle.me for extra chapters. Boom, boom, boom. The elder vampire kept bashing him with his fists. Michael didn't even have a single second to breathe. To Michael it felt like he was being slammed by an elephant. His forearm went numb by blocking the vampire's punches. If it wasn't for the APD constantly injecting him with healing potions, he would have been either dead or broken to pieces. At that moment, APD was the only thing keeping him from becoming a victim of the elder vampire. Enough. All of a sudden, Michael's eyes flared up for a second before he grabbed the vampire's hands. He manipulated the darkness, drawing strength from it to thwart the elder vampire's punches. Arg! Michael shouted as he fought against the raw strength of the vampire. The ground Michael standing on was cracking as his feet kept going deeper and deeper. Arch crying out loud, Michael punched the elder vampire in the belly using all his strength. Boom! The punch's force pushed back the vampire a few feet backward. One could see the ripples on the vampire's bloated belly and a tinge of surprise in his eyes. Void step. After Michael punched the vampire, Noah leaped at him in a flash. Soon, Noah appeared above the vampire's head and brought Michael's sword down the vampire's neck. Ring of Fire. Immediately Michael cast the Ring of Fire to entrap the vampire within the circle. But, in midair, Noah held the sword in one hand and pointed the other at the fire, sending a stream of heaven's flame to the crimson red fire. Noah and Michael's coordination and speed stunned the vampire. Before he could even react, the crimson red fire turned golden. These golden flames burned many of his underlings to ashes. Even though he was powerful, the elder vampire did not dare to underestimate heaven's flame. The elder vampire was a second late to react, resulting in Noah stabbing him in the shoulder. Bang! The vampire moved quickly to swat Noah away from his shoulder like a bug. Boom! Michael used the opportunity to dash at the vampire before punching him again in the stomach. Bang! With a single backhand slap, the vampire sent Michael flying just like Noah. After streaking through the ground for a few long, painful seconds, Michael picked himself up from the ground as the APD sent a dose of healing potion into his bloodstream. Noah, who stood a few meters away from Michael with tattered white robes, chugged a healing potion down and threw the vial aside. He is too strong, Noah exhaled. For a moment, the three stood without raising a finger. And you lost the sword. Michael looked at the sword stabbed into the vampire's shoulder. The sword almost looked like a needle due to the bloated size of the vampire. Annoying bugs. The vampire bore his teeth to reveal the long razor-sharp fangs. The two fangs were long and menacing as Sabertooth's canines. As he took a step forward, a large mace materialized in his hand. The mace almost looked as though it was made of blood rather than metal. With each step he took, the ground trembled. Don't worry, your bodies will heal, the vampire menacingly grinned at Michael and Noah. If anyone else were in Noah and Michael's shoes, they would have started to shiver. The amount of pressure they both felt could crush any body-strengthening stage cultivator into a bloody pulp. Despite the pressure, they remained calm. There was no use in panicking. Boom. The elder vampire pounded a body on its way to a pulpy mess without showing any shred of sympathy for his kind. The blood vaporized into the air and entered his body. After the blood entered his body, he licked his lips. Chapter 5:12 Battle concludes. The elder vampire caught them off guard by suddenly dashing at Michael. Immediately Michael raised his sword to block the mace. Boom. The moment the sword and the mace collided, Michael's sword broke into pieces and threw him backward a couple of meters. Now you pissed me off. Seeing the broken sword in his hand, Michael growled. He loved those two black swords, and the elder vampire broke one like a twig with a single swing. Now Michael had to forge or buy a pair of swords from the system for a ridiculously high price. The price was why Michael hadn't purchased a sword from the system. There were better choices in the auction houses than the swords in the system. Unfortunately, the system locked the ores behind an upgrade wall. So without upgrading the system to a certain level, Michael wouldn't be able to buy them. Instead of wasting his badass points on a pair of swords that could be outclassed by swords forged in this world, Michael used the black sword given to him by the Cane Elders. Seeing Michael standing with a broken sword, Noah turned his head to look at the white sword behind the elder vampire, several feet away from them. "Go get it," Michael nodded at Noah before dashing at the elder vampire. The elder vampire swung his mace, sending a crescent blood wave at Noah, but Noah raised his hand, firing a stream of heaven's flame to cut through the blood wave. On the other hand, Michael reached the elder vampire and leaped onto the vampire's belly. He climbed onto the vampire's stomach as quickly as possible before the vampire could react. Bang! Michael kicked the vampire's chin with enough force to numb his feet. "Arrgh!" the elder vampire roared, which sounded more like a roar of an annoyance than hurt. Michael tried to grab the sword sticking out of the vampire's shoulder, but before he could get his hands on it, the vampire tried to swat Michael with his big fist. Bang! Michael stomped the vampire's face, crushing its nose. Yet, the broken, crooked nose set itself in a matter of seconds. However, it pissed off the vampire as it began to grab Michael violently. Immediately Michael retrieved the tear gas vials from the system storage and broke the vials by crushing them on the vampire's head. Fuck. The vampire cursed as the tear gas made the vampire unable to move around by causing intense irritation to the eyes. Michael knew the tear gas could only be in effect for 10 seconds or so to a powerful being such as the elder vampire. Sometimes he was annoyed by alchemy. Almost every single potion and pill would lose its effect in front of a powerful cultivator. The celestial energy was an ultimate purifier than the arch energy. Even the most powerful poisons would be purified by celestial energy. This was why killing a cultivator above the soul refining stage was near impossible by means such as poisoning. It was also why the system charged a measly amount of 20,000 points. Granted, being an alchemist was a great way to get rich. Still, when it comes to battle capabilities, there weren't many potions and pills that could really give him an edge when battling beings with higher cultivation stages unless he could get his hands on some potent ingredients. Unfortunately, the damn system overpriced every ingredient to the point that brewing the portion would not be worth the price. Boom. The vampire had enough of Michael's annoying tactics. Hence, the vampire clobbered himself in the face with the mace. The shock wave threw Michael off balance. When he struggled to balance himself, the vampire punched him in the chest, instantly breaking several ribs. Fighting the pain, Michael cast the lightning dash to dash away from the vampire before the vampire grabbed him. Michael's arm was so numb that he didn't even feel the sting of APD. Even with the 90% pure healing potion, it would take him at least 5 to 6 minutes to heal his broken ribs. While Michael was coughing up blood, Noah leaped at the vampire with his white sword in his hand, lightning blade. Michael saw a thick bolt of lightning shooting from Noah's sword to the vampire's head. The pure white lightning momentarily blinded the vampire and flashed across the arena. Noah's lightning would have reached the vampire's head if he, a bloated disgusting mountain of meat and fat, didn't jump in the air, overhead kicking Noah like a football. The agility and athleticism caught Noah off guard, and not only Noah but Michael too. For a moment, the bloated vampire looked like a professional football player. That overhead kick was simply too shocking. Before the elder vampire lands on the ground, a blood-red torpedo shot out of the vampire's butt and soared through Michael. Boom. It exploded when the torpedo clashed with Michael's responsive shield. Fortunately, the elder vampire wasn't stronger than a soul refining stage cultivator. Because of that, the shield absorbed 80% of the force. But the remaining 20% forced Michael several steps backward and broke his ulna like a twig. Damn it! Michael gritted his teeth in pain. He looked down at his forearm to see a bloody broken bone sticking out through the sleeves. He couldn't even imagine what would happen to him if he didn't have the responsive shield. Shooting missiles from your butt. Real matured, you ugly fuck, Michael shouted at the vampire before pushing back the broken bone back into his forearm. It hurt like hell despite the APD sending a healing potion into his bloodstream. Noah had a look of surprise when he saw Ghost pushing back the broken bone. So many would have fainted in pain or screamed in agony. Yet, Noah saw no pain or misery on his face but intense killing intent in his eyes. After Michael set the ulna back in its place, the healing potion sped up a bit. I had enough of this, Michael mumbled to himself and looked up at the black cloth covering the arena's rooftop. Do you really think it's just a black cloth? The elder vampire snickered. Sponsored content, visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. Unless I want to, it's going nowhere. I am the overlord in this scene, the elder vampire oozed with confidence. The vampire stomped the ground as a sign of his dominance. I am Ghost. Michael's lips curved upwards, surprising the vampire and Noah. The next moment, Noah and Michael dashed at the vampire from back and front. Noah was the one behind the vampire, while Michael cast the lightning dash spell to face him head-on from the front. System scan completed. The dark net is a web of complicated runes and arrays intervened together. The system requires 200,000 badass points to disable the dark net. He heard the system sounding in his head, and although the required badass points staggered him to kill the elder vampire, he had to spend the badass points. Do it! Michael yelled at the system in his mind. But unlike Noah, he never planned to fight the elder vampire head-on. Instead, he planned to level the field by weakening the elder vampire. Sunlight was deadly to any vampire. That was why Victor or the other vampires wore dark robes covering their skin. But the elder vampire was too confident in his dark cloth blocking the sunlight. Thus he was as naked as a newborn baby. As though Noah had read Michael's mind, Noah changed his trajectory suddenly and dashed at Michael. When they both met a few meters away from the elder vampire, Michael leaped into the air as Noah grabbed Michael's feet and boosted him into the air using all his strength. While Michael was soaring through the air towards the black cloth, Noah threw his sword in the air, which was caught by Michael just a moment before he swung the white sword at the black cloth. Creech! The vampire was startled when he heard a tearing sound. He looked at the growing tear in the black cloth dumbstruck. Little by little, the sunlight crept through the gap, vacating the red ambience the vampires created. It's impossible, the vampire couldn't take his eyes off the tearing black cloth. One of the most powerful weapons the vampires had was destroyed in a matter of seconds. He spent the best years of his life perfecting the black cloth, only to fail. Meanwhile, Noah felt the light coming through the gap restoring his power. Noah gained power while Michael lost his power boost as the darkness was being replaced by light. Still, it was worth the trade-off because the light weakened the elder vampire more than it did to him. Even without the darkness, Michael was a soul-refining stage cultivator and still strong. But the same could not be said of the vampire as his power took a nosedive. Boom. Suddenly, Noah shot into the air from the ground like a rocket, cutting through the air. In mid-air, Noah grabbed Michael's hand, which was holding his white sword. They pointed the sword toward the vampire, diving down. The two of them looked like a meteor soaring through the air, creating a trail blaze. At that moment, Noah and Michael shared the same sword and aim, killing the elder vampire. The elder vampire's battle instincts kicked in as he raised the mace in the air to deflect the sword. Additionally, the translucent red shield bubbled around the vampire, who had no longer wished to stay in the arena because of the sunlight. Boom. However, when the duo and the shield collided, the vampire's blood shield shattered into hundreds of tiny shards. The shock wave burned everything around them in a 10-meter radius. Poch! Noah and Michael did not stop as they entered through the vampire's chest, forming a vast hole and appearing out in the back, completely drenched in blood. Error! The elder vampire screamed in agony as his skin began to smoke. In a couple of seconds the sunlight completely burned his skin. Then, coupled with the huge hole in his chest, the vampire staggered aimlessly. Finally, after a long tiresome battle, they slew the elder vampire. However, Michael frowned as he didn't hear any notification from the system or receive any experience points. For some reason, Michael had a bad feeling in his guts, and when he turned his head, he saw the same concern on Noah's face. Chapter 513 Noah and Michael dead? Noah and Michael stared at the fallen vampire without batting an eye. Then all of a sudden the vampire began twitching his limbs. Soon, his whole bloated carcass trembled violently as yellowish goo oozed out of the tumors in his body. The strong putrid smell of ammonia and sulfur overwhelmed Michael's senses. It was quite nauseating as Michael had a strong urge to throw up. His face was turning green when the vampire's body began to bloat while his body released a green mist. He's gonna explode, suddenly Noah shouted. In a snap of time, Noah cast the void step, grabbed Michael by his hand and dashed into the air. Michael had zero clue how Noah found the vampire was about to explode. But just as he said, the vampire's body bloated rapidly, releasing more and more green mist until it exploded. The explosion wasn't a small one. It was as though a mini atomic bomb had gone off. One could see the mushroom cloud from 100 miles away. Every single building within the 1-mile radius from the arena turned into ruin and the Alchemy Guild, one of the oldest buildings on the Azer continent, crumbled down. Almost for an hour, no one could get closer to the arena, which was now nothing but a crater of ashes. Then, as Mother Nature had given the city her blessing, the dark rain clouds gathered above the arena and began to shower the city with heavy rain. The heavy rain quenched the heat radiation and settled the dust clouds around the arena. The rain also put the houses on fire and prevented the fire from spreading. At that moment the sky was full of people and warships. The guardians, the holy church, the king's men, and every single noble family in Idrizel arrived at the arena to fight the vampires. It was a real pity that many were caught in the explosion and burnt to a crisp. Still, each of them received backup and brought their own rune masters and mages to control the fire and isolate the area. Since the dust storm settled down, revealing the ground below, several people descended to investigate the area. Alicia and Norvin were among them. Noah. As soon as Alicia's feet touched the ground, she shouted out loud. Careful, what the hell happened here? Can you see anything? The guardians behind her murmured. The heavy smoke and the ash from the explosion prevented them from seeing everything clearly. There was nothing but smoke and ashes as far as they could see. While they were aimlessly strolling in the smoke, a group of 12 men robed in pure white robes appeared above the ruins. The long white beard, the staff in their hands, and the pointy hats on their heads gave them an exotic mage vibe. Right at that moment they formed a circle around the ruins. Surprisingly, the heavy rain couldn't drench them as it drenched everyone else. These mages remained as dry as a desert possible because of the translucent force field around them. Air purification, each of them chanted the word as they raised their staffs in the sky. From each staff, a bright light shot to the sky and met at a center point, forming a radiant orb of light. A few seconds passed when the orb of light transformed into a spinning chakra with a mile radius. Countless indistinguishable signs and letters formed the chakra. The chakra's brilliance lit the entire city of Oxshore and provided the people the comfort they needed. As the chakra rotated, sucking the heavy smoke and ashes, the chakra swirled in the sky, purifying the air until Alicia and the others could vividly see what was in front of them, which was nothing but barren lands. Alicia couldn't recognize the place at all. She felt as though she stepped into a desert only with ash instead of sand. As far as her eyes could see, she found nothing, not even a brick. Look. Alicia immediately turned to the man who shouted to see a skeleton, and when the man touched it, the skeleton crumbled into white dust. Meanwhile, more and more people landed on the ground, including Olivia and Aishan. They joined in the search for Noah and Ghost. To be honest, only Olivia came to search for Ghost while the Guardians focused on finding Noah. But, deep down, Alicia wanted Ghost to be one of those skeletons. Since Olivia had no sway with the Guardians and they had already refused to search for Ghost, she began to run around the barren lands searching for her teacher. But, of course, if this happened in Elon, the entire river town and the Sunrise sect would have been on the scene. But unfortunately, Michael had no connections in the Azer continent. If anyone could survive this, it's Noah. Seeing Alicia's eyes watering up, Norvin gently patted her on the head. While they were scouring through the ashes, a group of 12 men dressed in silver armor with the crest of the Guardian Guild on their chest landed on the ground. The one who led the group was a tall domineering elf with striking blonde hair, Tanulia Vauran, aka the Alpha Guardian of Hunter Guardians. I want every inch of this place searched. Coordinate with the Holy Church guards. No stones unturned, got it? Yes, Alpha Guardian. The Guardians behind Tanulia raised their voices, and each of them dashed in a direction to search the premises. We will find Noah, Tanulia said when he came to Alicia and Norvin, Grandmaster Aishan. Tanulia then turned her gaze towards Aishan, who was still looking pale and terrified. How is Lord Hendrix? He is now stable. The healers asked him to take a rest. I have assigned my best men to protect him. His safety is our top priority right now. Ghost? Their conversation was abruptly cut short when suddenly a panicked voice reverberated in the area. They all looked in the direction of the voice to see Olivia frantically digging through the ashes. They all rushed at Olivia and saw a hand sticking out of the ash. Quick! Tanulia shouted at the men surrounding her. But no one needed an order as they had already begun to dig the ashes. Alicia and Norvin joined in the digging. The more they dug, the more they uncovered Ghost's body. While digging, Norvin felt another hand beside Ghost. His speed doubled, thinking it might be Noah. Just as he guessed, when Norvin and Alicia dug out the ashes, they uncovered Noah's body. Sponsored content. Visit Readle Me for extra chapters. Together they all finally managed to dig out Ghost and Noah. Unfortunately, both of them were in pretty bad shape. Their clothes were burned and torn up, several parts of their body such as hands, neck and legs, were covered in burn wounds, and they could even see Noah's femur sticking out of his leg through the pants. Are they alive? Aishan asked while the Guardians were carrying them away from the dig site. He has a pulse. Olivia grabbed Michael's hand and sensed a weak pulse. Bring me the healers. Tanulia shouted as several Guardians flew out of the ruins to bring the healers to her. Meanwhile, the guardians placed 2 wooden beds on the ground instead of taking them out of the crater. The rain slowly washed off the ashes on their faces. Alicia and Olivia's tears also hit their faces along with the raindrops. "What are you doing?" Looking at Olivia taking out a healing potion from her space ring, Tenulia questioned her, but instead of responding to Tenulia, Oliva gently poured the healing potion on Michael's neck, which was severely burned by the explosion. The potion healed up the wound but not the marks. Afterward, Olivia took out another potion and gently poured it into Michael's mouth. "Wake up, ghost." Olivia could barely speak those words through her lumped throat. Most of the sparkling potion leaked out of his mouth. This was why the others waited for the healers. Instead of dumbly pouring the potion down an unconscious man's throat, the healers would turn the healing potion into an easily absorbed vapor and send it through the patient's skin pores. However, Olivia had neither patience nor trust in the Guardians after she read how they try to drive people by hiding the vampire's existence from the world. As a result, not only Olivia but many people shared her thoughts and lost faith in the Guardians. After what happened in a drizzle spread across the world, the majority of the people would blame the Guardians. However, the Holy Church was already on a secret mission to dethrone the Guardians. Today they received an ultimate weapon to use against the Guardians. Tenulia or the others didn't give a damn about Ghost. Hence, they didn't stop Olivia from pouring vial after vial into his mouth. Instead, except for Asian, they all focused solely on Noah. Suddenly, before the healers could arrive, Ghost's finger twitched. "Ghost?" The sight of Ghost's pinky finger twitching may be the happiest memory she had ever experienced. Michael gasped for the air, opening his mouth. Immediately the healing potion in his mouth went down his throat. As soon as the healing potion reached his throat, the wounds on his body began to close up. The redness gradually returned to his body as they all stared at Ghost's breathing, getting heavier and heavier. Looking at Ghost responding to the healing potion, Alicia wasted no time. She took out a bunch of healing potions Noah brewed and smeared them on Noah. Wait for the healers. Tenulia didn't want Alicia to choke Noah with healing potions. She had witnessed many unconscious soldiers die because their fellow soldiers tried to pour down healing potions down their throats. There was a reason why the battlefield had healers and tents to treat unconscious soldiers. With a flick of her wrist, Tenulia paralyzed Alicia before she killed Noah. On the other hand, Olivia kept shaking Ghost by his shoulder. His eyes abruptly opened, shocking everyone. "You whack." As soon as he opened his eyes, he turned his head, throwing up blood. "Ghost?" Olivia's motherly instincts kicked in as she held his head sideways to make his vomiting as comfortable as possible. She kept patting and brushing his back while Michael continued to throw up blood. A few minutes later, Michael finally stopped coughing up blood. He took out a healing potion and chugged in one gulp. "Teacher," Olivia said, but Michael raised his finger, wordlessly telling her to wait. He then stood up from the bed and took out another glimmering jade vial. Under their stunned gazes, he emptied the potion into his mouth. The miraculous potion healed his burned skin, visible to the naked eye. "Arg," Michael growled as he rotated his head, producing cracking noise. "I am never judging a competition again." Chapter 514 Noah warns Alicia. Michael spit a bit more blood and took out a leather pouch from his system storage. "Teacher?" Olivia tried to say something, but Michael raised his finger as he took a long sip of water. He kept drinking until Tenulia cleared her throat. "What happened here?" Instead of answering Tenulia, Michael looked at Noah, who lay on the bed unconscious. "Give this to him if you want to save him." Michael took out a sparkling healing potion Olivia used on him and threw it at Tenulia. "His pulses are fading. You should act quickly. Where the fuck are the healers?" Alicia shouted. "He is right." Norvin nodded. "We can't waste a single second soon." The golden Babaru snatched away the healing potion from Tenulia and poured the potion into Noah's mouth before anyone could stop him. As a golden Babaru, not only could he sense life signs but also sense whether something was poisonous or not. Hence, Norvin didn't hesitate to give Noah the healing potion because he sensed no poisonous energy. His finger twitched as soon as Michael's potion touched Noah's mouth. Michael sighed inside. He never thought he would be indebted to Noah. Yet, when the vampire exploded, Noah saved him by casting a protective shield around them. Besides, the system surprisingly urged Michael to save Noah. As for why, the system gave him no answer. So if it weren't for the system, Michael would have left Noah to die. "Noah!" Alicia shouted, tears rolling down her rosy cheeks. "How long was I out?" Michael asked Olivia, ignoring Alicia. Despite the risk he took, Michael received only 300,000 experience potions and 10,000 badass points for killing the elder vampire. Michael wasn't happy with what he received since he almost died. After the elder vampire exploded, Noah cast a protective light shield around them. But unfortunately, the shield could only cover one person, and Noah let the shield save Michael instead of himself. Michael would have chosen himself and not Noah if the roles were turned. 6 hours. Olivia shocked Michael. Damn it, Michael yelled at himself. He was completely unconscious. This was the closest Michael came to death. When he and Noah went through the elder vampire's body, he took a flesh and blood sample. At least something was worth the risk. Using the samples, Michael was confident of brewing a potion that might cure vampirism. Tell us what happened, Tenulia coldly exclaimed. Vampires happened. Didn't those who escaped tell you? Michael stretched his arms and legs while responding to Tenulia. He looked down on him to see his clothes ripped and torn. The black robes now looked dirty brown. Under their gazes, Michael poured down the water in the pouch onto his head, washing the ashes off of his hair. Then he willed the system to equip a new set of robes. The explosion. Tell us about that, Tenulia asked, not minding he's changing his robes like he was going on a vacation. You know the one scary one who tried to kill Lord Hendrix? Michael asked, looking at Aishan as the old man nodded. He exploded. For a few moments no one uttered a word until Norvin managed to find words. Why? Because we killed him. Who do you think cut open the blanket covering the arena? A glint of shock and surprise emerged in Tenulia's eyes. Michael expected her to be shocked. Obviously, the Guardians would have tried to destroy the dark cloth and failed. Michael paid a whopping 200,000 badass points to disable the runes and erase into the dark net. If the system charged that much, there was no way the Guardians could have cut through the dark net in a short amount of time. Thus, her shock didn't surprise Michael. Cough. Subsequently, Noah coughed up blood just as Michael did. Michael was glad to see everyone was focusing on Noah instead of him. I assume your competition got the boot, Olivia cried and laughed at the same time as Michael wrapped his hand around her shoulder. I am sure your team would have won the competition. Michael rubbed her shoulder playfully. I don't give a damn about the competition. You scared me to death, she purred like a little girl. Next time I will run away with you. Happy? Michael laughed. Michael turned his back on Tenulia and her group to leave the area when he heard Tenulia's voice once again. You cannot leave. Olivia saw the smile on Michael's face vanish into thin air. He turned back and looked Tenulia in the eyes. Why? 1. We still haven't figured out what happened here. 2. We have a witness claiming you killed Lord Gabriel. Several dark lines formed on his face as he creased his brows. Standing beside Michael, Olivia shared the same look. Killed Gabriel? Ghost tried to save him. I saw that, and Grandmaster Aishan too. Olivia defended Michael. Michael turned his gaze to Aishan, who immediately avoided direct eye contact. I'm not sure what I saw. Everything happened so fast. At this exact moment, Michael had a strong urge to kill Aishan. However, it wouldn't take a genius to figure out that the witness was none other than Alicia, who held a grudge against Michael for exposing her brother and destroying his life. At that moment, Michael regretted not killing Peter in the forest when they first met. When Michael gazed at Alicia, Norvin felt a chill looking at Michael's eyes. They were the eyes of a killer, and every fiber in Norvin's body told him that Ghost was not just a killer but a predator. He sensed an overwhelming power within Ghost that could rival the power of Noah himself. Since Norvin didn't wholly comprehend his newly found powers, he couldn't make any connection between Noah and Ghost. As far as he was concerned, the power radiation he felt might be because of Ghost's higher cultivation stage. Are you arresting me? Michael tilted his head. If everything went according to his plan, the Alpha Guardian wouldn't be alive to arrest him in a few days. Don't act so innocent. I saw everything. You let him go. You killed him, Alicia roared. Sponsored content. Visit Reatal. Me for extra chapters. Alicia couldn't stay silent for long. Her hatred and anger blinded her mind and made her ignore Noah for a few moments. I didn't. Michael simply shrugged. Of course Michael killed Gabriel. He intentionally shot lightning bolts at Gabriel so he would lose his grip and fly into the red hole. Unfortunately, he didn't anticipate Alicia's quick reflex to grab him and Aishan's interference. Gabriel would have been alive if Michael didn't grab him before he could be pushed away from the suction force. But instead, Aishan the old bastard interfered and tried to save Gabriel. Unfortunately for Gabriel, Michael had already fixed his mind about killing Gabriel. Gabriel's hands weren't slipping away. Instead, Michael was the one who let him go. Is this about your vigilante brother? What was his name? Peter? Michael pouted to mock her. As soon as Alicia heard Ghost uttering her brother's name, she lost it. The golden spear still burning with heaven's flame materialized in her arms. Just as she was about to leap at him, a hand grabbed her spear and stopped her. They all looked down to see Noah opening his eyes. I will tell you everything that happened here. Noah rose from the bed. If anything, we should thank him for helping me take down the vampire, Noah calmly said to Tanulia. To be honest, Noah didn't like the way Tanulia treated Ghost. As far as Noah was concerned, if it weren't for Ghost, the elder vampire would have killed him and his friends. But once again Ghost helped him. We can let them go. Despite talking to an alpha guardian, Noah seemed domineering. His voice contained an authority that made Tanulia's tone weaker. Noah then turned to look at Ghost, who was slightly surprised by Noah's words. I thank you on behalf of the Guardians for your help, Ghost. I'm in your debt. Well, it's your lucky day as you have a chance to pay the debt. Michael yet again completely ignored Alicia and smiled. You've been engaged to her. Michael looked at Olivia and then turned back his gaze to Noah. But she's in love with someone else. So I'd appreciate it if you annul the marriage agreement. Consider it done. Noah nodded. Olivia felt like a mountain of pressure being lifted off her shoulder. She let out a deep sigh. Thank you, Master Noah. Olivia bowed to show her gratitude. She didn't expect Noah to be so generous. So many young masters considered annulling a marriage a shame, but Noah was so benevolent. No. I should be the one asking your forgiveness. If I knew you were in love with someone and didn't like the marriage, I wouldn't have agreed to it. No. How could you have known? Olivia shook her head. Now that everyone got what they want, I should take my leave. Ghost. When Michael was about to turn back and leave, Noah called him. Michael saw Noah extending his arm and with a nod, Michael firmly shook Noah's hands. After everything was said and done, Michael left the place with Olivia. They both shot towards the sky and disappeared into the dark clouds, leaving Noah's group behind. What was that? The moment Michael disappeared into the clouds, Tanulia coldly asked Noah, Forgive me for taking up the authority, Alpha Guardian. But we need to make allies instead of enemies. This vampire threat is not a joke. A single vampire decimated one of the highly protected places in an hour. Noah looked around and sighed. If we want to defeat them, we need powerful allies. Considering Tanulia knew about Noah's identity and how important he was to the guild, she remained calm, although she didn't like how Noah interjected and disrespected her rank. Then Noah turned his gaze towards Alicia, who was trembling in anger. And Alicia, the sooner you accept what your brother did was wrong, the better. If it weren't for Ghost, someone else would have exposed him. Norvin's jaw dropped a few inches as he was utterly shocked by how coldly Noah talked to his sweetheart. It was the first time Norvin had seen Noah treat Alicia coldly. The burning spear in her hands disappeared, along with the anger in her eyes. Instead, her eyes got filled with tears. This feud of yours with Ghost ends now. We would investigate impartially and serve justice if he had anything to do with Lord Gabriel's death. Do not let your hatred blind your mind. Chapter 5:15 Future Plans of Michael, my lord. When Michael entered his room in the dark forest, Azazel welcomed him with a bow. However, as soon as he entered the room, the red orbs began to radiate a dim crimson red light. Dude, you look like crap. What the hell happened? Iag, who was eating potato chips made by Raylene, asked Michael. He may have changed his robes and washed his face using the rainwater, but he still looked extremely exhausted and pale. The moment he reached the bedside, he collapsed to the bed just a few inches away from Vidora. I fought an elder vampire, Michael sighed. After hearing his words, Iag dropped the chip in her mouth back into the silver bowl. Did I tell you I fought with Noah? Michael said, looking at the dark ceiling. Then he turned his head to look at Azazel before Vidora could ask what happened in Adrizel from the beginning. Connect me to Eladir. Something is drilling my mind, and I think he may have an answer. As you wish, my lord. Azazel waved his ghostly hand as a 32-inch mirror materialized in the air a few meters away from the bed. Michael rose and willed the system to establish a connection with Eladir through the earpiece. Several seconds later, the mirror flickered as Eladir appeared in the mirror. Currently, Michael could see numerous drawings on the wall behind him and a messy bed behind him. My lord, Eladir slightly bent his waist to show his respect. Is there a god of light, Eladir? Michael's sudden question put a frown on Eladir's face. Not as far as I know, my lord. But when you, the god of darkness, exist, it wouldn't be illogical to say there is a god of light too. May I inquire why you suddenly asked me this, my lord? Because I think Noah is not only the successor of Andreas. I think he is also the god of light. Michael's voice was grave. In fact, Vidora or Azazel had never heard this much seriousness in his voice before. Why do you think that, my lord? Michael let out a long sigh and began narrating what happened in the competition from the beginning. None of them uttered a word after Michael finished his story. Ellider finally broke the gloomy silence. Light spells, drawing power from the light, darkness weakening him, Andreas choosing him to be the successor and trains to defeat the Dark Lord. Elodie rubbed his chin as his voice trailed off. Everything makes sense, my lord. You might be right, said Ellider after pondering the matter for a long few moments. That must have been the reason why the system told me to wait until it reaches version 8. He is a god. Just like me, Michael said to himself. If it's true, we have to be more cautious than ever before. Michael heard Cain as everyone except Michael locked their gazes with Cain. Also, if you could connect the dots, Noah might be too. So we have to stay as far as possible from him. Hearing them, Ayag couldn't help rolling her eyes. Why can't we just go and kill him while he's still weak? And oh, Ellider immediately raised his voice. We must not underestimate Andreas and the Sky Hall. You have only one rune master, me? But they have countless, and if I'm right, Andreas would have made sure no harm comes to Noah. Michael agreed with Ellider with a nod. When Michael injected Noah with a healing potion using the APD, he felt a gentle force resisting the potion for a moment. To Michael, it felt as though Noah's body scanned the potion and filtered it before letting the potion into his bloodstream. In case Michael tried to inject Noah with blood tonic, he had a feeling Noah's body would have rejected it by destroying the nanites. As Michael was deep in thoughts, Ellider once again broke the silence that haunted the room. The best course of action would be to stay away from Noah and raise your army in the shadows for the great war yet to come, my lord. Where should we go? Sarba felt a lump forming in his throat in the sadness of leaving the place he has grown to love. Ghost will go to R. Michael cracked his neck as his mind quickly formed a plan. Let me guess. You are planning to kill more people in Elon as Lucifer. Michael nodded but chose not to explain in detail. He couldn't just say he has to get more experience points by killing people so he could get stronger. Why not Jysel? We are absolutely safe there, asked Sarba as Michael sighed. We can't be sure until we know everything about the Guardians and the Sky Hall. Then what's the plan? Aya asked Michael as he turned back to look at them. Simple. Ghost will move to R and establish himself there. Lucifer will eradicate Noah's potential allies and weaken him in Elon and Azair. The Dark Lord will build an army in the southern continent. I can feel the excitement in my veins. Ayag grinned. Do you have a contact in R, my lord? Azazel asked Michael and drew Michael's gaze towards him. Eve Voldegard. As soon as Michael uttered the name, a glint of surprise emerged in Ellider's face. Voldegard? Is she a relative of Lane Voldegard? Michael nodded. Yes. She didn't talk about Professor Lane, but I think there is some history between Lane and Voldegards. I will gather more information and try to exploit whatever there is to strengthen ourselves. Michael looked at everyone to see if anyone had something to say. However, they all nodded in agreement with his plan. When are you and Gaia coming here? We should all move to R together. Speaking of Gaia, where is that snake? Ayag smiled. Although Ayag didn't show, she missed having Gaia around so much. Without her, the dark mansion felt gloomier than ever. It was rare to see Elide smile, but thinking about Gaia, his lips curved upward, revealing an alluring smile. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. She is having the best time of her life in the combat class. Yesterday she brought hundreds of snakes and set them free in the classroom. There are still many students in the infirmary healing. These snakes were poisonous? Asked Aya with a devilish grin. Very nice. Damn it. I wish we were there to see them screaming and crying. Did they scream and cry? Ayag tilted her head as Ellider nodded, brightening her face even more. Tell her not to overdo it. She needs to teach them something to maintain her cover. Ellider rubbed his eyes, fighting the urge to sleep. I already did. By the way, we will be there by next week. Then we can finally finish the mortars. Michael could see the exhaustion and sleepiness in his eyes. Hence, Michael didn't keep him any longer. Take some shut-eye, Ellider. You can't function best if your brain and body are desperate for rest. I will, my lord. After that, the mirror flickered again before turning completely dark. Then with a flick of his wrist, Michael took out Lucifer's suit of armor and put it on an armor stand. The armor looked as menacing as ever with its dark metallic platings and crimson-red linings. When I fought the Elder Vampire, I realized one of my biggest weaknesses. Michael ran his fingers through the armor. What is that? Asked Ayag. Armor, Michael simply said. This armor might look fancy, but it can't protect me from spell attacks. I need stronger armor. For both Lucifer and Ghost, who needs a suit of armor more than Lucifer. While fighting as the Dark Lord, Michael could unleash his full power without worrying about exposing his identity. Hence, Michael was relatively safe fighting as Lucifer than as Ghost. Granted, there were cool clothes in the system store, but they were not armors. To forge stronger armor, he needed stronger materials. Unfortunately, the system locked the ores and armor materials under an upgrade wall. In other words, until he upgrades the system to version 8, he wouldn't be able to buy a suit of armor or any materials from the store to forge a stronger unique armor. However, it never stopped Michael from getting what he wanted. The Aqua auction might have what I need to forge armor. Eve said she knows some blacksmiths who are capable of forging any sort of armor. Also, we should recruit a loyal blacksmith. Might be a good place to start looking for suitable candidates, Kane reminded Michael. To become a blacksmith himself, Michael would have to pay the system a whopping 700,000 badass points, and it would make him just a 1-star blacksmith. However, if he found one with a blacksmith specialty, he could turn him or her into a 5-star blacksmith for 1.2 million badass points. Compared to alchemy, smithing was in a different realm. But, coupled with his inventor trait, Michael knew he would be able to create some nasty weapons that could change the tide of the war. Of course, Michael planned to become one himself in the future. But for now, recruiting someone else seemed like the cost-effective and plausible way. He wished Jack was here because Jack had all the requirements to become his personal blacksmith. His death was really a loss for Michael. Loyalty should be the key here, Sarba said in his soft voice as though he read Michael's mind. I am pretty sure we can find a desperate dwarf who would be willing to become the Dark Lord's subordinate in our. Michael devilishly grinned. Excitement rushed through his veins, thinking he was finally going to R, the most powerful continent of all. My lord, suddenly Azazel called him as Michael turned around. Today is the day we asked Miss Peyton to meet you in Maven. Oh, the assassination of the Alpha Guardian. I almost forgot about that. But you haven't killed her yet? I aghast Michael. I will. Let's go meet Peyton, shall we? Michael willed the system to equip his armor as the suit of armor vanished from the stand and appeared on Michael except for the last piece, mask. It appeared in Michael's hands as he slowly put it on his face. Where are we going? Asked Sarba as they flapped their tiny wings to take off from the bed to Michael's shoulder. To the crypt. Michael activated the runic teleportation, and the next moment he just vanished into thin air, leaving Azazel behind. Chapter 516 Tenulia's brutal death under the sky of perfect midnight velvet, under stars so brilliant they drew the eyes heaven-bound, the music softly played by crickets and the ever-expanding ocean in front of Tenulia, made every second waiting for the vampire she was supposed to meet a beautiful yet heart-beating experience. She gazed at those bright friends of the moon and their pattern that seemed so fixed and yet ever-changing while the waves gently brushed over her feet. Her silver robes, adorned with golden engravings, fluttered in the wind, dancing to the rhythm of the sea along with her striking golden hair. It had been an hour since Tenulia arrived at the marked location on the parchment she received from a mysterious vampire. As far as her eyes could see, there was nothing but the ocean and an empty beach void of any life signs except a boulder 20 or so meters away from Tenulia. Regardless of waiting for a vampire in the middle of the night with no one around her, Tenulia had no fear in her heart at all. She was trained to remain calm and collected despite the situation by her mentors ever since she was born. The Alpha Guardian was not just a position. It was a state of mind. She was patiently waiting for the vampire and looking at the half-moon in the sky until she noticed a figure flying through the puffy white clouds accompanying the moon. The figure slowly descended onto the shot several meters away from her. The dark figure just arrived at the scene was tall, neither too skinny nor bulky, and wore ragged brown robes and a cloak to cover his face. Tenulia had seen beggars in much better condition than the man in front of her. However, she didn't show any scorn since she was not here to comment on his fashion sense but to do something that would save many lives. Tenulia Varen. Tenulia heard the man speak in an otherworldly, distorted voice that almost sounded mechanical. And you're the one who sent the potion in this? She slowly moved her hands to her waist and took out a parchment in her belt wrapped around her perfect slender waist. Since Tenulia was in civilian robes instead of her usual silver armor, one could clearly see her flawless hourglass structure. Furthermore, although the robes covered her arms, they failed to hide her muscle definition, which added an extra layer of charm to her beauty. Your people slaughtered hundreds of innocents today in Idrizel. Her eyes glimmered with rage and fury. That was a payback for what you humans had done, Tenulia Vauren. Secrecy is the lifeblood of Nightwalkers. When it's threatened, it's only natural we retaliate. The words sounded colder than the words spoken by Tenulia. Name your price for curing Tyriana. Tenulia didn't beat around the bush. Instead, she directly asked for the cure so she could save Tiriana, who was dying little by little painfully. We have heard you're spinning the blame on today's message on rogue cultivators. By message, you meant the massacre, right? You can take it however you want, Tanulia Valren. We wanted to send you a message and we did. Now we demand you turn us into a myth again. Otherwise, you will receive more and more messages every single week until... The vampire paused for a moment to let everything he just said sink into her skull. All humans are eradicated from the face of this world. Tanulia clenched her fist as the veins in her face bulged up. One could literally hear her grinding her teeth if they stood beside her. You want us to cover up your existence. A little bit late for that after your message, don't you think? That's your problem and you're getting the wrong idea here, Tanulia Valren. We are not here to negotiate. I'm here to tell you what you have to do to save your species, the vampire sternly said, leaving no chance for her to talk back. After hearing from Noah what happened in the Aqua Clan arena and what the vampires did to the people there, she did not dare to underestimate the vampires. Just a group of vampires massacred hundreds of people and prevented anyone from saving them. In a matter of a few hours, the vampires eradicated 80% of the alchemists in Elon and Azair. As a result, an alchemist's value on both continents would skyrocket in the future as the vampires created a massive void in the alchemy world. What about Tiriana? She can't survive until we do the impossible. You're drinking this potion is the price for saving her life. The vampire opened his palms to reveal a brownish potion glimmering from within. Is that poison? No, the vampire shook his head. Since he had a cloak and mask covering his face, Tanulia couldn't see his expressions. But judging by the tone of his voice, she could tell he didn't give a damn about her life at all. If we wanted to kill you, we would have done it by now. We Nightwalkers don't use underhanded tactics like your species. The potion floated towards Tanulia, revealing that the vampires could use arch energy within the void line. Tanulia blankly stared at the potion hovering in the air in front of her before grabbing it. She looked at the potion in her hand without any idea what it would do if she took it. Do I have to take your word on that? How do I believe it's not the same poison you gave to Tiriana? You don't. If you value your friend's life, this is the price. With her eyes watering up, Tanulia opened the vial. She expected the air around her to smell different, but contrary, nothing changed as she still smelled the fresh salty air as before. The vampire stared at her, lifting the potion towards her mouth and pouring it slowly into her mouth. As soon as she emptied the vial, blood seeped through her nostrils. She slowly lost the strength in her legs as everything around her turned blurry. She tried to say something, but a mouthful of blood sprayed out of her mouth instead of words. Then, her skin turned paler than a white sheet in a few blinks of an eye. But, finally, Tanulia collapsed on the sandy shore. Her body frantically twitched as blood seeped out from every pore in her skin, drenching her silvery robes with her blood. The sand beneath her slowly turned red around her. Her gaze fused with shock and rage, still locked onto the vampire until the light of life finally left her eyes. Peyton, the vampire called out when Tanulia's body stopped twitching. Sponsored content. Visit Readle Me for extra chapters. For a few moments, there was nothing but the sound of ocean breeze and waves that haunted the arena. Then, several seconds later, a figure walked out of the boulder's shadow out of the blue. Currently dressed in black robes from head to toe, Peyton strolled toward Tanulia's body. Is she dead? Peyton removed the cloak covering her head to reveal her face. She turned her blood-red eyes towards the vampire and saw him nodding his head. Her face twitched, showing the burning anger in her heart. I have to make sure, Peyton coldly snickered before retrieving a gray dagger hanging on her waist. Bitch! Peyton kicked Tanulia in the gut furiously and continued to do so to vent her anger. Seeing a decorated guardian such as Tanulia's corpse getting kicked mercilessly by another guardian was sickening. Peyton kicked and stomped Tanulia's body to the point she started to hear bones cracking in Tanulia's body. Then she dropped to her knees. You betrayed me. Peyton raised her dagger in the air as far as she could and brought it down onto Tanulia's chest pulch. The blood sprayed out from Tanulia's chest as Peyton kept stabbing her repeatedly. Her rosy face was painted red with the blood sprayed onto her face. Still, Peyton continued to skewer Tanulia until she couldn't raise her hand anymore. After she was done stabbing Tanulia's dead body, Peyton turned around to look at the vampire. Under her murderous gaze, he removed his brown robes, revealing the dark metallic armor beneath. Dark Lord, Peyton mumbled, looking at his terrifying stature. I fulfilled my end of the bargain. Tanulia Valren is no more, he said, stepping towards her. The vampires will be blamed for her death, Peyton sensed his voice changing from mechanical distorted to cold demonic voice. Peyton stared at his crimson-red eyes for a few moments in silence. A year ago, she began her journey to hunt down Lucifer so she could climb up the ladders in the guild. A year later, after spilling so much blood and sweat, she stood in front of the Dark Lord with the blood of Tenulia Vauren in her hands. What do we do with the body? Peyton looked at Tenulia's body. Then, she took a few steps away from the body while the Dark Lord stepped closer to Tenulia. Peyton saw the Dark Lord looking at Tenulia from top to bottom. What a pity. She would have made a fine subordinate. Peyton could swear that she almost sensed a bit of compassion in his voice. Letting out a sigh, the Dark Lord turned around. At that moment, Peyton was only a hand-reaching distance from him. Peyton took a deep breath looking directly into his crimson-red eyes. Afterward, she threw the dagger away and dropped to her knees. For a few seconds she looked at the sand and then she finally looked up at him. Her heart was pounding against her chest as everything around her seemed to have stopped. Suddenly, Tenulia's body behind the Dark Lord moved out of nowhere. Within a blink of an eye, Tenulia's hand grabbed the Dark Lord's legs. The Dark Lord shuddered, but before he could react, a golden sword engraved with hundreds of glowing runes materialized in Peyton's hand. Poch! She stabbed the Dark Lord with lightning speed and twisted the sword. At the same time, a golden rope appeared around his feet. Teleport now, bitch! Peyton grinned as she sent the sword deeper into his guts. Chapter 517 Capturing the Dark Lord. As soon as Peyton stabbed the Dark Lord in the guts and Tenulia, who pretended to be dead, cuffed him with a chain of Valhalla, a gigantic warship aka the Floating Fortress, appeared out of the blue in the sky. The ship cast a giant shadow on the beach, but soon, a powerful beam of light shot out from the ship, putting the Dark Lord in the center of the spotlight. The warship itself looked thrice the size of a man of war and resembled the shape too. Except the warship floated in the air instead of on the sea. The hull was built with strong yet lightweight metal and fitted with 30 cannons on a row, and there were 5 rows of cannons on one side. The glistening blue light of the half-moon reflected on the ship's silvery hull, making the ship look like a giant gem in the sky. In addition to the massive 4 masts fitted with golden sails, the ship was equipped with giant propulsors in the back to fly the ship and easily maneuver it in the sky. A statue resembling Tenulia was the figurehead as a wolf head was engraved onto the hull and the sails. The warship functioned as Tenulia's headquarters in the southern continent. Aside from its domineering look, the ship had many powerful weapons and functionalities. For example, the ship was equipped with camouflaging runes, which was why the ship remained undetected above their heads. Since there was no arch energy in the atmosphere on the southern continent, specialized runes and devices were designed to draw power from the moonlight and heat produced by burning a ton of coal. Get him up! Peyton shouted at the sky as the ship's belly opened up, releasing a floor panel attached to ropes. When the wooden panel hit the ground, Peyton grabbed the Dark Lord by his neck and moved him towards the wooden board. While walking, Peyton twisted the sword more to inflict maximum pain on the Dark Lord. But, considering the sword would release a potent paralyzing poison into the bloodstream of its victim, she wasn't surprised to see Dark Lord moving without struggling. Peyton and Tenulia were glad to see the sword and the chain of Valhalla working on the Dark Lord. Although they were forged by the best blacksmiths and enhanced by 6-star rune masters of Skyhall, the two had doubts. The last time they managed to catch the Dark Lord, he knocked them out and teleported away. Reel us in! Tenulia shouted as the wooden panel slowly moved upwards. A couple of minutes later they finally reached the inside. The interior of the ship was brightly lit with golden chandeliers. Tremendous braziers encompassing several columns lit up every part of the ship and covered the interior in warm silver and dancing shadows. The large mirrors on the embowed ceiling danced in the flickering light while stone effigies and wolves looked down upon the granite floor of this majestic ship. Alpha Guardian. Guardian Captain. A group of highly trained elites of the Hunter Guardians was there to escort them to the interrogation room specially built to contain the Dark Lord. The 12 men were clad in silver armor forged with the same metal as the ship's hull. However, even the elites glinted with fear in their eyes when they saw the Dark Lord in person. Wasting no time, they escorted the trio through a hallway guarded by more armed soldiers until they reached an 8-foot door made of copper. From where they started their journey to the door decorated by banners and lit with golden orbs that illuminated the paintings of elven men and women below them. The 3 guards leading the escort pushed open the copper door to reveal an empty room surrounded by white walls. There was only an oak table, 2 chairs on one side and 1 metal chair on the opposite side of the table. Michael was stunned by Peyton's betrayal. But, more than betrayal, it seemed like a carefully elaborated plan. While watching the interrogation room, and the glass on either side of the room reminded him of the interrogation rooms of Earth's law enforcement. The sword was still stabbed in the guts, and Peyton made a habit of twisting the sword every 10 seconds. "Sit your ass down." Peyton punched the Dark Lord in the face before pushing him down on the metal chair. As soon as he was forced to sit on the chair, the elite guardians entered the room with more golden chains and tied the Dark Lord to the chair as tight as they could. His hands were tied to the back of the chair while his legs were tied to the chair's legs. Additionally, they put a jade collar around his neck, and the moment the collar touched him, it glistened brightly. Tenulia ordered the elites as they quickly left the room, leaving Tenulia and Peyton in the room with the Dark Lord. At last, Peyton let go of the sword's hilt and went to sit beside Tenulia on the chair facing the Dark Lord. But the sword was still glowing and sticking out of his guts though. Blood bags and retractable dagger. Tenulia retrieved several pouches drenched in blood out from her cleavage while Peyton stabbed herself with the retractable trick dagger. The rooms are powered with hundreds of runes that even we haven't fully comprehended. So don't bother teleporting or using any spells, Tenulia snickered. The last time we met, I saw you bleed. And you know what we Hunter Guardians say about that, if it bleeds we can kill it? The elites who were witnessing the interrogation through the window couldn't feel proud of what they had achieved. So it was all an elaborate plan to catch me? The Dark Lord asked Tenulia and Peyton. For a moment, Tenulia and Peyton looked at each other. She then patted Peyton on the shoulder. She is the one who came up with the plan. Never in her entire life had Peyton gone through such a burden as she did to catch the Dark Lord. But at that moment, looking at the Dark Lord on the prisoner's chair, she felt the pain was worth it. Tenulia turned her gaze from the Dark Lord to the windows, which were one-way mirrors. They seemed to be a mirror when seen from one side, but like a window when seen from the opposite side. The Alpha Guardians used the windows disguised as a mirror for surveillance. "Bring me the crate." A few seconds after Tenulia ordered the elites whole were standing on the mirror's other side, an elite guard entered the room carrying a wooden crate. But the guard quickly put the crate on the table and left the room as fast as he could. It was evident to everyone that despite being the elites, they still trembled at the sight of the Dark Lord. Sponsored content. Visit Readle Me for extra chapters. Tenulia put her hand into it and grabbed something from the crate. When she opened her palm, still tainted with fake blood, Michael saw his spiders dormant on her palm without moving. "We know you were watching us. It took us some time. You bugged us, but we did and turned it against you." After showing him the spiders, Tunnelish closed her fist, crushing the spiders to dust. "Tiriana, how is she?" One would expect Tenulia to lose her calm or act furiously. However, she remained rather calm despite his question and what was happening to Tiriana. A necessary sacrifice. When Michael thought the Guardians couldn't stoop any lower, Tenulia surprised him. Tiriana was her best friend, yet she just waved it off, saying a necessary sacrifice like Tiriana's life was worth nothing. "You will pay for what you did to her. I will personally make sure you suffer more than she ever did," Tenulia coldly exclaimed as the Dark Lord turned his gaze at Peyton. "You are really a great actor," the Dark Lord mused. Those who heard him from outside sensed no fear in his tone, which made them terrified of him even more. "It was not an act," Peyton said, gritting her teeth. "In case you're wondering, we knew about the Nightwalkers long before you sent Victor with Peyton and tipped off the royal news. I have to give it to you, putting the Guardians against the Holy Church and turning the people against us at the same time was a great move." Tenulia snickered once again as she continued. "But you forgot one thing." Tenulia leaned forward. "When we hang you in front of Elon and reveal the real Desert Eagle operation, we will be hailed as heroes by the people. The future generations will sing songs about us and the sacrifices we made to eradicate you. So you let all those people die just to catch me?" Peyton saw the Dark Lord tilting his head. To be honest, his every move creeped her out. But what she went through to get him made her stronger than ever before. Bang. Peyton suddenly stood up from her chair and punched him in the face once again. "That's on you." She raised her voice. "If you hadn't exposed the vampires, those would have been alive." Bang. Tenulia let Peyton punch him again and didn't bother to stop her. As far as Tenulia was concerned, Peyton deserved to torture him because of what she went through to get him. However, a few punches to the face were nowhere closer to what he truly deserved. Victor was out man inside the Nightwalkers. We were getting so much information about them and how they operate. But, unfortunately because of you, we lost a valuable asset who could have tipped us about the attack in Adrizel. Peyton snarled at the Dark Lord. Except for Peyton, Tenulia, and Tiriana, none of them had any idea about Victor's true origin. He was a Guardian spy and now Michael had killed him. Meanwhile, the elites outside saw Zanali strolling toward them. When she arrived at the mirrors, her eyes went wide in shock. Her entire body felt shivers looking at the dark figure sitting opposite Peyton and Tanulia. Is that? Her voice trailed away in utter shock. Yes, Guardian Captain. That is the Dark Lord. Chapter 5:18 Unmasking the Dark Lord. Ha! Suddenly the Dark Lord burst into creepy laughter. His maniac laughter echoed through the room and sent shivers down the Guardian's spines. Your bullshit doesn't work on me, elf. I can see it in your eyes. You know about the attack long before I exposed the vampires. The only difference is because I exposed them, the vampires left some people alive so they could spread the message. Otherwise, it would have been a complete massacre with no survivors to tell any tales. Zanali was startled by his words. There was no way the Alpha Guardian knew about the attack and did nothing to prevent the killings. So many people, including Nagas in their human forms, were killed in the arena by the vampires. Tanulia creased her brows as he continued. You were planning to catch the elder vampire. But you didn't expect the dark net to be so problematic to break. Now that your incompetence backfired and caused so many lives, you're trying to pin it on me. Pin it on Lucifer or the Dark Lord as usual. Peyton heard the Dark Lord snicker. He leaned back on the chair and played beats on the table casually. We will catch the vampires. Just like we caught you. Tanulia clenched her fist only to see the Dark Lord snicker again. At what cost? You two are responsible for more deaths than me, and you people call me the Dark Lord. He turned his head to look at the mirror. The elite guardians and Zanali felt as though he was looking at them. I wonder what your future Supreme Guardian has to say about your plan. For the first time, a shock emerged on Tanulia's face. She stared at the Dark Lord without batting an eye. Noah Winston. I know all about him, Tanulia Vauren. Bang. As soon as he spoke these words, Tanulia kicked her chair backward and lunged at him over the table. She grabbed his shoulder and punched him without pulling her punch. Ha ha. But the Dark Lord kept laughing as though he heard a joke. His laugh became creepier by the second, and many Guardians wanted it to stop. Alpha Guardian, the latest __Sodies are on website. After seeing Tanulia punching him for the 50th time, Peyton softly called her to stop Tanulia. Although they suspect the Dark Lord was not a human and possessed inhuman strength and power, Peyton still didn't want to take his life before they could get as much information as possible from him. Particularly about where he came from. The demon realm or hell realm was something which they knew frighteningly little. The last page's grimoire about the Dark Age and the Dark Lord mentioned something about a demon king of hell realm, and the higher-ups of the Guardian Guild suspected the Dark Lord might have some information about the demon king. Unfortunately, the only information they possessed about the demon king was a name, Hunter. Dictator with a badass system. MC's name is also Hunter. What a coincidence. The higher-ups were none other than elders in the Sky Hall, but even the Alpha Guardians had no idea that the Sky Hall from the shadows controlled them. He doesn't know, and it will stay that way, Tanulia said before throwing one last punch at him. Her fist felt numb after punching him repeatedly. After we're done with you, we will see how your body is built. Starting from cutting open your throat, Tanulia threatened him, but he still kept laughing. You're a maniac. Not a god like some sickos claiming you are, Peyton growled. Seeing you hang to death will make everything I went through worth it. Again, I wonder what your future Supreme Guardian has to say about your plan. Particularly the part where you endangered his little sister's life. Seeing Tanulia and Peyton remain calm, Michael slowly connected the dots and was truly surprised by them. They knew the vampires were going to kidnap her and force her to retrieve that key, Michael said to himself. If I am right, they are planning to kill the vampires after she retrieves the key. Then they will take the key from her. You should worry about yourself, Tanulia snarled at the Dark Lord. Set a course to Drattle. Elders will meet us there. Tanulia turned her head and locked her gaze with Zanali. Zanali nodded before leaving the interrogation room towards the ship captain. Because Zanali was a Guardian captain, a couple of elites followed her behind. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Peyton and Tanulia each took a few parchments from the crate on the table and opened them. What am I thinking? Suddenly Tanulia smacked her forehead. Remove his mask. I want to see who is behind that mask, Tanulia ordered Peyton as the elites standing outside the room took a step forward. At that moment, every pair of eyes were locked on the Dark Lord's face. The latest _Sodies are on the website. Peyton stood up from her chair with a nod, strolled to the Dark Lord and came behind him. First thing, she removed the cloak covering his head, revealing raven black hair. It seemed like Peyton was doing everything in slow motion to the elite guardians. His smooth raven black hair was long enough to reach his neck. After removing the cloak, everyone could see the black skull mask on his face clearly. Michael had difficulty controlling the urge to kill Peyton and Tanulia then and there. However, he was unable to send his sword through their heads personally. As Michael was watching Tanulia and Peyton, the latter grabbed his skull mask. The Guardians felt their heartbeat rapidly increasing, including Peyton. "Time to see how you look behind the mask, Dark Lord," Peyton snickered as she slowly pulled up the mask to reveal the Dark Lord's face. They all felt a chill running through their spines as soon as his mask came off. His face was decayed with several cracks in his face. Half of his cheek was missing and they could see his yellowish decayed teeth. The two pale white eyes stared at Tanulia with a creepy smile on his face. Tanulia twitched her nose as the strong pungent smell of rotten skin entered her nostrils. It was pretty horrendous to say the least. A Netheril, Tanulia could recognize an undead or a Netheril as they were commonly known in the Cultivation continents when she saw one. "Ha ha 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 ha." The undead burst into laughter and squirmed, shaking the chair he was tied to. This time when Tanulia heard his mad laughter, she had a bad feeling. "H." The undead abruptly cut his laughter short and opened his mouth as wide as he could. When Tanulia looked into his mouth, she noticed something glowing inside his mouth. Before she could guess what that was, the undead spits the glowing rock onto the table. The elites immediately leaped away and curled into a ball, thinking the rock was going to explode. For some reason, the first thought when they saw the rock was that it might be a bomb. Tanulia stared at the jade rock on the table while a bright light inside the rock pulsated in regular intervals like a heartbeat. None of them had an idea about the rock until a bright light shot out of the rock to the wall behind the undead. The bright light slowly turned into a figure resembling the Dark Lord, but the Dark Lord before they unmasked him. "Dark Lord," the undead uttered the word as Peyton felt her entire body go numb. "Tsk, Peyton, Peyton, Peyton," the Dark Lord projected on the wall amused. The elites slowly managed to grasp the fact that the undead wasn't the real Dark Lord. But Tanulia was smarter than the rest. Hence, she realized the truth: the Dark Lord had played them. Visit. For the best no_Hingy experience, where is Tiriana? The Dark Lord asked as Tanulia quickly scanned everything around the Dark Lord. But no matter how hard she looked, she couldn't see anything but darkness around him. A few elites outside quickly made their way to Tiriana's room without waiting for Tanulia's orders. Instead, they were trained by Tanulia and worked under long enough to sense her thoughts. "Here she is." In the dim red light, Tanulia saw the Dark Lord pulling something from his side. "Tiriana," Tanulia muttered, looking at Tiriana in the Dark Lord's hands. He grabbed Tiriana by the neck as she squirmed to escape his grasp, but to no avail. "A necessary sacrifice." The Dark Lord calmly said in his demonic voice. Then he turned his head to look at Tiriana. Boom. The elites gasped in shock as Tiriana exploded into a bloody mist in the blink of an eye. Peyton stumbled back, seeing Tiriana's sudden yet horrifying death. On the other hand, Tanulia clenched her fist as her nails protruded the skin, making her literally bleed. After Tiriana exploded into blood-red mist, they saw nothing but red until the Dark Lord swiped off the blood. The Guardians who went to look for Tiriana returned to the area and pushed open the copper door. "Tiriana is not in her room, Alpha Guardian." The two armored guards had no idea that Tiriana exploded to death just a few moments ago. Boom. Tanulia raised her hand as a powerful gust of wind blasted away the two guards. "I thought you were fine with her dying, Tanulia Vaurin," the Dark Lord said, tilting his head. He sounded amused by the anger in Tanulia's eyes. "Not a good feeling, is it? Realizing your whole plan is just a colossal failure, ha." He laughed, shocking everyone. "Your elders have been wetting their pants for thousands of years because of me. A simple thought of me gave them nightmares. Did you really think that two bitches could catch me?" His voice became colder and murderous. He then took a step closer as they saw his face closer on the projected screen. Slowly his crimson-red eyes became dark as Tanulia saw his eyes flaming up. Under their gazes, he raised his hand and kept his middle finger and thumb together. "Visit. For a better _user experience, Peyton, when you thought you were playing me, you forgot something really important." Peyton's mind went black as she walked backward in fear. "I am the Dark Lord." He snapped his finger as the entire white room turned red with Peyton's blood. The Guardians gasped, realizing that Peyton exploded into a bloody red mist just like Tiriana with a snap of his fingers. Chapter 519 Destroying the Guardian Headquarters. As soon as the Dark Lord painted the walls with Peyton, the elites immediately rushed into the room to protect Tanulia. All of them were still boggled by Peyton's death. They had no idea how he killed Peyton without even laying a finger on her. He snapped his finger and she just exploded in the blink of an eye. The imposter Dark Lord, the undead, was laughing like a maniac looking at the Guardian's panic. I won't kill you now, Tanulia Valrin. First I will take away everything from you. Then I will kill your precious elites. Only when you wish for death, I grant you your wish. Although the elites surrounding her were trained to be fearless warriors, they all feared for their lives deep down. Besides, the armor the Under was wearing kept releasing fear toxin in the air. Thus, everyone who breathed in the air felt fear clutching their hearts. Michael planned everything to the last detail. Boom. Tanulia felt hot blood splashing on her yet again as an elite guardian exploded. The empty silver armor he wore hit the ground with a sickening thud. We have to go, Alpha Guardian. Ha! The undead laughed as the elites tried to take Tanulia away from the room. However, she did not even budge an inch from the room. Once again, Michael raised his hand, making the Guardians' hearts pound against their chests. Boom. Michael snapped, and just like before, a Guardian exploded from within. At that moment, the entire white room turned red, and blood oozed out of the walls and ceiling. Not only the walls but also Tanulia herself were drenched in blood. Her rosy face was covered by the blood of Peyton and 2 elite Guardians. For the first time in her life, her mind went blank. She was unable to think of the next step. As they were in a daze, hoping he wouldn't snap his finger one more time, Zanali entered the room. As soon as she entered the room, her face went pale. Her body shuddered, feeling her heart suddenly skipped a beat. Visit. For a better user experience, looking at all the blood and horror on the Guardians' faces and no Peyton in the room made her think of the worst. She stepped into the room as blood oozed down from the ceiling, reaching her crimson-red robes. Only then did she notice the Dark Lord's face on the wall. Despite all the blood, she could still make out his face. Where is Peyton? That was the first question Zanali asked. You're stepping on her? Zanali felt a chill hearing the Dark Lord's words. However, she noticed the one sitting on the chair didn't open his mouth. Since Zanali left the room way before the real Dark Lord's appearance and Peyton's death, she was pretty confused. Peyton is all around you, Zanali Harthill. Princess of Nagaland. Zanali's body went rigid as she stared at the wall blankly. The last time Zanali met the Dark Lord in the Silent Reaper, he revealed her race. Now somehow he had learned her real identity. Except for Peyton and Tanulia, no one knew about her race or identity as the Nagaland princess, not even Noah. What happened? Where is Peyton? Zanali stuttered. Gradually she felt a lump forming in her throat which made taking a difficult task. When the Guardians exploded, at least their armors survived the explosion. But unfortunately the same couldn't be said of Peyton. Not even a shred of Peyton's clothes survived the blast except her glasses. Zanali saw the glasses lying on the bloody floor and bent her knees to pick them up. Her hands shivered uncontrollably as her mind refused to accept Peyton was dead. Take a long look at what's around you, Guardians. This is what's waiting for you if you stand in my way. At that time, even Zanali couldn't be courageous due to the fear toxin in the air. After hearing his words, Zanali turned around, holding Peyton's glasses tightly. All the sweet memories she had with Peyton flashed across her eyes. We have to leave the ship. Alpha Guardian. Zanali's eyes flickered as Michael saw her pupils shrinking in size. At that moment, her eyes resembled the eyes of a Naga rather than a human. The ship is rigged to blow. We must go now. Tanulia took her gaze away from the Dark Lord. The captain is dead and so do several Guardians. Her rage and anger in her heart fought back the fear toxin in her bloodstream. Zanali momentarily pushed all her grief and anger to the back of her mind and informed Alpha Guardian of what she saw. Zanali recalled the bodies she saw on her way to the captain's cabin. All of the Guardians guarded the hallways and the captain's cabin was killed. Someone slit their throats and the captain literally had no head when she reached his cabin, where Zanali saw several explosives placed all around the room. Though unfamiliar with the explosives that looked like bricks pulsated red light, she sensed the heat building up within the bricks. Visit. For a better user experience, the last time we met, you destroyed the Silent Reaper. So now it's payback time, bitch. Michael snickered as he snapped his finger. The Guardians shuddered, but unlike they expected, none of them blew into a puppy red mist. Instead, the room the Dark Lord was standing in lit up. He was standing in a room with several world maps hanging from the walls and an oak table just a meter behind him. On the other side of the oak table sat a headless corpse that Zanali had seen a few minutes ago. He is in the captain's cabin. Tanulia immediately recognized the room. Alpha Guardian. The remaining 3 Guardians tried to stop Tanulia, but they were pushed away by her. Then on her way out she grabbed the glowing sword sticking out of the undead's guts. Ha ha ha. Pulch? Tanulia swung the sword and cut his head clean off of his shoulder. Then she strolled out of the room and didn't seem like anyone could stop her. Her eyes were bloodshot with anger. Boom. Suddenly they heard a loud explosion as the ship trembled violently. Soon the ship tilted sideways. Boom. The explosion went off again. This time the Guardians and Zanali were thrown off balance. The explosion sound continually rang in their heads and soon, the howling sound indicated the hull breach. Immediately Zanali grabbed the jade stone lying on the floor before stumbling out of the room while holding the walls for support. Get out of here. Zanali shouted at the elites following her behind. The lights flickered for a moment before ultimately going out. Then, the place turned dark as the emergency lights lit the hallway in a dim crimson red. I will go get the Alpha Guardian. Zanali had to shout even though the Guardian stood close to her due to the howling wind sound. But visit. For the best no understanding experience IDS and order. Zanali pushed the armored guards away before turning around to chase down Tanulia. The two remaining guards had no choice but to find a way to escape the ship. Unfortunately, the ship kept tilting left and right, making moving forward a problematic task. However, holding onto the walls, the two of them walked along towards the cargo bay, where they received the fake Dark Lord. That opening was the quickest and closest way to escape the ship. Don't fall back, Stas, the armored elite guardian leading the way shouted at the one behind him. The guardian behind was staggering until the elite guardian shouted at him. Then the guardian's walking became steadier despite the ship's frantic shaking. He walked steadily and lifted the silver helmet off, revealing the face beneath. It wasn't Stas as the elite guardian claimed. It was Michael. He was disguised as the guard and remained in the room the whole time. Stars. When the narrow hallway opened up to reveal the cargo bay, the elite guard shouted in relief. But unfortunately when he turned around, his relief became a shock. Boom. Michael snapped his finger before the guard could react. Just like earlier, the guard exploded into a bloody mist the moment he snapped his finger. While Tanulia and Zanali were on their way to the captain's cabin, Michael punched the ship, forming a large hole in the hull. Since they were so high in the sky and rapidly descending, the wind and pressure were strong enough to push any normal human being like a piece of paper. However, Michael wasn't a normal human being. Thus, he stood in front of the hole, looking at the tiny buildings on the ground. The ship descended straight towards Elon's Guardian headquarters in Kingdom Draddle. Michael made sure the captain set a course to the Draddle before he took the captain's head. Michael conjured the dark flames and the moment the dark flames touched the hull, the ship caught on fire. The ship was built to withstand fire but not against a powerful primordial flame such as the dark flames. Hence, the dark flames spread through the ship like wildfire, burning everything in its path. At that moment, everyone on the ground shouted at seeing the giant flaming meteor descending towards the Guardian castle. Immediately the mages and the Guardians flew out of the castle to stop the ship from colliding with the castle. It wouldn't take a genius to figure out that the result would be catastrophic if the ship crashed onto the castle. The Alpha Guardians in the castle immediately evacuated the people inside while the otters were casting spells to stop the ship. But at that moment they all knew stopping the ship wasn't an option. Thus they all braced for impact and tried to slow down the ship. Far away from the castle, Michael was floating above the clouds in his Lucifer form. The imminent destruction of Tanulia's warship and the headquarters put a wide grin on his face behind the mask. Visit. For a better user experience, it was a real pity that he couldn't hijack the ship because of all the runes and protective arrays. Unfortunately, the system level was too low to hack them, but the system could disable the defensive arrays for a short time. This short amount of time was enough for Michael to set it on fire and send it toward the castle. Payback, bitch. Michael turned around while the ship crashed onto the castle in the distance, creating a giant explosion. Several hours ago, Michael was floating above the clouds and looking at Tanulia on the sandy beach. She looked the size of a bullet ant from where he was. Michael wore his suit of armor and was shrouded in dark clouds. In simple words, he was in his complete Lucifer form. My lord, Azazel appeared beside Michael above the clouds. He is ready. Michael turned his head to see an undead wearing the same suit of armor as him. It cost Michael 6,000 badass points to buy the suit of armor and make the alpha undead wear it. Additionally, Michael attached a voice modulator he invented to the undead's throat. The feeds are online. Azazel pointed at the alpha undead's eyes. Go to the dark forest and monitor everything. What will you do about the warship approaching, my lord? Michael looked over his shoulder and activated his thermal vision. The moment the vision went blurry blue, he noticed a bright orange blob of a heat signature approaching their location. Cloaking technology, cool, Michael smiled, feeling his excitement bubbling inside. If the Alpha Guardian ship could have the cloaking ability, Michael could equip his warships and vehicles with the same technology but only better. Hijack or destroy, Michael calmly said. Now go, have good hunting, my lord. Azazel bowed deeply before his ghostly figure vanished into thin air, leaving Michael and the Alpha undead behind. After Azazel left, it was time to implement his plan. With a flick of his wrist, he manipulated the wind around the undead. Thanks to his 10% wind manipulation, he was able to levitate the undead slowly to the beach from the sky. My lord, as Michael was flying the undead to the beach, he heard Azazel's voice in his head. I have established a connection with his voice modulator. I can now speak on your behalf. Good. They'll be listening. Keep them think he's the Dark Lord. Yes, my lord. Visits? For the best experience, Azazel went silent as Michael finally landed the undead on the beach. Then, Michael flew higher into the air while controlling the undead telepathically. After merging his soul pieces together, his multitasking ability soared through the roof. Controlling the undead and flying had become as easy as breathing to him. Lightning dash. Michael flew at the invisible warship, leaving a dark trail in the sky. His speed had reached the point that when he flew away, he left after images of himself in the sky that lasted for a couple of seconds. In a few breaths of time, Michael arrived above the warship. He activated the thermal vision to see several guardians guarding the upper deck. They all wore metal plate armor from head to toe. However, when Michael disabled the thermal vision, the guards disappeared from his sight. So they also have the ability to use cloak. I need to get my hands on one of those armors. He already planned to disguise himself as a guard, but looking at the armor's ability to turn invisible, he decided to take it for himself. At that moment, there were 4 guardians patrolling the upper deck. Since the ship was Tenulia's headquarters, only the best of the best resided on the ship. Eladir, looking at the invisible ship floating through the clouds, Michael established a connection with Eladir. Can you the warship? Michael broadcasted what he saw to Eladir's mirror through the interlinked spiders and mirrors. I am not familiar with this vision. Can you place the rune I put in the space ring onto the ship's hull? It made sense that thermal vision was new to Eladir. Therefore, Michael nodded and waited for the soldier patrolling the ship's quarterdeck to turn around. Then the moment the soldier turned around, Michael dived down until he reached the ship's back, but he didn't touch the ship. You cannot make contact. Put this blue rune on your hands. It will temporarily prevent the ship from activating its defense arrays. The ring in Michael's middle finger let out a dim glow, indicating that Eladir, who had the interlinked space ring, added something into the space ring. Michael sent a sliver of his arch energy to access the ring and retrieved a golden parchment. When he opened the parchment while still floating behind the ship, he noticed a blue rune that resembled an eye glowing on the parchment. Touch the rune. As soon as Michael touched the rune turned into glowing blue dust and settled on his palm, forming the rune on his dark gloves. With the glowing rune in his hand, Michael touched the hull. Immediately Michael had a cold chill all over his body. Now place this rune on the ship. Once again Michael retrieved another parchment from his space ring. This time, there was a rune in the shape of a fire symbol burning in the parchment. Like before, when he touched the rune, it turned into glowing crimson-red dust, floated to his right hand and formed the rune on his palm. The latest _IP_SODs are on _the website. Michael heard a muffled creaking sound coming from the ship when he placed the rune on the ship's hull. They did an acceptable job, I think. But my runes are better. The Eye of Shalia will give you 5 minutes of time, which is more than enough for you to deal with the guards. Wear one of their armors and you're good to go, Eladir instructed him. Although Eladir heard that Michael was a hitman on Earth, he had no idea how skilled Michael was. Way ahead of you, Michael already planned to wear one of their armor. Now with the glowing blue rune, which was apparently called the Eye of Shalia, Michael climbed the ship carefully. Even when he was wearing heavy armor, Michael was extremely nimble. He climbed the distance of 20 meters in a minute. Then when he reached the deck, he looked up to see the guard leaning on the edge watching the night sky. Michael was just a few inches beneath the guard, and if the guard looked down he might see him. But before the guard could do so, Michael performed a ledge assassination by pulling the guard down by his neck and snapping his neck in a blink of an eye. Thanks to the system, he only had to pay 100 badass points, and the armor would appear around him. Otherwise he had to remove the armor from the soldier and wear it piece by piece, which would take time, and in that time, other guards might notice their colleague missing. Michael dropped the naked soldier down and climbed up the ledge as one of the guardians. After he had equipped the armor, he felt a vague connection with the armor. He closed his eyes for a moment as his silver armor flickered a few times before turning invisible. But, of course, it wasn't a perfect cloak. One could see the distortion in the air due to light refraction. He was confident enough to perfect the cloak with the help of Eladir, the system, and his inventor skills. The only thing Michael lacked was a blacksmith skilled enough to forge worthy armor. Michael killed one of the 4 guardians, leaving 3 guardians on the deck. One guardian was standing near the main sail post while the other 2 guarded the ship's front. Despite the cloak, the other soldiers seemed they could see through the cloak. Otherwise, the soldier wouldn't have nodded at Michael, who was invisible. Michael nodded back while looking at the soldier closely. The armor protected the whole body by covering head to toe. However, a gap between the chest plate and helmet exposed the neck by several inches. The gap was not wide enough for a sword to cut through, but Michael's hidden blades could. Michael adjusted his armor sleeves to form a gap so the hidden blades could come out without damaging the silver armor. Looking at the soldier, Michael moved his hand behind and took out a copper coin from his system storage. The coin was made of junk metal and enhanced by Eladir's runes, just like his spiders. Hence, when Michael sent a spider carrying the coin to the ledge near the soldier, they triggered no arrays. When the spider dropped the coin a few meters away from the soldier, Michael activated the copper coin. For a moment, it flickered and then it produced a low-pitched whistling sound. What the? The soldier signaled Michael to keep his eyes on him before turning and walking towards the coin. The soldiers on the front were still looking at the other side. The 2 of them seemed to be having an interesting conversation in Michael's eyes. Instead of following the soldier's order, Michael floated toward him without making a sword. As a result, the soldier had no idea Michael was behind him when he bent down to pick up the coin. Poch. The latest _AP_SODIES are on _the website. Michael grabbed his neck from behind and immediately sent his hidden blade through the armor gap. Jur, the soldier made a sickening growl as Michael cut his vocal cords and threw him off the ledge. 2 down, 2 to go. Even though the soldiers were elites, they were inside the void, making them powerless in front of Michael. While walking toward the 2 soldiers, the atmosphere grew darker as Michael cast the death range spell to enhance his powers to a terrifying level. We are really going to capture the Dark Lord. Those amateurs in the guild just overhyped him. In truth, they are just incompetent. No shit. That's why they are still guardians and we are hunters. The 2 soldiers gossiped, having no idea death was nearing them. I'm excited to receive a huge bonus from Alpha Guardian. How much do you think it is? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I can afford a mansion and a huge piece of land with it. Considering it was nighttime, the soldiers failed to notice the darkness formed by the death range. Besides, Michael floated towards them so they heard no footsteps. Hello boys, they heard a sudden cold voice and tried to turn around. However, Michael grabbed both of them by their necks and tightened his grasp, crushing their helmets. Their armor flickered, revealing the caved-in heads. The next moment, Michael tossed them down from the ship. Finally, Michael cleared all the guards on the upper deck. My lord, Miss Peyton has arrived. Azazel's voice sounded in his head. Stall her. I'm on my way to the dining area. It's time the soldiers tasted my blood tonic. Michael looked around the empty deck. The latest _SODIES are on website. I still got it. Michael felt proud of his handiwork. In a matter of a couple of minutes, he assassinated 4 elites like they were nothing. It had been so long since he used his assassin skills in this world. With a proud grin under the helmet, Michael made his way to the ship's center where he saw a latch. Pulling up the latch, Michael opened the doorway to the lower decks. He climbed down the ladder and reached a narrow hallway lit with elegant small chandeliers. He stepped on a ruby-red carpet that ran from the ladder to the other parts of the ship. A few meters away from Michael, he noticed a soldier guarding a door, and when he noticed Michael, he turned his head. What are you doing down here? The guardian asked. Man, I need to get something to eat. I'm starving. Michael quickly disabled his cloak and rubbed his belly. Damn it man, quickly eat something and return to your post. The guardian had a British accent which slightly surprised Michael and reminded him of the time Michael traveled to London to kill a billionaire in his own mansion. Will do. Michael slowly walked towards the soldier while looking around to see if he could find any clues to locate the kitchen. Seeing Michael approaching him, the soldier raised his hand. Where are you going, mate? The dining area is through that door. The soldier pointed at the door couple of doors away from the door Michael was at. Michael expected the soldier to point out the way because only one of 2 things could have happened. 1, the soldier would point out the right way. Else, he would suspect Michael and try to apprehend him, which would have resulted in Michael killing him and burning his body to ashes with dark flames. Luckily for the soldier, he chose the first option. My mind is boggled, man. Thanks anyways. You want anything? Yeah, get me a pastry on your way out, the soldier said as Michael nodded. Sure thing. As he reached the door to the kitchen, he twisted the copper knob and was welcomed by an enormous high-ceilinged room, large enough to contain at least 70 people, with mounds of glittering brass pots and pans heaped around the stone walls and a great brick fireplace at the other end. In addition, there were 7 rows of long oak tables and benches for the guardians to dine on. At that moment, the kitchen was rather empty, and only a few guardians sat on the benches having their fill. All the oak tables had several pots and bowls filled with various dishes. When Michael reached one of the oak tables, he grabbed a pastry, lifting his helmet a bit. Not bad. The pastry melted in his mouth. He took a big bite and made his way to the brass pots. I thought only we have a break. Seeing Mykov, a blonde-haired soldier who was having porridge, said, I am starving. Can't be on an empty stomach when we catch the Dark Lord, can we? Michael, amused, can't argue with that point? Finish it quickly, Mac. We can't be late to receive the Dark Lord. Michael was pleasantly surprised. Visits? For a better user experience, is that so? You guys are so lucky you get to see the Dark Lord up close. The blonde soldier rolled his eyes. Lucky my ass. I'd rather guard Lady Tiriana's room than stay close to that creepy fucker. Still standing near a brass pot, Michael asked the soldiers, Speaking of Lady Tiriana, I have a message for her. From Alpha Guardian. I need to get that to her ASAP. Then what are you doing here? Lady Tiriana's room is on the other side. Another red-haired guardian with a long cut across his tanned face spoke in a thick accent. I will go. After I taste this baby, Michael pretended to take a long whiff of the aroma from the brass pot before him. You guys tried this? Asked Michael, ignoring the red-haired man. What's in there? Asked another soldier. Meanwhile, Michael controlled the spider he used to distract the soldier to crawl through the hallway. Fortunately, Michael found a map of the interior on the wall. It made sense to make a painting of the map and hang this on the wall for the soldiers to navigate through this giant ship. Chicken soup. What the hell? Let's have a taste, shall we? Michael grabbed 5 ceramic bowls from the table beside him and filled them with the chicken soup while showing his back to the guardians. With fast and precise movements, Michael took out blood tonic, which was a muddy brown potion, poured it into the bowls and turned around. The brown potion quickly became colorless and blended with the chicken soup. Here you go, guys. Michael memorized the map as he put the bowls on the table. You should go now, the red-haired man coldly said after Michael took a sip of the soup. Okay, Jeesh. You're aiming for Employee of the Month or something. Michael's words made the others chuckle while Michael grabbed a bunch of pastries. This is for me to have on the way. Michael walked away from the guardians. On his way towards the door, he looked over his shoulder to see all of them take a long sip of chicken soup. When he came out of the kitchen, he quickly took out another blood tonic potion and drenched them in the potion. For a moment, the pastries looked wet, but soon, they regained their usual crispy texture after the pastries absorbed the nanites. Then, Michael navigated through the hallway according to the map, and on his way, he handed over pastries to the guardians patrolling the hallways. Only then did Michael realize how hungry these soldiers were. It didn't even take any effort to make them eat the pastries. The latest _sodies are on the website. Is everything ready? As he was walking in the hallway on his way to Tiriana's room, Michael saw Zanali escorted by 3 guardians walking towards him. Yes, Guardian Captain. Everything is in place. Good. I don't want any surprises. Suddenly Zanali turned her gaze away from the guardian beside her to Michael, who was standing in the hallway with a pastry in his hand. What are you doing? Despite the situation, Michael remained calm. For an assassin, it was paramount to stay calm since panicking wouldn't solve anything. Hungry Guardian Captain. Michael sounded like an embarrassed more solid. Seeing him scratch the back of his neck, Zanali rolled her eyes. Plop. Surprisingly, she slapped his hand with enough force to make him drop the pastry in his hand. Return to your post before I make you have no post to return to, she growled. Yes, Guardian Captain. Michael turned his tone to sound apologetic, bowing his head. He remained, bending his back until Zanali walked away to a safe distance from him. What a colossal bitch. Michael looked at her figure disappearing before resuming his journey to Tiriana's room adjacent to Captain's cabin. All guardians be alert. The target has reached the loading area and is on its way to the interrogation room. All of a sudden, Michael heard a rough female voice echoing through the hallways. After navigating through the maze of a hallway, Michael finally reached a lavish wooden door flanked by 2 elites. The next door was also flanked by 2 elites, so, in total, there were 2 doors and 4 elites in front of him. It was kinda problematic since the 2 doors and Guardian were standing next to each other. Luckily for Michael, no elites were inside the captain's cabin and Tiriana's room. He could see Tiriana curling into a ball on her bed while the captain read the map on a table. Thanks to his thermal vision enabled him to see through walls. Fortunately, Michael had the distracting copper coins and countless spiders in his storage. He put his hands behind his back, retrieving another spider and a coin. The spider grabbed the coin and crawled through Michael's legs, avoiding their gazes. The spider and the copper coin perfectly blended with the ruby-red carpet they were standing on. "You have a reason to be here? I'm making sure everything is in place." Alpha Guardian's orders. Michael was always prepared to kill them. It would only take him a couple of seconds to kill all of them, but he decided to deal with them stealthily instead of like a murdering maniac. Visit. For the best no_vel_ed_ng experience anyone could kill, but only an assassin or a killer like Michael could kill with finesse. Ding. This time, the coin made a loud noise attracting the 4 Guardians' attention. "Did you hear that?" One soldier at each door walked towards where the noise came from, leaving one behind as they should. Looking at the 2 soldiers at the door at a 3-meter distance and the 2 soldiers walking away, Michael cracked his neck. The very next moment, Michael dashed at the first soldier, slashing his throat with his hidden blade. Then, before the blood splashed onto the floor, Michael activated the death range and fired a powerful bolt of lightning through the other Guardian's head. He didn't stop as he drew the sword on the Guardian's sheath and threw the sword at the Guardian, who turned back, hearing the thud sounds made by the 2 dead soldiers. The sword went straight through his head as soon as he turned around. Then, using the walls as his steps, Michael parkoured to the remaining Guardian. Ignitia. In midair, Michael pointed his finger as the golden lightning bolt shot out of his finger and went through the Guardian's throat, forming a hole in his neck. From slashing the first Guardian's throat with his hidden blade to killing the last one with the lightning bolt happened within 5 seconds. The elites couldn't even lift their fingers in front of his inhuman speed, technique, and strength boosted by the death range. Killing them was only half the battle, as Michael had to dispose of the bodies. Quickly Michael dragged the 4 bodies while spraying the potion he brewed to clean the bloodshed onto the walls and the floor through a sprayer attached to the center of his gloves. Chapter 477 mentions the upgrades done to the armor. Michael looked around with his X-ray vision to see no one was coming his way. The captain in the cabin didn't seem like he heard a thing as he was still reading a map. Instead of going into the captain's cabin, Michael decided to greet Tiriana. But when he touched the doorknob he felt an electric shock. "System, unlock the door for me." After seeing the golden runes on the room, he realized Tanulia placed runes on the door to protect Tiriana. The system requires 6,000 badass points to disable the runes. "Do it." A bright light shot out of Michael's hand to the door. Then, the glowing runes dimmed out in a few blinks of an eye. With a grin, Michael twisted the knob as the door opened with a crackling sound. He took a step inside the room and saw Tiriana curling into a ball on her white bed. "Knock knock elf, your death is here. Visits?" For the best no_vel_ed_ng experience. Tiriana, who heard these words weakly, opened her eyes. After Michael demonstrated his skills to Asian and Alred 3 days ago, he went to one of Michael's restaurant competitors, the Ruby Cuisine. Michael poisoned her food with blood tonic without her knowledge or anyone. Ever since that day, Michael has been controlling the nanites and causing her pain. Chapter 495 mentions Tiriana's arrival at Adrizel. Tanulia found the spiders because of Noah. They thought they found all the spiders in the warship except the one Michael left in Peyton's body. Michael knew they had found the spiders and tried to manipulate him by feeding him false information. But Peyton's dedication to catching him really surprised Michael. She really went all in, and if it wasn't for the spider in her body, Michael would have been in the interrogation room right now instead of in Tiriana's room. Who are? She was so weak and barely uttered these words. Looking at Michael dragging the dead bodies, she tried to rise up from the bed but only to fail again and again. After dragging their bodies inside, Michael closed the door. You want to get up?" Seeing Tiriana struggling and trying to reach for the dagger on a table beside the bed, Michael stepped toward the bed. Bang! With a single punch to the side of her face, Michael knocked out Tiriana. "Now it's time to clear their bodies." Michael turned around, controlling the air in the room to lift the bodies into the sky. However, he couldn't lift the body in the air because of his weak wind manipulation rate. If he tried to use the dark flames to burn them without creating a wind cocoon around the bodies, the entire room would be on fire and soon the whole ship. Damn it! Michael yet again raised his hand as a small whirlwind appeared in the room, but he soon lost control over the whirlwind. Several sweat beads appeared on his forehead, but he still couldn't lift one body. Plan B then. Wind blast. Since he couldn't burn the bodies, Michael raised his hand, sending a powerful blast of wind. The wind blast hurled the bodies under Tiriana's bed. Although it wasn't the perfect hiding spot, no one would find the bodies unless one looked under the bed. Besides, Michael didn't need to keep the bodies hidden for long. Come here, sweetie pie. Michael lifted Tiriana from the bed in his arms. His next destination was closer, the captain's cabin. While walking out of the room, he looked around with his X-ray vision. Fortunately, no one was approaching. Blood bags and retractable dagger. Tanulia appeared in the corner of his vision. He saw her through the spy cam in the undead's eyes. Bravo! Michael chuckled as he arrived in front of the captain's cabin's door. Standing before the door, he put down Tiriana on her feet. Bang. Visit. For a better user experience, Michael kicked open the door, startling the plump bald man on the other side of the oak table. Move an inch and I will break her neck. His face might be covered by the helmet, but it couldn't hide the killing intent in his voice. Who are you? The captain asked. Raise your arms in the sky, Michael calmly asked, but the captain seemed reluctant. With a flick of his wrist, Michael took out a dagger and placed it against Tiriana's neck. Okay. Seeing the knife against her neck, the captain immediately raised his arms over his head. Now, if you do everything I say when I say, you and she will live. Using his legs, Michael closed the door without taking his eyes off the man. You have no idea who you're messing with, the captain growled. Funny? I was about to say the same. Michel moved the dagger pointing at the captain. Lightning dash. Instantly, a lightning bolt shot out of his hand. The captain's body went rigid as the lightning bolt hit the wall behind him, just avoiding his head by a couple of inches. You? The captain stuttered in fear. Only one could use spells inside the void line, and it was the Dark Lord. Realizing the man before him might be the Dark Lord sent shivers running down his spine. He immediately began to tremble as he drenched his white robes with sweat. A rectangular box vaguely resembled a flight dashboard with several levers and colorful buttons a couple of meters behind the captain. Michael could see the endless crystal ocean outside through the windows above the console. Set a course to your headquarters in Drattle. Or the next one goes through your head. Seeing the tiny lightning bolts dancing around his arm, the captain shivered. At that moment, the only thought the captain had was getting out of here alive. Unlike the rest of the ship, he wasn't an elite guardian. Tanulia hired him as the ship captain just a week ago, and if he knew he would be in the same room with the Dark Lord, he wouldn't have taken the damn job despite the handsome wage. He regretted leaving the Guardian Guild in Idrizel. Just don't kill me, the captain slowly walked backward, keeping his arms in the air. Don't give me a reason to, Michael calmly said. After reaching the dashboard, the captain pulsed the red lever and pressed some buttons on the dashboard. Visit. For the best no_understanding experience, it's done. The captain turned around. Good. Michael nodded and stayed silent for a few moments. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Tanulia just unmasked the undead. It's showtime. Michael paid the system another 100 badass points. Soon, his silver armor faded into thin air, revealing his Lucifer armor. Instantly, the room lost all the light and grew darker. Now tell me, Captain, have you ever taken an innocent life? The captain was startled by his question. But, of course, he had taken innocent lives. During his visit to a village in Idrizel, he slapped a slave he bought from the southern continent to death because she refused to pleasure him. It was quite usual among the nobles. But he didn't dare to say anything to the Dark Lord. No, never. Fair enough, the captain sighed in relief. Though his relief only lasted a second as Michael cast the wind blast but manipulated the wind element to change the shape of the blast. He created a wind blade. It was his first time manipulating the wind element to transform the wind blast into a wind blade. His wind blade was surprisingly good enough to cleave the captain's head off his shoulder. The captain's headless body staggered around the room, spraying blood all over the room while his head hit the table with a sickening thud. He was lying, Michael told Tiriana as though she was awake. He moved on to put Tiriana on the oak table and took out a spider to record his message to Tanulia. After recording everything he wanted, he planned to send the feed to the mini projector he left in the undead's mouth. Tanulia would think it was a live feed. Still, in reality, it was a pre-recorded feed made by Michael to distract everyone. A few minutes later, Michael left the room, disguising himself as an elite guardian. The room was painted red with the captain and Tiriana's blood. To this moment, Tanulia had no idea her friend had exploded to death. Again, I wonder what your future Supreme Guardian has to say about your plan. Particularly the part where you endangered his little sister's life. Michael watched Azazel talk through the voice modulator attached to the undead's throat while going to the interrogation room. Michael was curious to see Tenulia's expression, and he was surprised when he saw the calm look on her face. They knew the vampires were going to kidnap her and force her to retrieve that key, Michael said to himself. If I am right, they are planning to kill the vampires after she retrieves the key. Then they will take the key from her. Michael was more curious about the key now. The vampires were desperate to find it, and the Guardians also seemed interested in the key. What surprised Michael was that Tenulia hid the fact she was using Sabrina from Noah. Officer, Michael knew if Noah knew Tenulia put his sister in danger, he would put Tenulia through hell. But in case Michael knew Sabrina was his little sister, he would have massacred every single Guardian on the ship and gone straight for Tenulia's head. Wondering what might the key unlock, Michael navigated through the corridors to the interrogation room. Visit. For the best no_understood experience. Hey, when he arrived in front of the mirror, a fellow elite Guardian greeted him with a nod. None of them had an idea that the real Dark Lord was watching the interrogation with them. He stood with 4 other Guardians while Zanali stood closer to the mirror a couple of feet in front of them. Gaia made him promise that he wouldn't kill Zanali. Otherwise he would have killed her by now. And who are you, cat? To others, only Peyton, Tenulia, and the undead were in the room. However, there was another figure who remained invisible. Even the elites failed to see him, as his invisibility cloak was much more powerful and better than the elite Guardians. Michael saw his 7-feet figures via thermal vision. His figure vaguely resembled the tiger hybrid Jacobi he killed when Gaia returned from the Fire Realm. If his memory served him right, he might be the Black Panther beastmen he saw while watching Tenulia's warship feed. Chapter 469 mentioned the Black Panther beastman. Michael had a feeling that he was here to protect Tenulia if this went south. Michael also noticed a medallion on her neck, radiating immense power. System scanned that medallion. As usual, the system asked for 2,000 badass points. In a couple of moments he heard back from the system. The system has finished the scan. The medallion contains a sophisticated rune that will teleport Tenulia to an unknown location in case her life is threatened. Why am I not surprised? It made sense to Michael. She was way high in the Guardian hierarchy, and they wouldn't let her come to the southern continent without any contingencies to save her life. Killing her would take much more time and preparation. All these medallions, runes, and Guardians could only protect her for a short amount of time. As soon as Michael reaches the fusion stage, he would end her life regardless of whom or what she has to protect herself. The moment she destroyed the Silent Reaper, she sealed her fate. Set a course to Drattle. Elders will meet us there. Michael saw Tenulia turning her head and looking at Zanali. Zanali nodded at Tenulia before leaving for the captain's room, where Michael left some nice surprises for her. After Zanali left, Tenulia smacked her forehead. What am I thinking? Visit. For a better user experience, remove his mask. I want to see who is behind that mask, Tenulia ordered Peyton as the elites outside the room took a step forward. One of those elites was Michael. Sometime in the future, under the pitch-black sky, a castle menacingly stood in the middle of thousands of warriors. The sky was lit by the hundreds of fireballs, lightning bolts, and meteors sent by the mages down and in the air. The castle's black walls remained firm despite being bombarded by thousands of angry mobs. They all looked like ants in front of the giant castle. As far as one could see, there was nothing but scorched land around the castle, which was previously crowded with ancient forests. Suddenly, as they were sieging the castle vibrated, resonating in ear-piercing howling sound. Boom. As the sound traveled for hundreds of miles, a ring of dark flames expanded rapidly, burning everyone in the vicinity to ashes. Cast the light barrier. The hundreds of mages in white robes shouted as loud as they could and formed a human chain around the castle. Then they all raised their staff towards the sky as it slowly split open to release a bright white light. Just as the bright light was coming from the sky, a dark mist surrounded the castle, turning the surroundings darker than before. At the same time, thousands of warships were approaching the castle on the horizon. The staff of the mages began to radiate a dim light on the ground. Soon, the dim light weaved a shield in front of them. When the dark flames met the shield, its movement was halted. The dark flames tried to push through the force field as cracks formed in the white shield. Fighting one of the most powerful primordial flames, the immortal mages broke into a sweat. Meanwhile, in one of the warships approaching the castle, a golden-haired man was staring at the map of the dark forest. Several other men adorned with golden armor stood around the large oak table, and they all bore serious expressions on their faces. General Evan, what are your next orders? One of the golden-armored warriors asked General Evan Clark. Push forward. Permission to speak freely, General, another golden-armored warrior asked General Clark. Permission granted. When Evan nodded, the soldier removed his golden helmet to reveal her alluring face and striking golden hair. Despite their real age, they all looked like they were in their early 30s because of their cultivation levels. Evan, why are we sending half of our troops to the castle where we know the Dark Lord isn't? We all know the Dark Lord is in the crypt. Visit. For the best no_vil_undershinji experience, the other soldiers didn't speak a word, but they all agreed with her. Unlike her, they couldn't ask the general so freely. Because we have someone far more important in that castle who could end this war forever. The soldiers were stunned as Evan let out a deep breath. Listen to me, men. I was instructed not to disclose the information until I got the confirmation. Now that I received it from the Queen, it's time for you to know our real objective. Everyone's gaze was on Evan for what he was about to tell them. But, instead of explaining, Evan flicked his wrist as a holographic image of an infant child appeared above the table. We have confirmation that the dark child is in the castle. The golden-haired lattice eyes went wide as the others looked pale behind their helmets. It's a rumor. Isn't it? A soldier stuttered, trembling in fear. It's not a rumor. The dark child is real. Our orders are to kill the dark child no matter the cost. The soldiers were stunned by his words as the golden-haired woman strolled to Evan from the other side of the table. Even if it's the spawn of the Dark Lord and the Dark Queen, we don't kill a child, Evan. We are no different than the Dark Lord if we did that, she gravely said. Orders are orders, Victoria, and this order came directly from the Queen. Evan it's General Evan, Captain Victoria. Evan cut her off in the middle before she could finish her sentence. Yes, General. Her eyes showed reluctance, but she decided to follow his lead. Because he was not only the general but also her husband. General, if the Dark Child is in the castle, the Dark Queen won't be too far. We have no idea about her whereabouts. But expect high resistance from the Dark Lord's army. They wouldn't let us kill the child so easily. With another flick of his wrist, the child's image disappeared, and the castle appeared before them. Evan pointed to a red dot on the far east side of the castle where the castle's fire-breathing tower was located. The tower was built to resemble a sleeping dragon and breathed fire through its mouth. This is our inn. The Nightmare Tower breath fire every 10 seconds, and when it's getting ready for the next breath, we will fly into its mouth. Place these charges. Evan's ring on his finger let out a dim glow as several dark bricks appeared on the table. Destroy the tower and fight our way to the center where we believe the child is. Evan said, the latest _p_episodes are on website. To this day, no one has stepped into the castle because of the fear toxin. So we are going in blind. Expect Alpha Undead, the Dark Assassins, and every type of Dark Lord's army to be inside. Although Evan heard no disagreement with the plan, he knew the meaning of their silence. He had been leading the troops for years, and they didn't have to use words to speak their minds. Instead, Evan could understand them. Anyone with a brain could tell that the plan was suicide, yet the orders directly came from the Queen herself. The Queen's words were absolute. They wouldn't have stood a chance against the Dark Lord without her. Her courageous leadership and the God of Light's power made fighting the Dark Lord possible. When he first heard he had to kill a child, Evan immediately opposed the order, just like Victoria. However, the Queen showed him the future. The Dark Child held the key to opening the portals to the other universes. According to the Queen, the Dark Lord was planning to revive the ancient gods to life again. If the portal is opened, the Dark Lord can travel between the universes in his physical form. Once it happened, no one can stop the Dark Lord, not even the God of Light. Evan recalled the Queen's words. The Dark Lord must not revive the ancient gods. Evan, ancient gods. Evan mumbled under his breath. The Queen had never looked so serious before. But when she spoke about the ancient gods, Evan saw the fear in her eyes. General, the soldiers shouted, stopping Evan's train of thoughts. I know it sounds like a suicide mission and most of us won't survive the battle. But no matter what, we must reach the child and end its life before it ends our world. Evan paused for a moment before continuing. While we are fighting our way through the castle, our remaining forces will focus on sieging the castle in all directions. This would keep the Dark Lord's forces busy and give us some breathing room. What about the Dark Lord General? Victoria raised a question. If he decides to show up, you know our plan will go down the drain. Just the thought of the Dark Lord appearing gave them chills. The last time the Dark Lord appeared, he killed 3,000 elites of the Great 8 clans and 100 immortals in a few seconds like they were nothing. We don't have to worry about him. The Queen will keep him busy. Once we place these charges, it will turn off the castle's defense mechanisms for 20 minutes. Even after explaining the plan, something felt off to Even, like it's just a tiny part of the Queen's plan. I don't like this plan, not even a bit. But we will follow you to the Hell Realm itself, General. Victoria placed her hand on her chest and spoke loud and clear. It's been an honor working with you people, Evan said, looking at each and every one of his men and women who fought beside him for more than 10 years. Visit. For a better user experience, General Evan, a white-robed man, entered the room. We will reach our destination in 5 minutes. Evan nodded as the man left the room, leaving them to their meeting. Leave us alone and regroup at the cargo bay in 4 minutes. The soldiers bowed and left the room, leaving Victoria and Evan alone. You don't like this plan, do you, Evan? Victoria walked toward Evan with a gentle smile on her face to calm him down. She placed her hand on his shoulder. Well, get through this, Evan. We always do. Evan lost his general domineer as he tilted his head, resting his head on her hand. Don't hate me for making you do this, Victoria, Evan said in an apologetic tone. You're just following orders, Evan. I know. My only question is, why can't we take the child hostage and force the Dark Lord to surrender? Too many variables, the Queen said. She said the child would let the Dark Lord travel between universes in his physical form, Victoria. Once it happens, she said he could revive the ancient gods. I feel like there is more to the ancient gods than we know of, Evan. Do you remember the rumors that an ancient god revived the god of light? Victoria asked as Evan sighed. He took his head off her hand and looked at the castle in the distance through the windows. It's just a rumor, Victoria. All the ancient gods have been in an eternal slumber. It's what the Queen said. Victoria's brow arched up. We cannot doubt the Queen now, Victoria, not when we are so close to ending the war. Evan took his gaze away from the castle and looked Victoria in the eyes. Oh, come on, Evan. She rolled her eyes. The odds are we are going to die today. So we can speak freely. Look, I don't trust and worship the Queen as you and the others do. She and I have a common enemy, the Dark Lord. Her leadership is what gave us a fighting chance against him. I give her that. But that doesn't mean we have to trust her blindly. There's nothing wrong with questioning her, Evan. Evan knew Victoria had always been skeptical about the Queen and the information she's been providing them. But, of course, the majority of the people believed and worshipped the Queen. But a few people like Victoria questioned the Queen's motives. I don't think the Dark Lord will literally go to hell and heaven to revive good guys, Victoria. Whatever these ancient gods are, they are bad news, said Evan. But I still remember Layla's last words, Evan. You weren't there. Layla was about to say something about the ancient god, but the Queen killed her. Victoria emphasized the word the. I can still hear her last words and her smile, Evan. Every night I closed my eyes, I could see her smiling even when she knew she was going to die. Visit? For the best understanding experience, Victoria's eyes watered without her control as she recalled Layla's last words. The ancient god Dawn is coming for you. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.